10 years ago, I adopted a group of girls and trained them to be professional female assassins and spies. They saw me as their everything. But after learning of my death, one by one, they sought death out of overwhelming grief. One stabbed herself in the heart. Another crashed a plane into a mountain during a mission, and yet another ended her own life with a gun. But because their actions were all broadcast live, I was reborn into the past. However, when I met them again, they all wanted to have my children. Anyway, no more rambling, let's begin. Right now at the White Bull Service Company, Altoona, Pennsylvania, USA. 107 Plank Road, October 23rd, 2021, 7:50 a.m. A blond man was walking down the hallway, holding a Starbucks coffee. Then he walked over, handed a cup to his red-haired colleague, and asked, "How's the situation?" The other replied, "Everything's normal." The red-haired man turned his head and asked, "How much longer do you think we have to do this job?" "I've been in this godforsaken place for 3 whole years." The blond man replied, "You can't stand it after just 3 years?" 8 years ago, when this company was founded, I was already here. He recalled pensively, "We only have one job." One day, 8 years ago, the company was established with fewer than 10 members. The person in charge ordered, "Keep a close watch on the guy on the ship for me." This isn't my request, but an order from the Central Intelligence Agency headquarters in Langley. An order from the White House. The blond man thought to himself, "This is the 69,457th hour, the 8th year and 1st minute of my work for the company. Less than 10 minutes to go." Suddenly, the red-haired man reported, "Captain, something's not right." He turned around and said, "The ship's speed seems to have increased." The screen flashed a red warning, and alarm bells blared throughout the room, causing the coffee cup in his hand to fall to the ground. The blond man hurriedly took out his phone to call someone. "Boss, something's happened." The person on the other end asked, "What is it?" He replied with a horrified expression, "Red alert." At the CIA headquarters in Langley in the White House, the leaders were all stunned upon hearing this news and cursed out loud. The scene shifts to the South Pacific, the British island of Losini, 11:30 a.m. A heavily armed squad is surrounding a man in a red shirt. "You shouldn't have broken the agreement and left the safe zone we agreed upon," he added. Langley and the White House are very displeased about this. The man in red was Chun Nua. He lit a cigarette, took a drag, and replied, "Just make those who are displeased disappear from the earth." Now, let me speak to the person who can actually make the decisions. Despite having some stubble, he still looked very young. He turned back to the blond man and said, "This is an order." This left the man speechless. The blond man gritted his teeth, not daring to resist, then anxiously handed the communication device to him. Chun Nua laughed loudly, his tone full of mockery. "Mr. President, stop cursing. If you curse again, I'll curse back." He took a drag from his cigarette and continued, "You know, any agreement has an expiration date. For the past 8 years, I've given America enough face. Now, I just want to set foot on land. We don't need to beat around the bush. You all know my physical condition. Every time my ship procured supplies, you inspected everything, even a single pill. Not to mention the medications I take regularly. Your medical experts must have already reached a conclusion about my health and the progression of my illness. Right?" Chun Nua proposed, "Let's make one last deal. 3 months from now, the entire detonation program for the 16 nuclear bombs I stole from you will self-destruct. My request is simple. Within 3 months, you're not to use any means to hunt down my people. They will go underground and disappear completely from this world." He toyed with the cigarette in his hand and continued, "This is my final condition. If you agree, we'll pop some champagne and celebrate from afar. If you don't agree," Chun Nua flicked the ash from his cigarette and said loudly, "Boom." He sneered, his face emotionless. "The nuclear bombs on your soil will be detonated. Exciting, isn't it? Now I'll just ask you one question. Do you accept or not, Mr. President?" The call continued, with the blond man standing silently behind, observing. After everything was settled, he returned the special phone to the man and said with a smile, "See," the president agreed. "Come on, let's pop a bottle of champagne to celebrate." The blond man snatched the phone, cursing, "You deserve to go to hell." Chun Nua laughed and asked, "You seem to have a grudge against me, don't you?" The blond man immediately replied, "Me and 3 departments from Langley. Over 400 elites from the intelligence agency have been serving you for the past 8 years. "You are a Lucifer," he angrily retorted. "What the hell is a Lucifer? What kind of damn nickname is that? According to the traditions in my hometown." Then, a glint of excitement flashed in his eyes. "I prefer people to call me Yama." The blond man muttered, "Yama, fine." The surrounding squad began to close in on Yama. "Now you can't escape even if you grow wings." Chin-Nua sat down on a nearby rock, then skillfully twirled the cigarette in his hand and said, "How could someone like me really let myself be caught by you?" The people in the White House understood. Don't you get it yet? The tumor in my brain has metastasized, pressing on the nerves in my right brain. Moreover, I've also been taking certain drugs that can help me precisely control the time of my death. He took out a lighter to light his cigarette. "My life now only has 5 for..." Hearing Chun-Nua's countdown, the blond man panicked and shouted, "Spread out. Be careful. He's going to make a desperate move. After all, this guy is a user with control-type abilities." When he reached 0, he snapped the lighter shut and took a drag from his cigarette. "Hell, here I come." The scene shifts to London. An important figure was walking out while on the phone, surrounded by bodyguards. "Tell those vampires at the investment fund, damn it, I don't care if it's risky or not. A projected profit of 10 billion is worth it, even if I have to go to hell." Just as he finished speaking, a bang rang out and a bullet pierced through his head. On the other side, through the scope of a sniper rifle, the man could be seen slowly falling. A girl with a curvaceous figure reported, "Target eliminated." Firefly reporting. Her code name was Firefly, a professional assassin. A minute later, in a nearby alley, Firefly strode on her long legs, wearing a sexy short dress. She was talking to someone on the phone. The toy you made this time isn't bad, but the wind speed judgment was a bit off. She walked towards a red luxury car nearby, opened the car door, and continued, "Remember to improve it next time." She sat in the driver's seat, her hands on the steering wheel, and said in a reproachful tone to the girl on the other end of the line, "But don't call me for missions like this anymore. Some ugly bald guy in the financial world made me give up my vacation to work overtime. So boring." An announcement came from the other end. "No more missions. The latest order, everyone is to switch to silent mode." Firefly was stunned for 5 seconds, then asked, "For how long?" The other end replied, "Forever." Hearing this, she immediately shouted, "Who gave the order? I want to contact Boss S." Fox on the other end replied, "This was Boss S's order from an hour ago. This is a recording from him." Firefly roared, "You're lying. You damn Fox. You must be lying. If you lied to me like this again, I'll kill you." Fox replied softly, "We followed him for so many years. You understand him, and I understand him even better than you do." Firefly lowered her head, her body trembling slightly, her voice choked with emotion. "Has he really left us?" She was in extreme pain, tears streaming down her face, forcing herself to listen as the other end continued. His last words were, "He hoped we could go to heaven later. As for hell, it's enough for him to go alone." "Well, carry out the order, Firefly. This is our last call. So then, see you in the next life." The call ended, leaving only the quiet, desperate beeping and tears of sorrow. Firefly sat there, staring at her phone, feeling numb from the news. The car door opened, and she got out. She held a submachine gun in her hand, standing in the middle of a busy intersection. Firefly pointed the gun to the sky and fired repeatedly. The surrounding people scattered in panic at the sound of gunfire. She stood there coldly, a light breeze blowing her hair across her face, tears still rolling down. At this moment, she was the only one left in the middle of the intersection. Police sirens wailed as police cars quickly approached. Firefly sneered, "Hell, I want to go see it for myself too." Then, she drew a sharp dagger. Her eyes glinting with a deadly light mixed with tears, she stabbed the dagger into her own heart. Fresh blood spurted out as she slowly collapsed in front of her car. The phone screen inside her car was still lit. In the group chat, Yama and the Little Devils, Firefly's profile picture had turned gray. The scene shifts to South America. A plane was flying over a vast jungle. The girl codenamed Hummingbird sat there, holding a glass of wine, also receiving a call. She listened intently, only replying briefly, "Okay. Got it." Her foot was pressing on the head of a gagged and bound man. Just like Firefly, Hummingbird sneered, "Hell, I've always wanted to go see it for myself." The plane crashed straight into a mountain range, a massive explosion echoing through the sky. Another girl sat in front of a computer screen, her hands clenched so tightly her nails dug in her flesh, drawing blood. The screen continuously displayed notifications. Hummingbird offline, Jinju offline, Yinwei offline. She gently reached into a drawer to get something. With a pistol in her hand, she began to load it. She smiled, tears rolling down her face, pointed the gun at her temple and said softly, "Fox, offline." Then, she slowly closed her eyes. The scene shifts to a classroom, the view before him a little blurry. The teacher's voice rang out, "Chen Nua, come up to the board." Hearing this, he was startled. It was now December 23rd, 2000, 11:45 a.m., class 11A6. His classmates turned their heads, staring at him with wide eyes. The jumbled numbers and letters on the blackboard. It had been too long since he'd seen them. Of course, Chen Nua didn't understand. He covered his face and muttered, "This really is hell." Then, he gave a mysterious smile. This script, it's the classic trope of a middle-aged man returning to his youth. The scene shifts outside the classroom, a view of the school gate. On the sports field, a group of students were playing basketball. An extremely beautiful slam dunk scored a point. The female students on the sidelines cheered and exclaimed endlessly, "Go for it." Chen Nua stood there, recalling being punished by the teacher to stand in the hallway for not being able to answer the question. Looking out at the basketball court from there, he sighed. The mortal world isn't worth it. He placed his hand on an advanced math book, then glanced into the classroom. I've transmigrated again. Strange people, a strange environment. Seeing a female student's pencil case with a picture of Eno, Chen Nua stood there, looked up at the sky, and shielded his eyes from the sun, lamenting, "Is this ultimately a punishment or a reward for me?" Suddenly, a loud shout caught his attention. Someone, the school beauty, is jumping off the building. A female student was falling from an upper floor. On instinct, Chen Nua immediately moved his body, then tried to reach out and catch her. His hand was just about to touch the girl. A cloud of dust rose, followed by the image of her landing on top of him. This girl was Sun Kiki, a girl with an appearance as lovely as her name. She stared at him with wide eyes. Some people around also witnessed this scene. A while later, the two stood in the dean's office, the atmosphere unusually silent. Chen Nua secretly glanced at Sun Kiki. She was still standing there with an innocent expression. He thought to himself, good thing she fell from the second floor. If it were any higher, forget a C cup, even a D cup would have been shattered. Impossible to save. The office door opened, and a man walked in, coughing twice, startling them both. It was the Dean of Discipline, Sun Shengli. He walked in and asked, "Have you been checked at the nurse's office? No serious problems, right?" Chen Nua smiled and said, "We've been checked. We're fine. I just happened to be standing there, and this student fell from upstairs and landed on me. So I guess you could say I saved her, right?" He immediately turned to Sun Kiki and asked, "You jumped? Why did you jump?" She stammered, I was leaning on the second floor railing to look at the scenery, and I accidentally fell." She was about to cry, changing her form of address. "Dad, I didn't jump." Chen Nua looked over, thinking to himself, their appearances are so different. She must be adopted, right? He turned to Chen Nua and said, "Student Chen Nua, regardless, thank you very much. I've already asked for leave from your homeroom teacher for you. Do you need to go to the hospital? Do I need to contact your family?" He smiled and waved his hand, walking out. "Sir, I'm fine. It was probably just a coincidence that I wasn't injured. A little rest will be enough." Dean Sun was still very enthusiastic. "All right, if you feel unwell anywhere, just let me know." He placed his hand on the doorknob, but suddenly stopped. Chen Nua was thinking about something. Then he turned around and asked Dean Sun, "Actually, there's one small thing. I wonder if it's convenient for you. Just say it." Chen Nua frankly held out his hand. "Sir, could you lend me 50 yuan? I'm a bit dizzy right now. I can't ride my bike home." Holding a piece of paper with information, Chen Nua was now standing in front of an old apartment complex. He quietly walked up the stairs, then into the hallway, looking at the walls. It really has the smell of age. The old door slowly opened. He stepped into a very simply furnished room. He immediately rolled up his sleeves and started cleaning, quickly organizing everything one by one. Afterwards, he sat at the desk, looking at his personal information. Name, Chen Nua, age, 18. An extremely ordinary student, with no presence at all. His parents divorced when he was young. His father went abroad and was never heard from again. 6 years ago, his mother remarried, left a few thousand yuan, and entrusted Chen Nua to his grandmother's care. 3 years ago, to pay off her current husband's debts, his mother embezzled a large sum of public funds. Both of them are still in prison. His grandmother passed away last year, leaving him all alone. Other than people from the neighborhood committee who visit periodically, he has almost no contact with anyone. Even at school, he is an introverted and withdrawn person with no friends. Having grasped this basic information, he smiled smugly. This is good too, simple social relationships. This kind of lone wolf setup really saves a lot of trouble. Chen Nua looked up at the wall calendar. muttering to himself, "It's the 25th. This is a bit troublesome." At this moment, Chen Nua was sitting in front of a computer, searching for some information. Only 18, but already used to holding a cigarette from his past life. He thought to himself, only 15 days left. He remembered that around midnight, 15 days from now, that girl would encounter the most terrible and tragic event of her life. Sitting in the internet cafe, Chen Nua thought to himself, "I have to save her. But I have no money for a ticket, no passport, no visa to go to South Korea. The normal way definitely won't work." That night, in Chen Nua's old room, the light was still on. He sat in contemplation at his desk, a glass of water in front of him. A light flashed in his eyes, and a faint aura emanated from his body, as if he was trying to do something. The glass of water didn't move at all. Chen Nua leaned back his chair in despair. Tonight, the moon was bright. Seen from outside, Sun Kiki was listening to music. She innocently enjoyed songs about love and healing. Sun Kiki recalled the scene from that day. While walking in the hallway, she recognized a familiar person. It was none other than him, Chen Nua. Sun Kiki's cheeks were slightly flushed at that moment, her hands on the railing, trying to lean out to get a better look at him. But unfortunately, her hand slipped and the other students misunderstood, shouting, "The school beauty is jumping off the building." Just remembering it made Sun Kiki blush with embarrassment, her cheeks burning. Why did it have to be him? So embarrassing. Her innocent eyes widened, lost in thought. She looked down at the love letter in front of her, which was written to her by Chen Nua. At the CG film set, the scene shifts to a public phone booth. Chen Nua's soul had transmigrated into an ordinary high school student with the same name, returning to the past. So, what is the me of this year actually doing? He dialed the number, but only heard a beeping tone. "The number you have dialed does not exist." Chen Nua went to knock on a certain door. He stood outside the door thinking, "This is the place I remember living here as a child." The door opened, and a chubby young man came out and asked, "Bro, who are you looking for?" Chen Nua was stunned. Almost everything from his past no longer existed. He walked down the street, full of doubt. "My home phone number doesn't exist. The person at home isn't someone I know." He went to the roadside grocery store. "Ma'am, a pack of cigarettes." But the lady at the downstairs grocery store was still the same person. Then he glanced to the side. "Even the fat kid who used to bully me is still here." In this timeline, where on earth did I go? It can't be that everything is the same, only I have disappeared. Could it be? Chen Nua pointed at the sky and cursed. "Author, get out here. Did you just use the no explanation trick because you couldn't handle two of me existing in the same timeline?" A pin nib shot down from the void, landing right where Chen Nua was standing. Luckily, he dodged in time. The pin nib grew arms and legs, then pulled itself up by its own head. Explaining now would be a spoiler. I've already thought out the plot. I guarantee the resolution will be convincing. I invite everyone to please read on patiently. The next day at school, the hallway was buzzing with gossip. "Have you heard? Chen Nua from class 11A6 wrote a love letter to the school beauty." At the same time, a familiar female figure approached. She walked past the crowd, gossiping behind her. "Look at Sun Kiki. Chen Nua is really brave. Isn't he afraid the dean will break his legs?" Sun Kiki blushed with embarrassment, but said nothing. She continued walking, stopping at the classroom door. Sun Kiki stood there for a moment, looking inside. Chen Nua was resting his chin on his hand, scribbling something in his notebook. Suddenly, he heard a girl's voice and looked up. In front of him was Sun Kiki. She asked softly, "Are you free right now?" Chen Nua replied blankly, "What's up?" Sun Kiki appeared nervous and anxious. Her hands clasped in front of her chest. She said, "The letter you wrote me a few days ago, I've read it. I'm sorry, I can't accept it." He thought to himself, this guy was pretty bold when he was alive, daring to pursue the dean's daughter. Seeing no reaction from him, she continued, "I'm talking to you. I said I can't accept it. Don't do things like this anymore." Only then did Chen Nua reply, "Oh, got it." Sun Kiki hadn't finished, stammering as she added, "We are all students. A student's main duty should be to study." Chen Nua agreed, "You're right." Then he asked her, "What was your rank in the whole grade for the midterm exams?" Sun Kiki's eyes widened, and she answered guiltily, 196th. He stood up, sarcastically, "You really do need to study hard." Then he thought to himself, "If I'm not mistaken, there are less than 300 students in the entire grade." He coldly walked past Sun Kiki, then patted her on the shoulder advising, I hope you study hard and make progress every day. Sun Keek's body trembled, and she thought to herself, why does it feel like I'm the one who got rejected? My heart hurts. From outside, the teacher's voice could still be heard in the classroom. There's something I need to make clear. The teacher stood at the podium and announced, on the 10th of next month, our school will participate in a friendly match with Yinbian Sports High School. You can sign up now. The school has posted a notice. You can go and see it. The selected students will need a parent's signature and must pay a 150 yuan participation fee. Chinua suddenly realized, Yinbian, North Korea, South Korea, Seoul, this is a path. Then he boldly raised his hand and asked, Miss. Chinua asked, can anyone sign up? The teacher saw him and asked back, you want to sign up? You want to participate in the math competition? He asked doubtfully, aren't there any other competition events? Amidst the loud laughter of his classmates, the teacher replied, go look at the school and notice yourself. Chinua fell silent, and the class continued. All right, let's start the lesson. Everyone turned to page 46. Outside, the sky was blue with white clouds, and a gentle breeze was blowing. In the classroom, Chun Nuo had his head down on the desk, sleeping. A voice from below said, let's go, where all the spots will be taken. At this moment, the noise woke him up, and he yawned. Then he stood up, rubbed his neck, and sighed. So boring. Two classmates walked over and invited Chun Nuo to play games. He crossed his arms and replied, sure, I slept enough this morning. It's a good time to get some activity in. The scene shifts to an internet cafe on the street. It was quite crowded. The game screen was displayed up high, and two players were in a fierce battle. The kid with glasses thought to himself, I lost again. At the same time, Chinua stood up and said, I'm not playing anymore. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his shoulder. He immediately turned his head. Behind him was a cocky-looking blonde youth, who asked, are you Chinua? Then he ordered aggressively, come out, I have something to say to you. A moment later, in a nearby alley, the thug said to the two kids, you two did a good job, now get lost. On one side, 5 guys were staring at him. Facing them, Chinua smiled lightly and asked, what do you want from me? The guy pulled out a cigarette, and a lackey next to him immediately lit it for him. Then he began to introduce himself. My name is Little Dao. You can call me Brother Dao. He turned and asked, I heard you wrote a love letter to Sun Kiki a few days ago. After that, Little Dao looked at him with a sneer. Kid, writing a love letter to my woman? Did you ask for my permission? At this moment, in Chun Nua's imagination, thugs, school beauty, does it have to be this cliche? Then he asked the other guy, she's your woman? Little Dao took something out from his pocket and replied, not yet, but soon. He held up a knife threateningly. Now you know what to do, right? The lackeys beside him arrogantly chimed in. Kid, he's asking you. Hurry up and answer. Chun Nua smiled and said, I know. Then he clenched his fists and said quietly, good place, no people. He cracked his knuckles, making a cracking sound, and looked at them with a cold gaze. Now I can stretch my muscles. You guys seem pretty energetic too. The scene shifts to Sun Kiki carrying a lunchbox. She remembered what her mother had just said. It's past 8 o'clock. Your dad is working overtime and hasn't come home. Kiki, go bring this meal to your dad. And so, the girl went to school alone late at night. What a coincidence, and what a surprise. She saw Chin Nua sitting in the school's parking lot. Son Kiki recognized him. What's he doing here? It turned out Chin Nua was trying each lock, seeing which bike was his. These two aren't it either. Suddenly, Son Kiki stood behind him and asked, what are you doing picking someone else's bike lock? Chin Nua turned his head and saw Son Kiki standing there in her school uniform, revealing her long, slender legs. He broke into a sweat, looked up, and explained, if I said I don't remember which bike is mine, would you believe me? She replied, nonsense, then turned to leave. But Chin Nua called her back. Wait. Then he smiled at her. Can I ask you a question? Upon hearing this, Son Kiki blushed. What question? The two faced each other. Son Kiki thought in a panic. No matter what he says, I have to act cold and try to say as little as possible. Chin Nua began. Actually, you could be a little gentler with me. I understand you're the dean's daughter. You have to maintain the image of a model student, not break school rules or associate with boys. But you don't have to be so cold and hostile when you talk to me, right? She blushed and replied, what's it to you? Chin Nua continued, you don't actually have any ill intentions. You're just young and inexperienced, so you only know how to instinctively put on a cold face, pretending to be aloof to draw a line between us. Kids are all like that. Wait until you're a little older. have a higher EQ, and you'll know how to handle things more gently. Chinua smiled. Look, I saved your life yesterday. Sun Kiki turned her face away, trying to argue. Falling from the second floor isn't necessarily fatal. He mused. If not dead, you'd be injured. All right, let's say it wasn't saving your life, but at least it counts as saving you once, right? Even if it was just a coincidence. Unable to refute him anymore, she let out a soft mmm. At this point, Chinua started asking about the thug. There's a guy named Zhang Xiong. Do you know him? His nickname is Little Knife or Brother Knife, something like that. Sun Kiki replied, I know him. He's blocked me at the school gate twice. The first time, my dad chased him away, but he came back again a few days later. He smiled and said, for a long time to come, that guy won't be back. Hearing this, she was a little surprised. What? Chinua repeated. I said, for a very long time, he won't come to bother you anymore. After all, it takes 100 days to recover from injuries to muscles and bones. The scene shifts to the city hospital. Inside, someone sneezes as if they were just being talked about. Little Knife was lying there, his limbs in casts and his head wrapped in bandages, struggling to speak. Did I catch a cold as soon as I got hospitalized? Back on the other side, the two were walking on the school grounds. Chinua continued, it's fine. You don't need to know the details. I helped you solve this problem, but actually, I need your help with something. The school is organizing a trip to Yinbian for that competition. Do you know about it? Sun Kiki asked curiously, why are you asking about that competition? Chinua was still looking for his bike. She reminded him, stop picking other people's locks. Then she pointed and said, your bike is over there. The black one with the broken basket and the bell hanging off to one side. Chinua turned and asked, how do you know? We're not even in the same class. Sun Kiki said shyly, I just know. He teased her with a smile. You just know? She turned her face away and changed the subject. Why are you asking about the competition? Chinua was direct. I want to go, but I saw the notice. I don't qualify. She asked curiously, you want to go to Yinbian? He replied, yeah, to see the snow. Your dad is the dean of students. You must know if there's another way to join. Sun Kiki thought to herself, see the snow? Just when I thought this guy was acting quite mature, he's back to being flippant. At this moment, Chinua's attention was unintentionally drawn to Sun Kiki's small, pretty lips. After all, she was the school beauty. His face flushed and his heart pounded. This girl, doesn't she know how devastating that action is? Don't just make foul moves like that. Suddenly, Chinua's stomach rumbled. Sun Kiki asked with concern, you haven't had dinner? He replied, yeah, because I'm too poor. Why is this guy so flippant? She added, I know your family situation is difficult, but it's not so bad that you can't afford to eat, right? If you really don't have money, I'll talk to my dad and help you apply for poverty assistance. Seeing Chinua turn to look at her, Sun Kiki quickly explained, I don't mean to look down on you. Chinua asked, puzzled. You seem to know a lot about my family. Did you go out of your way to ask around? Sun Kiki blushed and denied it. Nonsense. I heard it from others. He glanced at the lunchbox in her hand, then pointed and asked, is that food in there? She quickly hugged the lunchbox and replied, this is my dad's dinner. Chinua suddenly broke into a relaxed smile, one that came from the bottom of his heart, completely genuine. A while later, under the bright moonlight, he found his bicycle, a chicken drumstick in his hand, taking a delicious bite. He ate while riding, praising how good it tasted. While Chinua was enjoying his food, on the other side, Dean's son asked his daughter, Kiki, why is there a drumstick missing today? How is one enough to eat? Back at the old apartment complex, the light in Chinua's room was still on. Inside, he was doing one-handed push-ups. He thought to himself, this is currently the most suitable method for physical training. 1,800 kilometers, the Yalu River, the 38th parallel. I must quickly improve this body strength. He continued to train, and the water in the cup on the table suddenly rippled. The scene shifts to 2 days later at school. Chinua stood in front of the academic affairs office, musing. Teacher Liu wasn't a tenured teacher before. The guy isn't a teacher, but the head of the planning department of an education company sent to the school to manage academic affairs. He pushed the door open and walked in. The school was about to undergo staffing reform. The future of number 8 high school, which had the worst college admission rate in the district, was to be acquired by the education company and turned into a private school. Therefore, to be precise, Teacher Liu should be called Staff Liu. To deal with this type of hired employee, seeing him, Teacher Lu asked, "Student, what can I do for you?" Chen Nua asked, "Teacher Lu, I didn't sign up for the friendly match in Yanbian, but I heard that there are student representatives who get to go and observe the match." Teacher Lu replied, "The student representatives for observing the match are of course elected by each grade, with assigned approval of their homeroom teachers and grade leaders." He then placed an envelope on the desk. Seeing this, Teacher Lu asked suspiciously, "What's this?" Opening the envelope, the teacher's eyes lit up. Inside was a bank card. Teacher Lu's attitude changed instantly. He smiled and said, "Look at my memory. I almost forgot we still have 3 volunteer spots. You know what a volunteer is, right? You travel with a group, eat, and live together, but you have to do some service work." Chen Nuo replied happily, "No problem, as long as I can go." The teacher instructed, "Prepare your personal file, student ID, and a copy of your ID card." He had already prepared them and immediately took them out. "Teacher, it's all here." After taking them, the guy said to Chen Nuo, "All right, you can go now." The list of students in the delegation for the friendly match will be posted on the notice board this afternoon. The teacher's eyes watched him intently, following his departing back, thinking to himself, "This kid is not simple." Finally, school was out, and students swarmed out like a broken beehive. Kiki walked down the road thinking about her test score and couldn't help but sigh. When she got her test back, she had only scored 45 points. She immediately clenched her fists, looked up at the sky, and told herself, "Son Kiki, don't do so poorly on the next test. I have to stay above 60 no matter what." Kiki sighed. Her usual score was only around 60 anyway. How did it get this bad? She walked past the notice board, where students were buzzing with discussion. "The list for the friendly match delegation is out. My name is on it. I'm going to Yanbian." Kiki remembered Chen Nuo saying a few days ago that he wanted to go there to see the snow. She curiously went closer to look at the list, and sure enough, Chen Nuo's name was there. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she said softly, "This way, he really gets to see the snow." In the hallway, a flurry of hurried footsteps attracted the student's attention. She immediately pushed open the door to Dean Sun's office, calling out, "Dad." Then she walked in and said, "Dad, I want to join the delegation for the competition in Yanbian." He asked doubtfully, "Weren't you uninterested before? Why do you want to go now?" Kiki stammered, It's to see the snow." Dean Sun said, "The list has already been finalized." Kiki immediately acted spoiled. "I don't care. I can also join the choir to go along." He asked doubtfully again, "Didn't you say before that you didn't like singing, which is why you quit the choir?" Kiki pouted and said, "Well, I like it now." The scene shifts to March 1st, Jinling train station. Kiki stood there, a suitcase beside her. She looked left and right, as if searching for a companion. Someone in the group shouted, "Volunteers, help move the luggage." Chen Nuo was also walking in this direction. Seeing him, Kiki immediately waved hello. Chen Nuo walked over, about to help her with her suitcase. But suddenly, someone was a step faster. It turned out Dean Sun had also come to see his daughter off. A moment later, Chen Nuo asked, "Why are you here too? I didn't see your name on the notice. What are you doing here?" Kiki replied, "I'll come if I want to. Is it any of your business?" "It's to see the snow." "So what?" Dean's son watched from the side, worrying. "Why is this brat always hovering around my tender little cabbage? Why did I turn down the task of leading the group this time?" The train slowly started moving, carrying the students to Yanbian. The journey was quite long, but luckily the weather was beautiful today. In a 4-person air-conditioned sleeper cabin, Chen Nuo was leisurely lying down and reading a book. From the next bunk, a voice said, "Student Chun, go get some water and clean up the luggage in the corridor. I have a camera in my bag. Move the things carefully, don't drop it." But he was met with silence. Teacher Lu looked over and said, "I'm talking to you." Chen Nuo glanced at him and replied, "Teacher Lu, I'm here to travel, not to be a coolie. Are you mistaken about something?" The teacher said sternly, "You're a volunteer. The meaning of a volunteer is," Chen Nuo retorted, "I've already paid you the travel fee. If you're not satisfied, either issue a receipt and give me a refund. Otherwise, just tell the lead teacher to kick me out of the group at the next stop. I'll get off at the next stop and go back to school on my own." Teacher Lu was so angry he was speechless, standing there cursing. "You rotten kid, you've got guts." He quickly took out a cigarette and offered it. "Don't be angry. Teacher Lu, harmony brings wealth." Although unhappy, the guy still took a cigarette. He put it to his lips and took a drag, immediately coughing his lungs out. Teacher Lu's face turned purple with anger, cursing inwardly. "Damn it, turning on me is one thing, but even the cigarette is fake. Are you even human?" Finally, everyone arrived at Yanbian Station. Kiki got off the train with her suitcase. She thought to herself, what's wrong with me, joining this group just because of that guy's name? Suddenly, a hand took the suitcase from her. Chinua tossed her can of water and said, drink this. She took it, looking at him with a different expression. He effortlessly lifted Kiki's suitcase. She also began to see him in a new light. Looking at Chinua, a smile appeared at the corners of her mouth, and she hurried to follow him. In the room, Teacher Lu's voice rang out. What? You want to leave the group? There are still 4 whole days left. He reacted violently. No way. If something happens, how am I supposed to explain it? Are you trying to get me killed? Chinua calmly took out his phone and pressed play on a recording. Their conversation had been recorded by him. Teacher Lu, I've already paid you the travel fee. If you're not satisfied, either issue a receipt and give me a refund. Otherwise, just tell the lead teacher to kick me out of the group at the next stop. I'll get off at the next stop and go back to school on my own. You rotten kid, you got guts. Teacher Lu flew into a rage, shouting, you rotten kid, you set me up? I'm warning you, don't play with fire. You think recording a few sentences will make me? As he spoke, he lunged forward and grabbed Chinua by the collar. I'm not kidding, believe it or not. I'll report you for leaving the group without permission right now. But Chinua remained perfectly calm. Don't act rashly, teacher. Mutual destruction won't do either of us any good. After feigning anger, Teacher Lu dropped to his knees, begging, Student Shun, it wasn't easy for me to get this job. Please don't ruin it for me, okay? How about this? I'll give you 200 yuan. You can go for a walk, and I'll treat you to whatever you want to eat. The guy said loudly, the soft approach doesn't work. The hard approach doesn't work. You just had to force me to use extreme measures, didn't you? Chinua closed his eyes, turned, and walked away without a word. A moment later, Teacher Lu was seen groveling at his feet, pleading, I was wrong, Student Shun. Can you let me off? I'm begging you. He sat down, patted the guy's shoulder, and said, Old Lu, why must it be like this? I'm not negotiating with you. I'm just informing you that I'm leaving the group. As for how to cover it up, I believe you can handle it. There are always more solutions than problems. With that, Chinua walked out coldly. I'm leaving. I'll leave the rest to you. He didn't forget to add a sarcastic remark. Good luck, wage earner. 36 stars, the border between country N and country B. Chinua stood there, looking at the other side. Crossing this area was country N. It was late at night, and the temperature was minus 13 degrees Celsius. Chinua hid behind a large rock. He silently observed the area to his front right, then quickly dashed across, slid for a distance, and crouched there. The military border searchlights swept back and forth relentlessly. Chinua saw a light about to hit him and quickly jumped to the side, then used Lingbo footwork to weave between 2 beams of light before dropping to the ground, basically safe. Suddenly, a pair of feet appeared in front of him. Chinua looked up, his face a little tense. In front of him was a soldier. He immediately asked, Who's there? Then quickly reached for the gun at his hip. Chinua quickly stood up and delivered a swift, powerful chop to the back of his neck. The soldier fell slowly without a sound. He quickly caught the soldier, covering his mouth with one hand, and gently dragged him to the side. There were 2 other soldiers on the watchtower. One of them seemed to notice something was wrong. He said, I think something flashed in the light. The other replied, probably just a crow. Besides, our hidden post down there is watching. He nodded, true. Crossing the border isn't just about getting past us. In the dense forest, Chinua was still silently crawling forward bit by bit. He thought to himself, this untrained body is still too weak. Then he continued forward. He put something in his mouth and took a small bite, then looked ahead, replenishing some calories, preparing to cross the minefield. He thought to himself, to others, this minefield is extremely dangerous, but to me, it's the easiest line of defense to break through. I've carried out missions here many times in my past life. I'm already familiar with the path. And so, he carefully crawled through the minefield step by step. Then he smiled, thinking, as expected, another 30 meters and I'll be out of the minefield. His joy was short-lived as his knee hit something. He frowned and looked back, cursing, damn it, old habits die hard. His leg was pressing on an anti-personnel mine. Chinua used his hands to clear away the snow, revealing the mine. Weighing nearly 3 kilograms, highly explosive, with a metal detonator, a blast height of 2 meters, and a kill radius of 10 meters. Chinua slowly took off his jacket. The moment his knee moved, the detonator in the mine casing would spring up like a compressed firing pin, and he would be blown to bits. He took out his tools, carefully cut his jacket, cutting a small piece of fabric from the uniform pocket to make a pressure pouch, then moved it next to the leg pressing on the mine. Chinua looked down, holding his breath. This was truly a dangerous situation. He gently slid the piece of fabric under his leg, trying not to lift his knee, as any slight movement could blow him to smithereens. His face was full of anxiety, sweat pouring down in the freezing weather. He carefully placed the fabric over the mine, then took the pin from his jacket and squeezed it gently. Next was to use the pin to secure it. He extended the fabric strip, then used the pin to stake it to the ground. After that, he put his uniform back on and said, "Next, get a pencil lead." As he spoke, Chun Nua took a pencil from his pocket and gently removed the lead from inside. After a tense moment, he closed his eyes to calm himself. Then he opened them and looked down, sweat still streaming. Chun Nua placed the pencil lead down and told himself, "Now, insert the pencil lead into the safety pin." Over here, the next performance, the grand chorus of Song of Unification, performed by the choir of Jiangning No. 8 High School. Kiki stood in the choir, cursing inwardly. "Chun Nua, you hateful jerk, you bastard." She craned her neck to look at the audience, her eyes wide with confusion as she thought, "I haven't seen him for 2 days." Back in the minefield, after inserting the lead into the mine safety pin, there was a click. Chun Nua let out a sigh of relief, thinking, it should be fine now. He straightened up on his knees and said, "The pencil lead inserted into the safety pin replaces the broken firing pin, plus the pressure pouch made for the uniform fabric, double insurance. Surely God won't mess with me." He muttered to himself, "God, you brought me back to this era. You can't let me die so young, right?" He glanced to the side, found a safe spot, and quickly jumped to the right, dropping to the ground and covering his head. The mine remained silent. A minute later, he glanced over. Seeing no movement, Chun Nua slowly stood up. He stood there and cursed. Damn it, an American-style square-meter mine. It must be from Fatty Lee in the South. He walked away, a little unhappy. Chun Nua continued forward, not forgetting to think resentfully, "I'll remember this grudge." He reached the trench dug by the army and quickly jumped down, sitting there and sighing in relief, finally safe. At the same time, 2 Special Forces soldiers jumped down, appearing in front of him. The 3 of them stared at each other. The 2 soldiers immediately charged, and Chun Nua quickly rushed in as well. He closed in on one, pushed him down, extended his leg, and then dodged to the side. Next, he reached into his jacket. Chun Nua threw a knife straight at the soldier behind him. That soldier couldn't react in time, standing there as he watched the knife fly towards the middle of his forehead. The naive soldier stared wide-eyed as the knife was about to embed itself in his head. By the time he could react, it was all over. He slowly fell. Chun Nua immediately turned to look at the other side. There was still one left. The remaining soldier held a knife in one hand and taunted with the other, beckoning, "You come here." He held a pen in his hand, frowned, and said, "Come on then. You think you're Shintum?" And so, the 2 immediately clashed. After the sound of impact, the 2 stood back to back. Blood dripped from the other soldier's mouth. He groaned inaudibly, tears streaming down his face. Chun Nua glanced at him, watched him fall, and sneered, "Don't be so arrogant in life." After that, he stripped the soldier's clothes and put them on. With his camouflage, he could blend into the South Goryeo border defense with a little care. And so he left, leaving the naked corpse lying there. The scene shifts to 3 p.m. on January 6, 2001. Chun Nua stood there, wearing a red jacket and a baseball cap. He looked much more refreshed, having taken the opportunity to get a neat haircut. He put on his backpack, walked out to the street, hailed a taxi, got in, and fastened his seatbelt, and said to the driver, "To Abgyujong." At this moment, Chun Nua finally let out a sigh of relief. He recalled a commissioned mission from his past life at Hai Young-jae's villa, which was also this mission. He had met Li Ingxian when he was 22. Back then, he had dealt with a few guards and was standing before a large door. He slowly pushed the door open and was met with the sight of a girl in a sexy nightgown, holding a gun pointed at the door. At that time, he was the 22-year-old Chun Yenluo. She was pressing down on an important figure, the gun barrel against his head, then turned her head and said, "The bodyguard is late." He immediately rushed forward, roaring, "Damn it, you lunatic!" Hearing the gunshot, the guards outside were startled into realizing their boss was in danger. By now, Chun Nua had slung Li Ingxian over his shoulder, holding a submachine gun in one hand and carrying the beautiful girl with her hands tied, who was constantly screaming, "Let me go." The guards appeared and blocked their path, shouting, "Stop." A few more appeared from behind, confirming he was surrounded. Chen Nuo raised his submachine gun, spun around in a sweeping motion, and took down 2 of them in an instant. The remaining few fired in anger, shouting, "Bastard!" With his superb skills at the time, he managed to dodge the dangerous bullets, then turned back and fired, finishing them off. The scene shifts to a wooden cabin in the forest. After escaping, he mercilessly threw Li Yingxian to the ground and said to her, "This is my house. No one can find us here." Li Yingxian at that time was a crazy girl with serious psychological problems. She sat up in a seductive pose, looked up, and asked, "Is that so? Does that mean we can do whatever we want?" He didn't answer, a hint of vigilance in his eyes. Li Yingxian gently caressed his face. Then a flash of resentment appeared in her eyes, and she slid down, changing her posture, seemingly about to attack him. She threw a punch, but he was just as quick, twisting to dodge it, then delivering a chop to the back of Li Yingxuan's neck. She was instantly knocked out. A while later, she slowly opened her eyes. Chen Nuo was still there, while Li Yingxian was wrapped in a blanket and hung up, a gag in her mouth. He took out a cigarette and lit it. He smoked and said, "Li Yingxian, quiet down a bit," despite her struggles and muffled sounds. The next morning, still at the wooden cabin, Chen Nuo untied Li Yingxian and asked, "Calm down yet?" He held a gun in his hand and continued to ask, "You really want to die?" She lay there and asked back, "Why did you save me? Because I'm beautiful?" Then she shot him a sharp, questioning look. "Want to sleep with me?" Chen Nuo used the butt of his gun to lift Li Yingxuan's chin, then smiled and commented, just like a little girl swallowed by fear and hatred, trying to act fierce, fearless, and crazy. Her eyes lit up as she looked at him and continued to ask, "Are you very powerful?" Then she moved her face closer and said, "The extremely powerful kind. I saw you kill a lot of people last night and still got me out." He smiled and replied, "You could say that. In this world, there aren't many who can be my opponent." Li Yingxian immediately knelt on the ground. Her attitude completely changed. She bowed and begged, "Help me. I have a few more people I want dead." Her hands trembled as she clenched them. "As long as I can get my revenge, I'm willing to give myself to you. Do anything for you, anything." Li Yingxian placed her hand on her chest, tears streaming down her face. Her voice filled with hatred. "I'm begging you." She remembered her family. Her parents were murdered when she was young, and now she was on a path of revenge. Just like that, for 2 years, she stayed by Chen Nuo's side, receiving his training from martial arts to shooting. Her marksmanship also improved day by day. 2 years later, she finally achieved her goal. She approached her enemy with a gun, then a gunshot rang out. The guy was shot in the middle of his forehead and fell on the bustling street. It was a rainy day, the rainwater mixing with his blood. The gunshot sent people into a panic, screaming, "Someone's been killed." After finishing the job, Li Yingxian knelt in the rain. She clenched her teeth, the long-suppressed emotions in her body about to explode. Li Yingxian burst into sobs, clutching the photo in her hand. Rain and tears mingled together. She looked at the only remaining family photo, thinking to herself, "Dad, Mom, brother, I miss you all so much." A black umbrella appeared, letting her cry her heart out. Chen Nuo chose to get wet, holding the umbrella firmly over Li Yingxian. Only later would he learn what she had gone through on that night of January 6th, 2001. She slowly opened her eyes, and he asked caringly, "You're awake?" Chen Nuo smiled and said, "This is the first time I've seen someone cry until they fainted." She lay under the warm blanket, looking at him with some surprise. He slowly stood up, and Li Yingxian immediately reached out, grabbing his shirt and saying, "Can you sit beside me and watch me sleep? I'm afraid if I wake up in the middle of the night and don't see you, I'll want to take a gun and kill myself." Chen Nuo agreed. After all, this poor girl had suffered such a great trauma since childhood, only now being able to get her revenge. Li Yingxian began to ask, "Can I tell you the story of Li Yingxian?" She began to narrate, "I remember that night was very dark, the wind was very strong, and it was very cold. Mom was scolding my brother for fighting at school. Then they burst in. They killed my dad, transferred the company's assets. Then they came to our house, and in front of my mom and me, they killed my brother, the brother who had loved me so much since we were little, who always protected me. Then they brutally humiliated my mother, stabbed her to death with a knife, and nailed her up in the courtyard. After that, The guy who stabbed my mother to death threw me onto the floor and raped me, right next to the sunflowers my mother had planted for me. Hearing her story, Chen Nuo couldn't help but clench his teeth and ask, "They didn't kill you?" Li Yingxian replied, "No, probably because I was pretty. They want to lock me up to rape me." On the way, as he was taking me back, I found a chance to jump into the river and escape. He asked again, "And then what?" She continued, "After escaping, I went to a friend of my father's from when he was alive. He took me in, and then that very night he raped me and even handed me over to that murderer." At this point, Li Yingxuan's tears fell uncontrollably. I took the chance while he was on the phone and used a chopstick to blind him. From then until I met you at 22, I lived in hell. She looked at him as if to repay him and said, "From today on, I live only for you. If you tell me to live, I will live. If you tell me to die, I will die. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do. If you tell me to kill, I will kill the whole world. My world has long been nothing but darkness. I can only catch the single ray of light from you. Truly the only ray of light." Chen Nuo replied, "No. If this world is only darkness, then shine on your own." She was stunned. He added, "No one can place their hope in others. Everyone can shine on their own, no matter how small or weak. So, learn to shine on your own and take good care of yourself." Chen Nuo placed his hand on Li Yingxuan's neck, smiled, and said, "From today on, I'll call you Firefly." Back to the present. The driver's repeated calls startled Chen Nuo awake. He turned back to announce, "Sir, we've arrived at Apgujeong." Chen Nuo got out of the car and walked forward. A door slowly opened, and a little girl with a bow in her hair, holding a lollipop and blowing a bubble with her gum. This was the 16-year-old Li Yingxian. Chen Nuo saw her standing in front of someone. Their paths crossed, and they bumped into each other, causing Li Yingxian to fall to one side. She angrily turned around, about to curse, but a hand appeared and grabbed her arm. Chen Nuo lectured, "Girls shouldn't use foul language." Li Yingxuan's eyes widened as she asked loudly, "Hey, who are you?" He slowly let go of her arm, then gently lifted his hat, smiled, and said, "Hello, Firefly." Li Yingxian was stunned. "Firefly? You? What are you talking about? Who are you anyway?" Chen Nuo reached out and took the hood of her sweatshirt and replied, "Me? I'm someone who fell from the sky." He smiled, put the hood on her head, and continued, "Just to help you drive away a nightmare." Li Yingxuan's gaze was a little dazed. Her cheeks slightly flushed. Then she gave a dangerous smile and immediately launched a knee strike. But Chen Nuo was just as quick, immediately stepping back to dodge it. Li Yingxian turned and ran, shouting as she went, "Pervert! Hooligan!" Chen Nuo calmly followed behind her. She shouted loudly, "Officer!" The young girl went up and said something to a police officer, then turned and pointed in Chen Nuo's direction. They both looked that way, and Li Yingxian was shocked. The person she had just told the police about had vanished. She thought in a daze. That person disappeared. 1800 hours, January 6, 2001, in National Intelligence Service. A row of photos and weapons were laid out on a table. A man's voice rang out. "These are two of our agents who were unexpectedly killed last night while carrying out a secret military mission at the border. All items found at the scene are here." He continued, "In addition to these, 300 meters south of the victims, within our defensive minefield, an American-style Claymore mine was found, disabled by a special method." Everyone at the meeting table was focused. The person continued, "The information and photographic documents, along with a preliminary analysis, have been sent to you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a military infiltration targeting our country." Then he said grimly, "The enemy from the north has drawn its sword against us. To protect the security of the great Nam Goryeo Republic, the Blue House has issued an order demanding that we, at all costs and in the shortest time possible, find the northern enemy who has likely infiltrated our territory." Everyone at the table shouted in unison, "Loyalty! Loyalty!" At the same time, north of the border, a secret border command post. The leader on this side announced sternly, "The enemy from the south has entered. I order all comrades, from this moment on, to upgrade patrol levels throughout the region and conduct a comprehensive sweep of the entire area and defense zone." Then he said sternly, "We must find the infiltrating enemy and absolutely not let their plot succeed." He turned to the person beside him and asked, "Who was in charge of the area where the incident occurred last night?" Before getting an answer, he ordered, "Execute him by firing squad." Meanwhile, Chen Nuo was sitting on the roof of some family's house and sneezed. Then he muttered to himself, "Is someone thinking of me?" As he spoke, He pulled out some chocolate to eat and said while chewing, "Forgot to buy water. I'm dying of thirst." Suddenly, a fragrant aroma wafted over. Chen Nuo realized it seemed to be the smell of chicken soup. He then peeked down, trying to look inside the house. A young boy was kneeling there, and a woman's voice scolded, "You child, why did you get into a fight at school again?" The boy obediently replied, "Mom, I was wrong." Then, looking over at the dining table, Li Yingxian was sitting there smugly, a playful smile on her face. From a roof, Chen Nuo looked down through the window as a car sped up and screeched to a halt in front of their house. He suddenly realized that today was the moment the tragedy would occur. Several men in black got out of the car and went inside. That's too many people, several cars. More than a dozen men carrying weapons stormed in. Chen Nuo observed, saying, "Has it started?" They were now standing in front of the house. Side story. What kind of person was Tran Diem La in his past life? The CIA and many other intelligence agencies had studied him, and the conclusion was infuriating. This guy's behavior was unpredictable, but two things were certain. First, Tran Diem La was extremely protective of his own people. Second, he and his teammates had a symbiotic relationship. This relationship transcended love, family, and friendship. "You are my only hope for survival." "Boss, pat my head. This side is okay." "Good night, Shao Gang." "Good night, Shao Gang." This unbreakable symbiotic relationship only officially ended when Tran Diem La passed away. Hell, here I come. So, in this life, how will Tran Diem La, having decided to change the tragic fate of his subordinates, embrace a romantic relationship? We invite you to read the following chapters to find out. The scene changes to the hotel where the student group is staying. Hearing the continuous knocking on the door, Teacher Lu came out, coming. As soon as he opened the door, Cuckoo appeared before him. He smiled and asked, "It's Cuckoo, isn't it? What's the matter so late at night?" She asked softly, "Where is Chen Nuo? I haven't seen him for 2 days." The teacher feigned a yawn and asked again, "Is something wrong?" "I was asleep," Cuckoo asked naively. "I'm here to see Chen Nuo. Teacher Lu, I have something to tell him." Teacher Lu was still evasive. "But it's so late, I have to sleep too." She persisted. "Teacher Lu, where on earth is Chen Nu?" He secretly pressed a button on the phone hidden behind his back. The phone rang, and Teacher Lu pretended to answer. "Hello? Is this Director's son?" Hello, sir, hello. Is something the matter?" He glanced at Cuckoo and said into the phone, "Oh, what a coincidence you should say that. Your daughter." She immediately clasped her hands together and said softly, "Don't tell my dad. I was never here." Then Cuckoo turned and ran away. Teacher Lu stood there and continued, "It's nothing. Director's son, you were saying?" Certain she was gone, he gently closed the door, then slid to the floor, his eyes welling with tears as he lamented to himself. These days, it's so hard to make a living. The scene changes to the house Chen Nuo is watching. The underlings, armed, stormed in, kicking the door open for their 3 bosses to slowly approach. The sound of chaotic footsteps echoed in the hallway. Then they kicked open the dining room door and rushed in, startling the 3 people inside. Li Yingxuan's brother jumped up and demanded, "Who are you?" An underling immediately kicked him to the ground. "Get out of the way." The 3 men walked in. From left to right, they were Sa Tiyong, Ha Yongjae, and Sa Kyung-hoon. Ha Yongjae tilted his head to look inside. Outside, Chen Nuo was also watching silently. He recognized him. It was the man Li Yingxian had dealt with in her past life. The massacre of the Li family in the previous life had to start with these 3. Ha Yongjae and Li Yingxuan's father had been partners in a freight transport business in 2000. Their freight business had grown to a considerable scale. That year, the brothers Sa Taeyong and Sa Kyung-hoon were secretly involved in all sorts of black market dealings, such as smuggling high-profit goods, illegal drugs, and human organ trafficking. They had set their sights on Mr. Li and Ha Yongjae's company. They managed to pull director Ha Yongjae to their side, but were rejected by Li Yingxuan's father. In the end, director Ha Yongjae colluded with these 2 gangster brothers, murdered chairman Li Donghyuk, who was Yingxuan's father, and dumped his body in the waters off Australia. At this moment, her brother was beaten black and blue, covered in blood. The boy collapsed at his mother's feet. Another henchman ran over and grabbed her arm. He was rough and cruel, making Yingxian scream in terror. The room was in chaos. The Li family of 3 had no chance to fight back. Chen Nuo noticed the clock on the wall. According to his memories from his past life, something was about to happen. As Yingxian trembled in fear, her eyes filled with tears, the pervert Sa Kyung-hoon looked at her and said, "Li Donghyuk's daughter, is really pretty. But Chen Nua's gaze seemed to indicate he already had a plan. Suddenly, the sound of a fire engine's siren blared from outside, stunning them all. Hearing this, Sa Kyung-hoon immediately let go of Li Yingxian and walked towards the door. Then he opened the window to look outside. At this moment, Chen Nua was hiding on the roof right above him and asked in a low voice, "What's going on?" A henchman replied, "Boss, there's a fire truck." He cursed, "Damn it, of all times." Sa Tae-yong spoke up, "We can't do it here now. Take them all away." And so, the gang escorted the Lee family of 3 into their cars. Chen Nua remained there, watching silently. He smiled faintly. Luckily, there was an empty house next door that could be used. But next time, he had to calculate the timing more precisely. According to his calculations, Li Yingxuan's father must already be dead. What he could change was only to save this widowed mother and her children. Then he moved downstairs. This place was indeed not convenient for making a move. Chen Nua's calculation was very clear. Killing this scum was a small matter, but having a dozen corpses suddenly appear in the house would inevitably cause great trouble for the mother and her children. He ran into the garage. He had to change locations. He drove a white car out from inside, then quickly gave chase. Chen Nua silently tailed the convoy of black cars ahead. They also left quite quickly. In Ha Young-jae's car, he recalled the scene from earlier, thinking to himself, "So Lee Dong-hyuk has a day like this too." Then he cursed inwardly. "You used to lecture me like a dog, used fake news to get more money, fame, and status than me, and even stole the woman I secretly loved, giving birth to those 2 bastards." The person next to him handed him a cigarette. Sa Tae-yong asked, "What's wrong? Still feeling uneasy?" Ha Young-jae took out a lighter to light it. Sa Tae-yong beside him continued, "When we get there later, that woman is yours tonight. Do whatever you want with her." After hearing this, he took a deep drag, then said viciously, "I don't just want to enjoy Lee Dong-hyuk's wife, I also want to taste his daughter. Even if that bastard goes to hell, he'll still be a loser." After speaking, he threw the half-smoked cigarette outside. An abandoned factory in the south of Seoul. Yingxuan's mother tearfully begged Ha Young-jae, "Please spare our family, for the sake of the decades of brotherhood between Lee Dong-hyuk and you." He advanced with a cold smile, a leather whip in his hand. She cried while clasping her hands, trying to plead. He didn't respond, but raised the whip and brought it down, his face showing a look of anger. A mother's instinct took over, and she used her body to shield her 2 children. The whip had just torn a gash in her white dress, and blood seeped from it. Yingxuan's mother tearfully turned back to question Ha Young-jae. "Why are you doing this? What on earth did we do wrong to you? Has your conscience completely rotted away?" Her brother glared at him, then struggled and lunged at him, cursing, "Bastard!" The boy grabbed him and pushed. Ha Young-jae immediately punched the boy, cursing, "Get lost." The henchman rushed forward, punching and kicking, despite the mother's anguished pleas from the side. Don't. Yingxian knelt there, tears streaming down her stunned face. "If this is just a nightmare, please let me wake up soon." Her eyes lit up as if remembering something. She remembered the young man she met that morning. When she asked what he had said, the answer she got was, "Me? I'm someone who fell from the sky just to help you drive away a nightmare." At this moment, her whole body seemed to freeze, staring straight ahead. A white car sped from outside, stopping right in front of everyone. The Sa brothers raised their hands to shield their faces. The henchmen also covered their heads, blinded by the glaring headlights. Yingxian squeezed her eyes shut and cried loudly. Then, the little girl slowly opened her eyes. The car door opened, and she realized it was her family's car. Chen Nua got out, stood there, and coughed twice. "I'm telling you, there's a problem with your car." Facing a crowd of people armed with all sorts of weapons, he stood there calmly showing off. The clutch is loose, there's a noticeable jerk when accelerating, and the steering wheel is a bit loose too. It needs to be readjusted. Yingxuan's eyes widened, recognizing the young man. She was stunned. This was perhaps her family's only hope right now. He gave her a friendly smile. "We meet again, little firefly." Chen Nua coldly walked into the middle of the crowd. Yingxian was still in disbelief. Her eyes lit up, realizing it was really him. Sa Kyung-hoon spoke up, asking, "Hey, who are you?" Immediately after, Sa Tae-yong ordered his henchmen to take care of that guy. One of the men in the crowd rushed towards him with a baseball bat. He swung it from behind with great force. Chen Nua remained incredibly composed. He glanced at the man, then leaned to the side to dodge. Before the man could react, he lifted his leg at just the right moment, delivering a powerful kick to his face. A fierce knee strike deformed his face, the impact even breaking his neck, killing him instantly. The man fell weakly to the ground. Witnessing that speed and power, the Sa brothers were a little worried and shocked. Sa Taeyong ordered, "What are you standing there for? Get him together. Kill him." As he finished speaking, the henchman quickly rushed forward to attack Chen Nua. He moved as lightly as the wind, and wherever he went, their henchmen fell. The leaders watched, dumbfounded. A series of blood-curdling screams echoed through the warehouse. It was unclear what was in Chen Nua's backpack, but it was now stained with blood. Sa Taeyong's eyes widened, a look of terror on his face. Chen Nua turned his head slightly, glancing at them. Most of the henchmen had been taken down. He frowned and ordered, "Kyung-hoon, kill him." Ha Young-jae on the side also hurriedly chimed in. Right, kill him. You were once the most elite soldier of our in-country's 5th Frontline Army. He's no match for you." And so, Sa Kyung-hoon pulled a dagger from his clothes. Seeing him approach, Chen Nua gently placed his backpack on the ground. After a brief exchange, he sighed with a bit of fatigue, then said, "Let me remind you, you're the second person in this world to point a knife at me. Do you know what happened to the first person who pointed a knife at me?" He replied, "Too much nonsense," and quickly rushed forward to attack. A diagonal stab, which Chen Nua dodged by tilting his head, the dagger grazing his neck. Then he followed up with a kick, which Chen Nua quickly stepped back to avoid. The kick missed, hitting the car and denting the door. After that, Sa Kyung-hoon repeatedly stabbed at Chen Nua's head, but he dodged every time. A moment later, he extended his leg to stop, then looked at him and smiled. "All right, I've seen enough." Chen Nua began to show signs of counterattacking. Seeing this, he immediately rushed forward to stab and shouted, "Die!" Chen Nua struck the hand holding the knife with his fist, a blow that sent the dagger clattering to the ground. Without giving him a chance to breathe, Chen Nua swung his other hand, striking Sa Kyung-hoon across the neck. He froze from the blow, a gurgling sound coming from his throat, unable to speak. Blood flowed out, and his whole body seemed lifeless. In Chen Nua's hand was a sharp blade. He raised it and said with a deadly gaze, "Flashy moves. Unnecessary." Seeing this, Ha Young-jae's face showed fear and anxiety, and he backed away. Chen Nua turned his head and found him turning tail to run. He picked up his backpack and said, "Trying to run?" As he spoke, he prepared to throw it, shouting, "Not a chance." As he finished, the backpack hit him in the head with a thud. Just one hit sent Ha Young-jae sprawling face first onto the ground. Several bricks fell out of the backpack. Sa Taeyong's face turned pale with fear when he saw this, and he cursed, "Damn it, there are bricks in the bag." Chen Nua glanced at him and asked, "What are you looking at?" This was obviously prepared to smash you. After speaking, he turned to face him. For a moment, both were silent. Sa Taeyong's gaze shifted to Li Yingxian standing there, and a vicious idea suddenly flashed in his mind. He grabbed her shirt and roared, "Come here." Sa Taeyong held a knife to Yingxuan's neck, taunting, "I don't care who you are, it seems you care a lot about this little girl. So let me go." The sharp blade was right at her neck, and her tears continued to fall. Chen Nua frowned and looked over, asking, "Yingxian, little girl, are you very scared?" Her whole body trembled. She was speechless, tears automatically streaming down, looking utterly pitiful. He gave her a friendly, encouraging smile. "Don't be afraid." His sincere gaze moved the little girl. At this moment, she placed her absolute trust in the young man before her. Chen Nua raised his hand and said, "I didn't originally intend to use this move. I just haven't perfected it yet. I'll use you for practice first." He held out 2 fingers, which was a bit confusing. Then he closed his eyes tightly, as if concentrating his spirit on something. His face turned pale. After that, Chen Nua sighed. His entire body was enveloped in a layer of black aura. Once done, he slowly walked towards Sa Taeyong. He trembled slightly, his face showing terror, and thought in confusion, "What's happening?" He couldn't move at all, feeling as if his whole body was being squeezed by the air. At this point, Chen Nua was standing calmly in front of him. He gently took the knife from his hand, saying, "You're the 3rd person tonight to point a knife at me." Then, he skillfully twirled the knife in his hand and pulled Yingxian into his arms. Just as she rested her head on his shoulder, the knife plunged straight into Sa Taeyong's heart. He grunted, unable to resist. His complexion turned ashen. Chen Nua gently pushed him back with his hand, and Sa Taeyong's stiff body fell to the ground. Chen Nua stood there, looking down coldly. He placed his hand on her cheek and asked with concern, "Were you scared?" The little girl seemed stunned by his cool demeanor, motionless, unable to say a word. He smiled faintly, comforting her. "Don't be scared anymore. I told you, I would drive away your nightmare." 2 hours later, at Ling Xuan's house. She was sleeping on the sofa, covered with Chun Nua's school uniform jacket. Ingxian slowly opened her eyes and sat up with a start. Then she looked around and realized she was in her own home. A male voice asked, "You're awake?" Chin Nua came out holding a small bowl and said, "You were overly frightened and fainted." Then he lifted the bowl and drank it all down. After finishing, he set the bowl down, smacked his lips, and praised, "Oh, that's really good." He walked over, held out his hand, and asked, "Can I have this jacket back now?" Seeing the girl didn't answer, he added, "I was afraid you'd be cold when you fainted, so I covered you with it. But you were holding it so tightly, and I was afraid of waking you, so I had to leave it for the time being." Chun Nuo had been doing all the talking, while Ing Xian just stared at him blankly. Chun Nuo took hold of the jacket, but Ing Xian remained seated, clutching it tightly. He sighed, looked at her, and said, "Hey, little girl, this jacket is mine." Ing Xian sat there, thought for a moment, and then gently let go. Chun Nuo put the jacket in his backpack and said, "I've heated up the chicken porridge in the pot. You can eat it if you're hungry. Your brother is slightly injured. Your mom has already applied medicine for him. Before you woke up, your mom and I talked about some things." He sat down in front of Ing Xian and continued, "As for the specifics, she will naturally tell you. My advice is, it's best for your family not to call the police. After all, I've already taken care of all the trouble." He unconsciously reached his hand towards her face, but then suddenly stopped. Her gaze towards him was still as innocent and pure as before. Suddenly, she proactively took his hand, then gently placed it on her own cheek, her round eyes wide, her cheeks slightly flushed. This small action from Ingxian stunned him for a moment. Only then did she speak, asking with concern, "Why do you talk like you're so much older? You only look a little older than me." He didn't rush to answer, but asked back, "Were you very scared tonight?" That scene, "Well, but my time is limited, and under the circumstances, I couldn't have handled it better. I didn't want you to see those things either." Ingxian looked at him obediently and replied, "You told me not to be scared, so I won't be scared anymore." She hesitated for a moment, then asked Chun Nua, "Can you tell me who you really are? Tonight, what exactly happened tonight? You said you fell from the sky." Hearing her silly question, he chuckled, then patted Ing Xuan's head and said, "Kids shouldn't ask so many questions. Your mom will tell you the specifics." Chun Nua added another instruction. "Oh, right. Your mom was a bit agitated. I used some methods. She's sleeping now and should wake up in about an hour. As for your brother, he's too impulsive, so I've tied him up." He gently pinched her small ear, then softly instructed, "From now on, remember to study hard, understand? Also, don't learn to swear and curse like adults, remember? Oh, right, don't get tattoos. Getting tattoos at a young age is incredibly ugly. Don't learn to smoke or drink. Hey, did you remember everything I said?" Ingxian nodded and repeated, "Yes. No swearing, no cursing, no tattoos, no drinking, no smoking. I'll do everything you said. I definitely will." But after hesitating for a moment, she blushed and asked directly, "Can you tell me your name?" Chun Nuo lightly tapped the little girl's forehead with his finger and said, "Why do kids ask so many questions?" Seeing him stand up, she quickly asked, Are you leaving?" He replied, "Yeah, or should I stay here for the new year?" As he spoke, Chun Nuo walked towards the door and picked up his backpack. Ing Xian still called after him, "Tell me, are you human?" "You're not. You're an angel, right?" Hearing this, Chun Nuo was taken aback and replied, "Huh? What angel? I don't believe in God. I believe in second brother Guan." Suddenly, the black suitcase on the floor moved. He immediately kicked it a few times, yelling, "What are you moving for? Move again, and I'll smash you with a brick." She asked curiously, "What's in the suitcase?" Chun Nuo replied, "Who else could it be? He Zheng Zai. That old man is still of some use to me." Then he turned to leave. "All right, I'm going. Take care." Ing Xian reached out and grabbed his sleeve. She knelt on the sofa, looking at him innocently, and asked directly, "Can I see you again?" Chun Nuo asked in return, "Do you like fireflies?" Ing Xian smiled and replied, "I do. In the summer, my brother takes me to catch fireflies." Just as she said this, Chun Nuo placed his hand on the back of her neck, and somehow, Ing Xian slowly fell against him. Chun Nuo said softly, "Don't catch them anymore." The little girl's eyes were shut tight, as if she had been knocked out or hypnotized, his figure vaguely appearing in her mind, trying to reach out to hold him back. "Don't go. Don't go." Ing Xian suddenly woke up, her face full of panic, still shouting, "Don't go." She sat up on the sofa and looked around. Only then did she sadly lower her head, confirming that he was really gone. She accidentally noticed something was wrong. Ing Xian's eyes widened. She turned and discovered the study. Ing Xian sat at her desk, murmuring, "Don't." She was writing down the list of things Chun Nua had told her not to do. After writing for a while, she forgot and said to herself, what else was there? A moment later, an idea flashed in her mind. She thought of something else, and then murmured as she wrote on the list, "Believe in second brother Guan." But who is second brother Guan? Ing Xian tried hard to remember. Right, there was that shirt. It had a school logo on it. She scribbled the few characters from the shirt onto a piece of paper from memory, then realized it seemed to be Chinese. After writing, Ing Xian knew it was Chinese and excitedly stood up, saying, "I remember there's a Chinese dictionary in my brother's room." Then, the little girl immediately ran to the bookshelf to find the dictionary. Outside the window, Ing Xian's brother was tied up and hanging there, watching his sister. She murmured, "Jiangning," the old address of Jiangning Vocational College, which is now Jinling City. Despite her brother being gagged and dangling for a long time, his sister inside was completely unaware. The scene shifts to Hansheng, Hezheng Zai's secret residence. Chen Nua carefully put on gloves, then slowly unlocked the suitcase. He opened the suitcase and looked inside. The old man, Hezheng Zai, was lying inside, his face bruised and swollen, tears and snot streaming down. He screamed, asking, "Who the hell are you?" No rush. Chen Nua gently grabbed the old man's ankle and dragged him across the floor into the next room. He pulled him into the bedroom, went to the head of the bed, and gently moved the nightstand aside, revealing a secret safe door. Chen Nua turned his head to look at Hezheng Zai and proposed, "Let's make a deal. You open it." The old man asked back, "Will you let me go?" He replied, "I can let you die with dignity." The old man was so scared he stammered, Dignity? Chen Nua smiled. "That's right. You can choose the most decent set of clothes from the closet to wear and then die. Isn't that very dignified?" Hearing this, the old man hurriedly begged, "Can you spare me? I'm begging you. Please let me go." Then Hezheng Zai kowtowed a few times, trying to plead. "I can give you money. I can give you a lot of money. All my money is yours. Just don't kill me. I don't want to die." Chen Nua resolutely pointed at the safe, demanding, "Open it." He stammered, his eyes filled with tears. "The password is..." The door opened, and inside there was indeed a ledger and a lot of gold and silver. Chen Nua picked up the ledger, then tossed it aside, saying, "I'm not interested in this. I'm not interested in your books." Then he reached in to grab the money. Chen Nua smiled meaningfully, stuffing the money and gold into his backpack, saying, "I'm just taking a little money to get by." After taking the money, he stood up to leave, but a photo on the wall caught his eye. Chen Nua grabbed his hair, then looked at the photo and asked, "Is that ship yours?" He asked curiously, "How fast can it go?" The old man replied, 30 knots at its fastest. Chen Nua proposed, "Then one more condition for our deal. I'll take this ship." He immediately bargained. "Then you have to spare me. Trade it for my life. You can't kill me." He smiled and agreed. "All right, deal. I'll spare you." Where's the ship? The scene shifts to a large yacht. Music is playing on it. Chen Nua is excitedly at the helm. Rewind a few hours. Hezheng Zai is tied up and lying there, while a bald man is screaming his lungs out. "You've definitely got the wrong person. I don't know you. Why are you killing me?" Chen Nua replied, "No mistake, Han Genuan. Your best friend's daughter, Li Ing Xian, in her past life, came to you for help when she had nowhere else to go, only to be raped and sold out by you." He continued to scream, "What past life? I don't know what you're talking about." No need for much explanation. Chen Nua pushed the oil drum tied to him into the sea, saying, "Go down there. The king of hell will explain it to you." And so, an oil drum dragged 2 people down into the sea. The oil drum sank, pulling both of them with it. Chen Nua stood coldly on the boat. He chuckled softly. "I almost forgot. I am the king of hell." Back to the present. Suddenly, Chen Nua's nose started bleeding. He wiped the blood away, thinking to himself, as expected, you can't just practice ultimate techniques recklessly. To save Li Ying Xian, I forced myself to use an ultimate technique, and now the side effects are here. Then he ignored it all, standing on the boat and dancing. He shouted along with the lively music and song. Then raised his middle finger to the sky, as if cursing this damn life. The scene shifts to the Yinbian auditorium. A representative is giving a speech. This is the final group exchange activity. May the lead teacher of our Jiangning number 8 middle school please pay attention. All students must be present. All the students were present, with only one empty seat belonging to you-know-who. Kuka looked to the side, thinking to herself, Chen Nua didn't come again. I haven't seen him for 4 days. If any student is absent, the lead teacher and the absent student will be severely disciplined by the school. Over here, Teacher Lu held his head, blaming himself. How could I have been so blinded by money? He stood up, stubbed out the cigarette he had just smoked, and thought gloomily, this time, that brat Shin-na is going to be the death of me. Just as he was about to look up, a person appeared in front of Teacher Lu. It was the head of the exchange group, Principal Fong. He looked down and asked, Luong, didn't you say that student named Chin Nuo would be here early? It's been half an hour. Where is he? He stammered, saying he might have gone to a nearby internet cafe to play games. Principal Fong also knew that boys this age are all playful. The principal looked at his watch and continued, that had better be the case. The activity starts in just over half an hour. I've already sent a few teachers and students to help you look for him. It's best if nothing has happened. As he spoke, he walked up to Teacher Lu and pointed at his face, scolding, otherwise, forget about you, Luong. Even I won't be able to bear the consequences. We'll see how I deal with you then. Teacher Lu still tried to force a smile and explain, Principal Fong, don't worry. The student definitely isn't lost. Then he waved goodbye. Take care, Principal Fong. Luong stood there, his expression ugly, cursing, damn it, he grumbled. Isn't he just an assistant principal who got sent down by the Education Bureau to gain experience through connections? People only call him Principal Fong to flatter him, and he thinks he's a big shot. What's so great about pointing at my nose? As he spoke, he angrily clenched his fist, then looked up and thought, but Chin-na, damn it, where the hell did you die? Half an hour later, in front of the auditorium where the students were gathered, Principal Fong stood there asking, still haven't found him? Cuckoo suggested worriedly, let's call the police. Sir, a student is missing. If we can't find him, we should call the police immediately. He stood there pondering, no. If we call the police, whether he's really missing in the end or not, as the head of the group, I'll have a hard time escaping responsibility. Poor management, a missing student, if that charge falls on me. My future prospects will definitely be affected. Cuckoo continued to say, Sir, Chun Nuo is missing. What are you teachers still hesitating for? Hurry up and call the police. What if something happened to him? Principal Fong, worried about himself, requested. Then keep looking, keep looking. Maybe there's a place we missed. We'll find him if we look again. The others seemed lazy and unwilling to search anymore. Only Cuckoo was burning with anxiety. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, as if he remembered something. That's right. Then he turned to Luong and asked, you and he are staying together. Did he mention having any relatives or friends here? Maybe he went to an acquaintance's house. Teacher Lu stammered, saying, I'm not too sure. What about his luggage? It's all in the room. The principal turned around. Let's go check. Maybe there's a usable address or contact information in his luggage. And so, everyone returned to the hotel area. Everyone went upstairs together to the room where the teacher and student were staying. Teacher Lu awkwardly reached for the key, looking hesitant, his hand trembling as he inserted the key into the lock. Principal Fong urged from behind, hurry up, making Teacher Lu even more nervous. He fearfully closed his eyes and opened the door. Light streamed through the crack in the door. Teacher Lu's eyes lit up as the light shone on his face. A person walked out from inside. Lu Eng's jaw dropped in astonishment. Then he swallowed, and his whole body relaxed in relief, thinking to himself, thank heavens he's back. Not knowing what she saw, Cuckoo covered her eyes, and Principal Fong was also stunned. Chin Nuo had just finished showering, with only a bath towel wrapped around him. Seeing the people outside, he let out an involuntary huh. A moment later, Chin Nuo was fully dressed, standing there listening to Principal Fong's lecture. He scratched his head and explained, I went out to play games for a bit. The moment he finished speaking, he was immediately berated. Foolish. No discipline. No organization. Absolutely foolish. Do you have any discipline at all? Teacher Lu sat listening on the side. How do I normally teach you? How do you act as a student? Go write a self-criticism report for me and criticize yourself in front of all the students. Chin Nuo glanced at Teacher Lu as if signaling something. Luong, with a guilty conscience, immediately stood up to smooth things over for him. Principal Fong, you see, you've already scolded him, and this activity is about to start. Hearing this, Principal Fong finally said, "Consider yourself lucky today. I have other things to do." Lu Ong stood at the door, shouting after his retreating figure, "Don't worry, Principal Fong, I will definitely educate him well. I'm going to the restroom for a moment, then I'll bring him over." After speaking, Teacher Lu gently closed the door. Chen Nuo sat there smiling. "Old Lu, you're really righteous and quick-witted." He turned around and scolded. "This time I was almost done for because of you. A school warning is unavoidable now." Chen Nuo took out his phone and deleted something. He held up his phone and said to Teacher Lu, "To show my sincerity, I've deleted that recording." Then he smiled friendly. "Let's live in peace from now on. You can rest assured about my character. I'm a man of my word." He still looked suspicious. "I'd be a fool to believe you." Yanbian Convenience Inn. Chen Nuo stood in front of room 502 and knocked. A female student poked her head out and asked, Chen Nuo, what's up?" He asked back, "Is Sun Kuku here?" This girl replied with some excitement, "She's taking a shower. Are you looking for her?" Chen Nuo curiously peeked into the room. In the bathroom, Kuku was taking a hot shower. The steam was misty, making her look very alluring. Standing at the door, he asked the girl to pass on a message. "You tell her I'll wait for her on the rooftop." Chen Nuo held a can of soda and waited for Kuku on the rooftop. A moment later, there was the sound of a door opening, and she walked over. Wearing a short skirt, she looked a bit cute. Kuku walked over gently. At this moment, Chen Nuo had noticed her and turned around slightly. He turned around, smiled, and said, "Look, it's snowing." Kuku's cheeks were flushed, her hands on her chest, looking at him. Chen Nuo took the initiative and called out, "Come here." Kuku then walked over. He handed the can of soda to her and said, "This is for you." Kuku hesitated. "Drinking this so late, I'll get fat." Chen Nuo looked at her most well-endowed area and said, "A little fat is good, a little fat is good," which made Kuku both angry and shy. Pouting, "You're so annoying." After drinking the soda, she felt it was a bit sweet. Chen Nuo started the conversation. "You know what? I'm especially happy today." Kuku asked curiously, "Huh? Why?" He reached out his hand to catch the snowflakes and replied, "Maybe it's because I did something I've always wanted to do." She immediately asked, "Is it watching the snow together?" Chen Nuo looked up at the sky and continued, "I used to hear that life is always about making up for regrets. This is what makes a life beautiful and complex. What is there to regret? Life in this world is like a fleeting glimpse of a white colt flashing past a crack, over in an instant. Life is like a white steed, and I want to be my own reins man." Seeing Chen Nuo say these words, Kuku had a look of adoration on her face. So cool. Chen Nuo turned his head to look at her, and then asked softly, "Kuku, can you promise me one thing?" She tightened her grip on the soda can, asking with anticipation, "Okay, go ahead." Kuku blushed, her mind starting to wander. He's not going to make an outrageous request, is he? At most, just holding hands. Kissing is absolutely not okay. If he insists on a kiss on the cheek might be reluctantly acceptable, but a kiss on the lips is absolutely not. Chen Nuo scratched his head and said with a wry smile, "Do you know how to write a self-criticism report? Help me write one." After hearing this, Kuku was stunned for 5 seconds. This guy is a real blockhead. Sometime later, they returned to school. It was snowing heavily today. In the head teacher's office, the radio broadcast was on. Due to the influence of cold air from the north, the Jinling area will continue to have heavy snow today. Director Sun sat there, lost in thought. He had just returned from Yanbian yesterday, and he didn't know if those little rascals were behaving. He was also a bit curious about what was going on between Kuku and that kid named Chen Nuo. Back to one day before, at the Jinling train station. The students were returning to school one by one, including Kuku. As soon as she got off the train, Chen Nuo was already there, reaching out to support her, afraid she might fall. Kuku looked up at him, her cheeks slightly flushed. Director Sun was also there at the time, and seeing this scene, he was immediately displeased, faking a few coughs. Kuku looked at him awkwardly and asked, "Dad, didn't you say you weren't coming?" Recalling that scene, Director Sun felt a headache coming on. He stood up, picked up his water cup, and thought to himself, could it be that Kuku is in a puppy love? The school bell rang, Class A6. Director Sun stood outside the window with his water cup, looking inside. Then he slowly walked into the classroom and stood on the podium. Below, the students whispered nervously, "Oh my God, it's Old Sunday. Why is Old Sun here? Did someone mess up? Is there a special announcement? I heard there's bad news. I hope it's not true. Where's Teacher Wu? Why isn't he here? We're doomed. No more fooling around this time. Chinua's eyes also seemed to notice something unusual. He thought to himself, the atmosphere suddenly became so quiet, it feels a bit off. At this moment, Chinua finally looked up and recognized the person standing on the podium. His face was full of worry, and he cursed inwardly. Damn it. Teacher Sun began to speak. Students, I have a few announcements. Yesterday, Teacher Wu went out and encountered heavy snow and unfortunately fell and got injured. Therefore, for the time being, I will be his substitute teacher. He took out a stack of papers and continued. To better understand your academic situation, I have prepared a pop quiz. Everyone try your best. Whoever doesn't pass will stay after class to clear the snow on the sports field. Director Sun's gaze was fixed directly on Chunua. He was startled and thought to himself, is it an illusion? It feels like I'm being targeted. After class, Chinua's eyes were glazed over. He was sweeping the sports field. A man's intuition is indeed never wrong. It seems I haven't offended old Sunday. Over here, Cuckoo also ran over with a broom, waving, and called out with a smile, Chinua. Chinua turned his head and asked, what are you doing here? Cuckoo took out a very cute pink thermos and asked, are you thirsty? I came to help you. Old Sun saw this from inside. So angry his face turned purple, cursing, this stinky brat. Oh, my daughter. The next day, Old Sun continued to target him. Chinua, you stay and sweep the snow. You copied from your classmate. He argued, my score was high enough today. The third day, it was the same. Chinua, you stay and sweep the snow. You didn't turn in your homework. But he protested. There was no pop quiz today. The fourth day, Old Sun asked, Chinua, you stay and sweep the snow. I ask you, on what date was the 5th National Congress held? How many delegates attended? He answered fluently. There was no pop quiz today, and the homework was turned in. It was from September 12th to 18th, 1997, with 2074 people. When asked for the names of the delegates, he was speechless. The 5th day, during another class, Director Sun pushed open the door and called, Chinua. He understood what was happening as soon as he heard it and let out a sigh. Then he pulled out his chair and stood up with his broom. Old Sun scolded, what are you holding a broom for? He replied, to sweep the snow. I'm always ready for your command. He lowered his voice and said, put the broom back. No sweeping today. You come with me to the office. Afterwards, the two of them went to the head teacher's office. A police officer was already waiting there. Seeing him arrive, the person immediately asked, are you Chinua? Old Sun introduced, Chinua, this is Warden Zhang from Longton Prison. He asked with wide eyes, what's the matter? The warden said, it's like this. Your mother, Oshio Hua, is undergoing reform in our prison. She performed well last year, so her application for a family visit was approved. He asked, for some reason, we haven't seen you come to visit. Chinua thought to himself, this happened before my rebirth. I didn't know about it. The warden asked, so Oshio Hua asked me to come and talk to you. She misses you very much, son. Are you really not planning to visit her? Chinua was lost in thought. Thinking about Chunua's family relationships, it's understandable why he wouldn't go for a prison visit. Director Sun stood there listening to all this, also somewhat contemplative. He looked at this child. He must be feeling very uncomfortable inside. Then he stepped forward to smooth things over. Warden Zhang, he's my student. Let me talk to him. How about you head back first? The warden added, usually, family visits are helpful for the inmates' psychological reform. I hope you can visit her. Old Sun immediately protected him. Don't say any more. He's just a child after all. Saying too much will put pressure on him. I'm his teacher. Let me talk to him slowly. Warden Zhang, you go back first. I'll contact you by phone if there's anything. Chinua witnessed this scene, vaguely feeling the warmth of family affection, and silently called out in his heart, future father-in-law, Old Sun. Warden Zhang agreed. All right then, I'll leave it to you, teacher. After that, Director Sun saw the warden off. He gently closed the door. Chinua was still sitting there. He pondered, thinking with sympathy, what a pitiful child. Then he sat down in his chair, turned around, and said, your family situation, already knew some of it from the school records, and I just learned quite a bit more from Warden Zhang. I didn't expect it to be so difficult. Old Sun smiled and said, you're a smart kid. Just think carefully about what to do. Don't feel burdened. If you have any difficulties, just tell me. Then he looked at his watch. It's getting late. There's probably no one to cook at your house. Come on, let's go to my place for dinner. The scene shifts to Old Sun's apartment complex. Over here, Cuckoo was sitting and gnawing on corn. She was in her loungewear, sitting on the sofa and eating with great relish. Perhaps it was thanks to eating corn that her figure was so curvy. Hearing the door open, she was startled, looked up, and then happily called out, "Dad, you're back." As soon as the words left her mouth, Chinua poked his head out from behind Director's son, waving. He made a V sign with his hand to greet Cuckoo. Seeing him, Cuckoo panicked and threw away the half-eaten corn cob, her face full of horror, then zipped into her room, slamming the door shut with a bang. Cuckoo sat behind the door, holding her blushing ears and thinking, "Chinua, why is he at my house? And I'm dressed like this, and my eating posture was so crude just now." Outside, Chinua smiled as he watched, praising her for being cute. Only then did Old Son react. "Oh dear, a miscalculation. I've let a wolf into the house." He patted Chinua on the shoulder and said, "Change your shoes. Then go to the living room and do your homework first." A moment later, Cuckoo, having changed her clothes, slowly walked out. She was wearing a very cute short skirt and walked out asking, "Daddy, why is he here?" Old Son replied, "I brought him back for a meal. You two sit down and do your homework obediently." Then he sternly shouted, "Chinua, you sit and write at the dining table. Cuckoo, you go to the living room and write. No private conversations." A moment later, Chinua sat there, scribbling on a piece of paper. Cuckoo saw it and thought to herself, acting all high and mighty, "Isn't he just scared of my dad?" After writing, he crumpled the paper into a ball, then gave Cuckoo a meaningful look and threw the paper ball over. Cuckoo stared blankly at the paper ball in front of her, then opened it to see. Inside it was written, "Your dad is really nice." Cuckoo blushed, thinking to herself, "Does this count as acknowledging my dad? If Old Son were here, he would surely remind her immediately, 'Daughter, you've got it backwards.'" Old Son sat there reading the newspaper, supervising the two kids as they studied. He muttered to himself, "This stinky brat, he completely disregards me." The newspaper in his hand was crumpled tightly. Time flew by. It was almost 6:30 in the evening. Chinua used the same old trick to pass a note, making a pew-pew gesture twice towards Cuckoo, and then another paper ball was thrown over. The content was a question. "Your dad doesn't seem quite right. He's been looking at the same newspaper for 2 hours. Your dad has a hobby of hugging newspapers." After Cuckoo read it, she couldn't help but laugh, covering her mouth and giggling. When Old Son saw this, he crumpled the newspaper even tighter. Then he looked towards Chinua, cursing inwardly. "Stinky brat, you pew-pewed at Cuckoo 32 times. Cuckoo secretly glanced 57 times. Do you think I'm just there?" He stood up and shouted angrily, "Cuckoo!" The girl was startled and turned around, asking, "Dad?" She thought he would be very fierce, but as soon as he saw his daughter, his expression immediately softened. Old Son said with a wry smile, "It's already 7:30. Your mom is probably working overtime. I'm going out to buy some groceries to cook dinner." With that, he went out to buy groceries, muttering as he walked, "Out of sight, out of mind. From now on, no matter what, I can't let Chinua come to the house again." A moment later, a table full of food was served. Old Ton picked up a duck leg for Chinua, saying, "Here, have a duck leg. You're at a growing age. Eat up." On the other side, Cuckoo also picked up a piece. The dinner table suddenly fell silent. Seeing this, Old Ton gave his daughter a gentle glare. Cuckoo smiled slyly, put a piece in his bowl, and said, "Dad, you eat." 3 minutes later, everyone was eating heartily, especially Chinua, who kept shoveling rice into his mouth. Director Ton turned to remind Chinua, "Go home after you finish eating. It's not safe to be out too late." He replied, "It's fine. I'm used to walking at night." Then he rubbed his belly, smiled, and said, "That was great. Cuckoo, can I have another bowl of rice?" She immediately reached out to take the bowl, but Old Ton suddenly stood up and yelled, "I said you're done eating, so you're done? No more." Chinua was pushed out the door, and it slammed shut with a bang. Poor Cuckoo. Dad, can this be considered a preview of the conflict between a father-in-law and his son-in-law? Afterward, he turned to go home, but unexpectedly ran into a woman who was also walking toward Old Ton's house. Moreover, she looked a bit familiar. The woman in the hallway had a pleasant face, with features very similar to Cuckoo's. Chinua's eyes widened, but he didn't dare to stare. The two quickly passed each other. He secretly turned his head for a look, marveling. So similar, that must be Tun Cuckoo's mother. A moment later, Chinua was downstairs. A small car was parked by the roadside, with someone's hand sticking out, holding a cigarette. His sharp nose seemed to smell something. Chinua recalled the hallway. This smell of smoke was exactly the same as the one on Tun Cuckoo's mother just now. Then he raised his head, looking toward Cuckoo's apartment. He started to worry about Old Tun. The scene changes to Monday morning. Chin Nuo was sitting in an internet cafe near his home. He was surfing the web with a cigarette dangling from his mouth. Chin Nuo was engrossed in typing on the keyboard when a hand suddenly pressed down on his. Director Tun was standing there, asking, "Why are you skipping class?" He frowned at Chin Nuo and said, "I've been looking for you all morning." He didn't say a word, took a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, offered it to him, and said with a smile, "Old comrade Tun, don't be so grumpy. Want to smoke?" Old Tun yelled, "Where did you learn to be so glib?" Then he pulled a chair over, sat down, took the cigarette from his hand, and put it to his lips. Chin Nuo quickly took out a lighter. What's the point of offering a cigarette without lighting it? Director Tun immediately snatched both the cigarettes and the lighter. Then he began to lecture him. "You, stop trying to act cool, making yourself look like a hooligan. In a few years, when you're grown up and look back, you'll realize how ridiculous and childish this is." He took a drag and continued. "I know you're at a rebellious age. Your family situation is complicated. You have a stubborn personality, and you don't like to socialize with others. I understand all of this. But Chin Nuo, have you ever thought about your future?" He watched his father-in-law smoke intently, then said, "Future?" Director Tun continued, "How old are you? You're already giving up now. What will you do later? Are you going to become a gangster in society? I don't want to see you become a loafer on the streets. If you become that kind of person, I will be heartbroken." Chin Nuo replied, "Old Tun, you're actually overthinking it. I don't have the student problems you think I do. I just feel that being a salted fish is very comfortable." He stretched and continued, "Actually, I really enjoy these boring days. Peaceful, free, no one bothers me, and nothing special to worry about. Just eating and drinking my fill every day is happiness. In winter, I sunbathe and watch the snow. Occasionally, I tease your daughter." Hearing the part about teasing his daughter, Old Tun's eyes narrowed, and he shot him a glare. Chin Nuo quickly tried to smooth things over. All right, I was just kidding," he said sincerely. "Old Tun, you are a good person and a good teacher too. But my business, can you please not meddle in it anymore? I'm not someone who will go astray. I really just want to be idle. Just let me live my idle, tasteless life." He asked, "But you still have to think about the future, right? What will you live on later?" Chin Nuo thought to himself, "I still have tens of thousands of dollars and a few gold bars at home, enough to live well for a while. If I pull a few more blackmail jobs, buy a few houses in the city center, and wait 20 years for the housing prices to skyrocket, I'll be a landlord collecting rent without lifting a finger. I really have no motivation to make money anymore." Director Tun took something out of his pocket. He handed him an envelope, saying, "This is a letter of recommendation. I went through a lot of trouble to find you a part-time job. I've already negotiated the working hours and compensation. You can just go and work with peace of mind." Then he added, "For the next 2 years, try to save money. Don't spend it recklessly. It should be enough for university tuition. Once you're in university, try to find a part-time job to cover your expenses. Although it's a bit tough, your future life will still be better than wandering the streets." He turned his head and said, "Old Tun, has anyone ever told you that people like you are very foolish?" Chin Nuo thought to himself, 20 years from now, good people like you will be nearly extinct in society." His face darkened as he replied, "You won't listen no matter how much I say. Think carefully about what I just said. I have a class this afternoon. I'm leaving first." That evening, Chin Nuo stepped out, rubbing his neck and sighing, "So tiring. But these few idle days have been really comfortable." He smiled and said, "Sorry, Old Tun, I'll have to keep skipping class tomorrow. Oshiohua's matter has to be resolved sooner or later. I'll make a trip to the prison tomorrow. After all, this body is her son. Just consider it handling the final affairs for the original Chin Nuo." The next morning, Longtan Prison. Chin Nuo stood at the entrance carrying 2 large bags. "Hello, my name is Chin Nuo. I made an appointment last night to visit an inmate." A guard announced, "Inmate Oshiohua, your son is here to visit you." Mother and son sat facing each other, separated by the prison's glass partition. His mother picked up the phone, her face a bit haggard, and softly called, "Xiao Nuo." Then her eyes filled with tears. "Xiao Nuo, you must not want to see me. You must hate me very much, right?" He replied, "There were some things I couldn't figure out before, but it's fine now. I don't hate you. I'm telling the truth." Xiaohua looked at her son and asked again, "Really?" He replied, "Really. I brought you some chocolate and cookies. Life in here must be tough, right?" She wiped her tears, trying to force a smile, and said, "It's not tough. I'm living very well in here. You don't need to worry about me. What about you? Are you living well?" Chen Nuo replied, "I'm doing very well. My teachers and friends all care about me a lot." "That's good then." Xiaohua said again, "Xiao Nuo, I will definitely reform myself well and try to get out early. Wait for me to get out. I'll make it up to you. Take care of you, okay?" The guard beside them announced, "Time's up." Chen Nuo replied briefly, "Okay." Just that one word made her a little happy. She seized the moment to plead, "Xiao Nuo, I have one more thing to ask of you. I know it's not right to ask, but I really have no one else to turn to. That child is also my daughter. Consider her your half-sister. Can you go visit her?" Xiaohua cried again. "She's only 5 years old. I'm so worried. I keep having nightmares. If it's convenient for you, can you go see her? If you don't want to go, that's fine too. This is all my sin. It's my fault." Chen Nuo was stunned, thinking to himself, "I have a little sister." He sighed, thought for a moment, then answered decisively, "Okay, I'll go visit her." The scene changes to the Neighborhood Women's Federation. Cadre Lu smiled and said, "You're here." Chen Nuo turned and said, "Cadre Lu, I'm going to buy some snacks for the kids, and also some cigarettes and alcohol. I'll be right back." She replied, "Okay," thinking to herself, "This kid is quite thoughtful." A moment later, Chen Nuo returned carrying a large bag of snacks. Cadre Lu walked ahead, saying, "I visited a few times already. Your sister is very well-behaved and adorable. You can't help but feel for her. Because her situation is quite special, her parents didn't leave her much money, so the Federation can only raise some funds, sending her 300 yuan a month as a foster care allowance." She turned to look at him and said, "I monitor this amount very closely every month, ensuring it's transferred to the designated foster family's account." Chen Nuo replied, "You've worked hard." He thought to himself, after Oh Xiaohua and that man went to prison together, their daughter was entrusted to the man's biological younger brother. Hearing what Cadre Lu said, compared to Chen Nuo after his grandmother passed away, this little sister's life is probably much better. A moment later, the two stood before the door of apartment 602. They had finally arrived. She raised her hand to knock. The apartment door slowly opened, and the person inside stepped out, smiling and asking, "Xiao Lu, you're here?" Then hurriedly invited them in. "Come in, come in." Chen Nuo saw an old woman and a little girl watching a children's show. Cadre Lu introduced them. "This is Uncle Gu and Aunt Fong. Uncle Gu is the child's paternal uncle. This is Chen Nuo." Uncle Gu looked at him and said, "Chen Nuo." He quickly handed over the bag of gifts, smiling and saying, "I've come to trouble you all. I didn't come for any particular reason this time, mainly just to see my sister." The uncle took the bag of gifts, gently opened it to see what was inside, then smiled happily and said, "Sit, sit. I'll have your aunt bring your sister out. This kid always likes to hide and play in her room alone." A moment later, Chen Nuo saw Aunt Fong leading a little girl out. Aunt Fong said to the little girl, "This is your biological older brother. Hurry up and greet him." A cute little girl with a bow in her hair, hugging a black teddy bear, mumbled, "Hello, brother." Uncle Gu came over to explain. "She's a bit shy with strangers and usually doesn't talk much, but we take very good care of her." Aunt Fong also smiled and said, "That's right. My old Gu dotes on this niece of his." She added, "Look at this sweater of hers. We just bought it not long ago. It wasn't easy." Aunt Fong, wearing an apron, went inside, not forgetting to say, "Old Gu, after you greet Xiao Lu and everyone, I'm going to the kitchen to cook. Everyone stay for lunch today." Chen Nuo peeled a banana he was holding, then smiled and offered it to his sister, asking, "Want some?" The little girl swallowed, making a gulping sound, then looked toward Uncle Gu, her eyes as if asking for permission. The uncle smiled and said, "That's a banana your brother peeled for you. Go ahead and eat it." The little girl ate happily and with relish. Chen Nuo took out something else and offered it to her, saying, "There's candy too." Just as she reached out to take it, another small hand snatched it away. A mischievous little boy said while making a face, "Wawa candy. More. I want to eat it." Ninir, ninir. Uncle Gu made an excuse. "They're just kids. They're used to playing around with each other like this." But Chen Nuo seemed to have noticed something unusual. He feigned a smile. "Yes, kids at this age are all mischievous. It must not be easy for you two to take care of both of them. It's really not easy." At the same time, Aunt Fong brought out the food and invited everyone. Time to eat. Sitting at the dinner table, Uncle Gu said, "Come on, eat. Don't be polite. Just make yourselves at home. Aunt Fong also acted very caring, picking up food and saying, Yi, this is for you. You love chicken legs the most. Everyone chatted quite lively. Come on, Xiao Chun, you eat up too. You must come visit often when you have time. After lunch, at the gate of the Lai Fong residential complex, Cadre Lu stood there and said to Chen Nua, your sister is so pitiful, so young, and both her parents are in prison. But luckily, she's living quite well now. Chen Nua, you can rest assured, our Federation will definitely keep an eye on her situation. We won't let her suffer. He smiled and scratched his head, replying, then I'll have to trouble you. Cadre Lu waved her hand. Don't be so polite. I'll head back first. I still have a lot of work to do. Chen Nua watched her retreating figure, then thought to himself, Cadre Lu is enthusiastic, but she's young and lacks experience. I'm afraid there are many things she can't see through. Chen Nua recalled the clothes hanging out to dry on the balcony. Only the little girl's clothes were missing. It must be because she has few clothes and they are changed infrequently. The sweater on the little girl looked clean, but the elbows were worn out and there were quite a few loose threads. Moreover, the style didn't look like something a girl would wear. It was most likely old clothes passed down from their son. A 5-year-old child who eats so obediently, without a single grain of rice left in her bowl, even gnawing the meat clean off the bones, proves that she normally doesn't get to eat her fill. Chen Nua smiled and thought, over 200 yuan a month in foster care allowance. They must be happy to take the money. So assured, he recalled the prison visit. No wonder Oshio Hua was worried and asked him to go check. He took out a cigarette and lit it. He already had a clear picture of this worldly affair. Chen Nua took a drag, blew out a smoke ring, then thought as he walked, I've taken over your body, so I might as well do a few things for your family. He abruptly turned back toward apartment 602 and knocked on the door. The door opened once again. Uncle Gu, holding a bag of trash, was startled to see him. Chen Nua's gaze went past him into the house, where he witnessed Aunt Fong holding a ruler while his sister sat there sobbing. She stood there with a switch, scolding, don't you dare cry out loud. Shut up. Then she hit her as she scolded. You useless thing. I told you to wash a bowl, and you broke it. You tell me, did you do it on purpose? Uncle Gu pushed Chen Nua outside, asking, why are you here again? At this moment, Aunt Fong inside looked out in surprise. Chen Nua's anger flared, and he said, you people, then kicked the man, sending him flying inside, saying, this is how you treat my sister? Aunt Fong rushed out, saying fiercely, you hit my husband? You dare hit my husband? He didn't even look at her, pushing her aside, get lost. Then he advanced toward the uncle. He gently grabbed the man's ankle. Uncle Gu was dragged along, screaming in fear. Xiao Nua, Chen Nua, then asked in terror, what are you trying to do? The old woman who was sitting there also stood up, shouting loudly, you let go of my son, then rushed forward, pushing him relentlessly, scolding, let go, let go. Chen Nua glared. So you're not dead yet? Your daughter-in-law is beating your own granddaughter, and you could just sit there and watch? She's only 5 years old. What are you thinking? The old woman pointed at him and cursed. The older one is a jinx, and the younger one is a jinx too. The older one married my son, gave birth to this little one, and my son ended up in prison. Your whole family are jinxes. Chen Nua understood. I get it. So you're also a disgusting old hag. With that, he dragged the man with one hand, opened the balcony door, and stepped out. Then with a heave, he dangled the man over the balcony. Uncle Gu, suspended in midair, screamed in terror. Help. Save me. Murder. Chen Nua threatened. Shut up. If you dare make another sound, I'll let go. Then he turned his head and said to the two women in the house, don't come over here. Whoever comes over, I'll let go. The man's wife quickly pulled her mother-in-law back, advising, Mom, don't provoke him. Then she changed her tone, calling out, Chun Xiao Nua, let my husband down, we can talk things over. Talk things over. He let out a cold laugh, then glanced at her and replied, finally speaking like a human being. Chen Nua still held the man's ankle tightly, leaving him dangling in midair. The man was so scared his face was covered in tears. He swung his arm, throwing the uncle back into the apartment. The old woman rushed over, calling out worriedly, son. Then she started cursing, you goddamn bastard. You're a jinx. You little animal. You have a mother, but no father to teach you. I hope you get hit by a car on the street. I hope you choke to death while eating. The man's wife also chimed in, pointing at him and scolding. You're dead meat. What you're doing is illegal. You know that. I'm calling the police to arrest you right now. Chin-Nua couldn't be bothered to reply, just smiling at Uncle Gu with a deathly gaze. The man immediately turned and scolded the two women. Damn it, both of you shut up. Are you trying to get me killed? Then he immediately raised his hands to placate him. Xiao Chun, don't get agitated. Let's talk things over calmly. Calmly, Chin-Nua smiled and said, now this is more interesting. Then he quietly walked toward the kitchen, and when he returned, he had a knife in his hand. All three of them were terrified. The old woman stepped forward and said, come on, kill me. This old bag of bones has lived long enough anyway. Chin-Nua sneered. He placed the knife on the table and said, don't worry, I won't use the knife. Not today. After the intimidation, he began his questioning. If you don't want to see blood, then answer honestly. Aunt Fong pointed at him and scolded. You, surnamed Chun, aren't you afraid of retribution for doing this? I'm telling you, you're going to jail. He smiled and replied, I'm not afraid. I didn't hurt anyone today. At most, the police will just give me a warning when they come. After I get out, what do you think? Will I come looking for you? Chin-Nua added, you have a family, a wife and kids. I'm all alone. If I come to your house with a knife later, Uncle Chun, do you think I'd dare? Dare take that bet? The man's wife was so angry her face turned purple, unable to speak. The uncle turned and scolded. If you don't want to get us killed, then shut up. Uncle Gu stood up trembling, then said in a gentle tone, Xiao Chun, what exactly do you want? Just to vent your anger. Is it necessary to go this far? We treat your sister. Chin-Nua smiled and said, cut the crap with me. Let's make this simple. I want to take my sister with me. Aunt Fong interjected. We are her legal guardians. He replied coldly. Isn't it just for the 200 plus you a month, right? And the foster care allowance her biological parents left for you. The couple was speechless, as he had hit the nail on the head. He smiled and continued, I don't want anything. I don't want a single cent of the allowance. You can keep it. You can also continue to receive the monthly allowance in the future. Nominally, you are still the guardians. But I want to take her with me. She will live with me. Uncle Gu was a bit troubled, stammering, This. Chin-Nua lifted his foot, then stomped hard on the man's knee, and a blood-curdling scream rang out. Then he stomped on the other leg. The uncle collapsed to his knees, screaming in pain. Looking at him kneeling there, he announced, listen up, I'm not negotiating with you. I'm telling you what to do. Of course, you can also taste the consequences of not agreeing. I'm all alone, but your family has 4 mouths to feed. Chin-Nua smiled menacingly and asked, your son is 7 years old, right? Upon hearing this, the family of 3 fell silent, terrified. Aunt Fong quickly interjected, Go, take her away right now. Just don't come back ever again. From now on, we'll mind our own business. This was exactly what Chin-Nua was waiting for. All right, I'll take her. From now on, we'll mind our own business. After saying that, he walked over to his sister, who was cowering there. Then he gently knelt on one knee and said to her, you might not know this yet, but I'm your brother, your biological brother from the same mother. From now on, do you want to come with me? Whatever I eat, you'll eat. And what's more, no one will hit you. The little girl was a bit scared and asked with tears in her eyes, as long as you don't hit me, I'll go with you, okay? Chin-Nua gently wiped her tears, replying, it's a deal. Also, from today on, call me brother. Then he asked, by the way, what's your name? The little girl replied, Gu Xiaoyi. Chin-Nua glanced back and said, no one with the surname Gu is any good. You're with me now, so from now on your surname will be Chun, and your name will be Chun Xiaoyi. That afternoon, on the way home, he took his sister to buy some delicious food and also bought her a lot of new clothes. The 2 siblings walked happily down the street. When they got back to the apartment complex, a familiar figure was standing there. Cuckoo saw him returning with a little girl. Her eyes widened, and she called out Chin-Nua's name. Seeing Cuckoo standing there, Chin-Nua asked, why are you here? She replied softly, I called you. Why didn't you pick up? He took out his phone and saw that the battery was dead. Cuckoo's gaze fell on Xiaoyi, and she praised with a smile. This little sister is so cute. She squatted down, smiled warmly, and asked, who is this little sister? Chin-Nua, where did you trick her from? He suddenly had an idea to tease Cuckoo and replied, this? She's my daughter. Then he turned to the little girl and said, Xiaoyi, call me Dad. The little girl was very cooperative and immediately called out Dad. When Cuckoo heard this, she felt as if her whole world had collapsed, slumping to the ground with a look of disbelief, thinking to herself, Dad? What? Xiaoyi, on the other hand, had an innocent face, lying without batting an eye, a true natural actress. But suddenly, the little girl pulled on Chen Nua's hand and asked, "Brother, did I say that right just now?" Cuckoo's expression changed slightly. It was Dad just now, and now it's brother. She immediately stood up, fuming, and playfully punched Chen Nua's chest. "You're so improper." But Chen Nua just burst out laughing triumphantly. Suddenly, he dropped his playful demeanor and asked seriously, "What did you need me for?" Cuckoo grabbed his hand and asked with concern, "Where have you been these past few days?" Then she said loudly, "Do you know how much my dad cares about you?" Cuckoo added, "A few days ago, my dad rode his bike to your house several times just to find a job for you. When he came back last night, he was limping, said he fell off his bike. When he was soaking his feet, I saw a long bruise on his calf." Chen Nua asked, "How long have you been waiting for me?" She was taken aback. "And asked back, huh?" He reached out and took Cuckoo's hand tightly, then asked with concern, "It's so cold. How long have you been waiting for me?" She lowered her head slightly, replying shyly, "Just a little while." Chen Nua pulled her hand and said, "Let's go to my place." Cuckoo immediately pulled her hand away, saying flusteredly, "No way." Xiao Yi witnessed the young couple's interaction, thinking to herself, "Are you two in love? Am I being a third wheel?" Chen Nua thought for a moment and said, "It gets dark early these days. Never mind. I'll take you somewhere else." And so, they walked into a KFC together. Chen Nua asked, "Is your dad especially fond of meddling in other people's business?" Facing a table full of fried chicken, Cuckoo replied, "Not really." She recalled, a few years ago, when he was still a director, he often brought a student home for dinner. That student had no one left in his family, his grades were poor, and he was always getting into fights with others. Once, to stop him, my dad held him tightly and wouldn't let him go, and even got pushed down by him. That night, that student ran to our house, knelt before my dad, cried his eyes out, and kept apologizing, begging my dad not to bother with him anymore, saying he wasn't worth it. My dad was very sad that day. Cuckoo continued, "A few years after that, something happened to that student. He was stabbed to death on the street. Ever since then, my dad stopped being a director. Because of this, my mom argued with my dad several times. Not being a director meant his bonus and some extra income would be reduced." The Chen Nua siblings listened intently, then looked at each other. He pondered for a moment, understanding. "Your dad sees a shadow of that person in me. He doesn't want me to follow the same path." As they were talking, he glanced at the food on the table and said to Xiao Yi, "Why aren't you eating?" Seeing that the little girl still didn't react, Chen Nua said again, "Eat up." The little girl politely offered him a piece, saying, "Brother, you eat first." He offered a piece of cake to Xiao Yi, replying, "It's okay, I have my own, you eat yours." Just then, the server brought their order, smiling and saying, "Sir, here is your ice cream." The little girl's eyes lit up when she saw the ice cream, as if it were the most delicious delicacy in the world she had always dreamed of. Xiao Yi scooped up a spoonful of ice cream, put it in her mouth, and ate it with relish. The adorable girl pressed her hands to her cheeks, feeling the coolness of the ice cream in the middle of winter, her face filled with comfort and happiness. Xiao Yi scooped up a spoonful of ice cream and offered it to Chen Nua, her eyes sparkling as she said in a pleading voice, "Brother, can you not send me back? I won't cause any trouble. I'll bathe myself and sleep by myself. I also know how to sweep the floor, wipe the table, and I even know how to wash rice." Hearing this, Chen Nua reached out and touched his sister's ear, saying, "Didn't I already tell you? From now on, you'll live with me and never have to go back to that place again." Xiao Yi obediently replied, "Yes, brother, I'll be good. I'll be very, very good." Seeing this, Cuckoo asked Chen Nua, "Is this little girl really your sister? How can she be so adorable and sensible? Not like you at all." He ruffled his little sister's hair as she happily ate her ice cream, replying, "It's a long story. I can't explain it in just a few words." Then he asked Cuckoo back, "You're not going home for dinner tonight, won't old son ask? If he finds out you're with me, I'm afraid I'll have to go sweep the stadium again." She said, "Honestly, my dad argued with my mom today." Chen Nua waved his hand. "It's normal for couples to argue." She immediately continued, "My dad never used to argue back before. I don't know what's been up with her lately. My mom is always busy with work, and then every time she comes home, I feel like she's just picking fights with my dad." Chen Nua chuckled softly and replied, "Adult matters. Kids like you shouldn't get involved." Cuckoo immediately retorted, "Stop pretending to be so mature. My dad said the same thing. So today he gave me 50 yuan and told me to go out and hang out with friends, not to stay cooped up at home." After hearing this, Chen Nua laughed happily. Then he held out his hand in front of Cuckoo, which confused her a little. and she immediately asked, "What do you mean?" Chen Nuo replied, "Split the money, of course. Didn't your dad give me 50 yuan?" Cuckoo slapped his hand with a smack, then adorably stuck out her tongue and replied, "Dream on." After eating their fill, it was already dark. The three of them walked back to Cuckoo's family staff quarters. She waved her hand. "I'm home. Thank you both for walking me back." Xiaoyi politely smiled and waved back. "Goodbye, big sister." Suddenly, Cuckoo opened her arms wide, as if wanting a hug, which made Chen Nuo's heart flutter. He laughed and rushed forward. "It's just walking you home. No need to be so moved you have to give me a hug." But he ended up hugging empty air, as Cuckoo bent down and hugged Xiaoyi instead. He froze on the spot. She praised Xiaoyi. "You're such an adorable little sister. How about you ask your brother if he can sleep over at my place tonight?" Watching Cuckoo go inside, Chen Nuo said to his sister, "Let's go home." As soon as they reached the street, he again saw the black car from a few days ago. Inside were a man and a woman. The woman looked a bit familiar. It was Cuckoo's mother. Seeing the scene again, Chen Nuo was also lost in thought. Early the next morning, Xiao Ye's voice echoed in the room. "Brother, time to get up and eat breakfast." He quickly washed up, then came out wiping his face, looked at the food on the table, and asked, "You made this?" The little girl obediently replied, "Yes." He looked at his sister and asked doubtfully, "You're only 5 and you already know how to cook?" The little girl asked innocently, "Brother, what's wrong?" Chen Nuo sat down, smiled, and said, "Nothing." He picked up a mouthful of noodles, blew on them to cool them down, then ate with gusto, praising nonstop as he ate. "So delicious." Xiaoyi looked at him and reminded, "Brother, you have to eat quickly or you'll be late for school." He replied while eating, "I'm not going to school anymore. Otherwise, there's no one to take care of you." Then he thought to himself, although right now it feels more like Xiaoyi is taking care of me. Seeing his sister look sad, Chen Nuo quickly asked, "Xiaoyi, what's wrong?" The little girl replied, "Xiaoyi can take care of herself. Xiaoyi doesn't want to be a burden to you. Otherwise, you'll definitely hate Xiaoyi later and send Xiaoyi away." He gently stroked her head, comforting her. "Don't worry, I'll never hate Xiaoyi." Chen Nuo gently adjusted the bow on her, then raised his hands in surrender. "All right, then I promise Xiaoyi I'll go to school. So, can Xiaoyi go get my jacket for me?" In the late afternoon after school, Chen Nuo stood in the bike shed, looking bewildered and confused, then cursed out loud. Damn it, he was furious, looking at the parking spot, wondering, "Where's my dad's bike?" Chen Nuo searched for a long time, but couldn't find the bike, so he went to find the security guard. Arriving at the security office, he saw the bald security guard dozing off. He shouted, "Sir, my bike was stolen." The man's expression seemed to say, "What does your loss have to do with me?" Chen Nuo knew he was in the wrong and muttered, "Fine, I'll figure it out myself." He brought another bike over, smiled, and said, "Without bait, how can you catch a wolf?" Then he locked the bike to a post by the road, leaving it standing there alone. Chen Nuo stood to one side, drinking water, observing the situation from a distance. He saw 2 figures approach, furtively eyeing his bike. The 2 guys looked for a moment, then one stood guard while the other picked the lock. "No one's around. Hurry up." Chen Nuo witnessed the whole process, watching the 2 ride away on the bike. He followed behind, thinking to himself, they took the bait, as expected. A while later, on Tongzi Street, at a gate with the sign, Shanyang District, the 2 bike thieves were pushing the bike inside. Chen Nuo looked inside, smiling to himself. Tongzi Street, I didn't expect it to be here. It truly is Jinling's most famous street for used bike sales. The 2 thieves went in, waving a tall, bald man. The man crossed his arms and asked, "New goods?" The one in the hat pointed behind him and replied, "Brand new. Look, the oil hasn't even been changed once." The man asked again, "Where do you get it?" The other guy smiled and said, "Don't worry, it's from far away, all the way from Jiangning." The bald man prepared to pull money from his pocket, replying, "All right, same old price." The thief wanted to ask for more. "Brother Lei, this is a brand new bike. Can you give a little extra?" The man handed over the money, cursing, "Cut the crap." At the same time, Chen Nuo stood outside the main gate and knocked. The bald man roared, "What are you knocking for? What do you want?" He stood outside and answered, "Boss, I have a few questions." The other man came to the gate, waving him away dismissively. "What questions? Go ask somewhere else." It seemed a civil conversation was impossible. He stood there inside. Then, from inside Chen Nuo's sleeve, an iron chain slowly slid down. He grabbed one end, the other end of the chain hanging straight to the ground. Chen Nuo coldly pushed the gate open, then strode in aggressively. Just as he crossed the threshold, he kicked his leg back slightly, slamming the iron gate shut. The iron gate clanged shut with a loud noise, and they were surrounded by Chen Nuo alone. The bald man stepped forward, pointed at his face, and asked, "Kid, you looking for trouble?" Chinua smiled and replied, "Boss, I just want to ask, where's your safe?" With a dangerous smile and an iron chain in hand, could this be a robbery of the thugs? The fierce bald man was named. He was an old fox in this business. In his youth, he was jailed for 2 years for assault, but was released 6 months early for good behavior. During his time in reform, he was lucky to meet a big boss. After his release, with that person's backing, DeLay started a used bike business, buying stolen goods from bike thieves, reaping profits without effort, and his business flourished. Over the years, he had learned that peace was the best policy, no longer resorting to fights and violence. But when provoked, back to the present, Chun Nua had successfully angered Wu DeLay. He grabbed a large wrench and leaped to strike at him. But at the same time, the iron chain had wrapped around his leg. Realizing the danger, he was terrified, a flash of panic in his eyes. Chun Nua stood there with a cold smile, gripping the chain tightly in his hand, and then gave it a sharp tug. Wu DeLay's legs were pulled wide apart. It seemed his family jewels were done for. He screamed in pain, cursing, "Damn it, they're crushed." He lay on the ground, clutching his crotch, wailing pitifully, tears and snot streaming down his face, a truly pathetic sight. Chin Nua walked up to him, and before he could even speak, Wu DeLay hastily confessed, "The money's in the cabinet." Hearing this, he gave a friendly but dangerous smile. Holding a thick stack of cash, Chun Nua counted it, then opened the door and walked out, leaving Wu DeLay lying there. The man gritted his teeth and cursed angrily, "Damn it." Then he took out his phone, dialed a number, and yelled, "Damn it, where are you messing around? Get your ass back here. The place has been robbed." Chin Nua, however, was unhurried, showing no sign of needing to flee after a robbery. He sat down in a nearby food stall and called out softly, "Ma'am, 1 savory crepe and a bowl of wontons." Then he opened the money bag. There was indeed a lot inside, about 40 to 50,000. His trip was not in vain. After that, Chin Nua just sat there enjoying his food. As he was enjoying his meal, a car screeched to a halt beside him. A person got out of the car, followed by several others, heading towards Wu DeLay's warehouse. A while later, having finished his meal, Chin Nua smiled, stood up to leave, and ordered more food. "Ma'am, pack up 8 steamed buns. I'll be back to get them later." Over here, the underlings had rushed back, storming in to check on Wu DeLay. "Big brother, are you okay?" He roared at them. "Find that kid for me. Damn it, I'm gonna beat him to death. Beat that little brat to death." Wu DeLay was furious, thinking to himself, 60,000 yuan. That kid made off with 60,000. That money was for buying a batch of motorcycles in 2 days. One of the underlings spoke up and asked, "Big brother, what does he look like?" "Damn it, just a snot-nosed kid, ordinary looking, not very old." "Was he walking very casually?" "Yes, that's right." "How did you know?" Hearing this, the underling pointed towards the door and stammered, "Big brother." Chun Nua was walking in from outside the door. "See if that kid looks like him?" Wu DeLay was utterly astonished and roared, "Damn it, how dare you come back?" Chun Nua stood there, smiling dangerously. "I never said where I was going. My bike is still here. I just went out for a meal." Hearing his tone, Wu DeLay couldn't help but shudder, and cursed, "Damn you." Then he immediately pointed and ordered his underlings, "Get him, beat him to death for me." He also ordered, "Lock the door, don't let him run. The money's on him." Chun Nua stood there calmly, letting them set up their formation. The large door was finally closed, and they were officially surrounded by Chun Nua alone. He coldly stepped inside. An impatient thug rushed forward to attack first, but he lightly grabbed the man's weapon-wielding hand, then, like a Tai Chi move, skillfully pulled him to the side and delivered a horizontal knee strike to his leg, with only a crack sound. The underling knelt on the ground, screaming in pain. Just watching made Wu DeLay break out in a cold sweat. He sensed the danger, gulped, and a hint of fear appeared on his face. Things had come to this point. There was nothing left to lose. Chin Nua bent down to pick up the wrench from the just-defeated underling, then coldly advanced towards them. Wu DeLay, slightly panicked, ordered his underlings, "Go, go!" A dozen seconds passed, and he looked at his underlings lying all over the ground, with lumps on their heads, thinking to himself, "It's over. I've run into a monster. Damn it, is this guy even human? He fights way too viciously." Then he said tearfully to Chinno, Big brother, I recognize your strength. Look, can we just call this a misunderstanding?" He sat on a chair and said casually, "Don't. I know you're not willing to let this go. Instead of you gathering people to find me later, why don't we settle this once and for all today? I'll give you time to call for backup. Before your men arrive, I won't touch you. How about it? Wu Delay knelt there, hands on the ground, crying and begging, "Big brother, I was wrong, I was really wrong." Then he said nonstop, "This time, I can't escape even if I had wings. I still have a business to run. I admit defeat. Can you let me go? You can take all the money, and you've already beaten up all my men. Isn't it just a bicycle, big brother? What's the big deal?" Chin Nua gave a cold laugh, then rubbed his chin and said, "I'm tired of riding bicycles." He said to Wu Delay, "Find me a lighter bike." The man hastily agreed. Okay. As long as you show mercy, big brother. I guarantee I'll make you satisfied." Then he led Chin Nua inside. "Big brother, I just got this one last week, refurbished from top to bottom. The paint is new too." In front of them was a large displacement motorcycle, a genuine Japanese Yamaha. "I even installed the exhaust pipe myself." Wu Delay rubbed his hands together and asked, "Big brother, are you satisfied?" A moment later, the two came out. Chin Nua looked at him and blurted out, "It's missing a helmet." Wu Delay quickly said, I have everything." He took out a very high-end helmet and introduced carbon fiber material, anti-fog visor. Wu Delay said honestly, "This bike and this helmet, I was planning to keep them for myself, not for sale." He handed the helmet to Chin Nua, adding, "I've never used it, big brother, just take it and have fun." Taking the helmet, Chin Nua praised him. "You're quite sensible." He added, "I was originally going to let you off like this, but I have a bad habit. I hate bald heads." Chin Nua asked, "Tell me, what's the point of people like you deliberately shaving your heads to pretend to be gangsters? What's the use of scaring children on the street?" Wu Delay cried and explained, "Big brother, I didn't shave it. I have seborrheic hair loss." After robbing the robbers, Chin Nua sped down the road on the motorcycle. As he was riding, he suddenly saw a cuckoo walking on the side of the road, which startled him. He slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the ground. The motorcycle stopping sideways in front of Cuckoo. Not recognizing him, Cuckoo immediately shouted, "What are you doing? I'm telling you this is the school gate. If I scream, people will come right away." He slowly took off his helmet, then looked at Cuckoo with a friendly smile. She asked in astonishment, "Chin Nua, where did you get this motorcycle?" He handed her the helmet, saying, "Put it on. I'll take you for a ride. I guarantee I'll get you home before old son gets off work." Cuckoo looked confused. "It's so cold. What's there to feel the wind for?" Suddenly, Chin Nua looked down mischievously and asked, "That brooch is pretty." She quickly covered it with her hand and asked, "Where are you looking?" Chin Nua asked curiously, "Where did you get it?" Cuckoo answered honestly, "A friend of my mom's gave it to me. A few days ago, my mom took me out to dinner with some of her friends, and an uncle gave it to me as a meeting gift. From what I can see, that thing isn't cheap, is it?" She immediately replied, "It's just a brooch. How expensive can it be? Besides, my mom agreed to let me accept it." Chin Nua thought to himself, "You can't tell, but your mom might not be so clueless." This is from Van Cleef and Arpels. In an era where the monthly salary is only a few hundred yuan, a 5-figure item isn't expensive, he took something out from his coat, saying, "Fine if you don't want to go for a ride." Then he handed the item to Cuckoo, saying, "Take it." She asked curiously, "What is this?" Chin Nua smiled and winked, "Something delicious." After saying that, he started the engine and sped away, leaving Cuckoo standing there stunned. She gently opened the paper package. Cuckoo smiled, her cheeks blushing, feeling a little touched. This bag of steamed buns, he must have kept it warm in his coat so it wouldn't get cold. Elsewhere, in Hancheng, at Li Yingwan's house, the girl was standing in front of a mirror, practicing her greeting alone. "Hello everyone, my name is Li Yingwan. It's a pleasure to meet you all." However, her speech was not smooth. She kept repeating this self-introduction. After much practice, Li Yingwan had made some progress, and her speech was much more fluent. "Hello everyone, my name is Li Yingwan. It's a pleasure to meet you all." Yingwan's older brother was eavesdropping on his sister from outside the door. "Hello everyone, my name is Li Yingwan." Then he turned and asked his mother, "Are you really planning to send my sister abroad to study in Jiangning?" She replied, "Yes, this is your sister's idea. It's also for our family. Your sister must go there to find that young man." The scene changes to the dean's office. Cuckoo had just arrived at the door, and inside, old son was sitting at his desk working. Cuckoo walked in and placed a lunchbox next to him. Dean's son smiled and said, "I've been busy with the class assignments for the start of the school year. Sorry to trouble you to bring me lunch every day." She handed the food to her father, saying, "Dad, eat quickly. Don't go hungry." Then she helped him to the sofa. "Dad, go sit on the sofa and eat. I'll sit in your chair and see what it feels like to be a leader." He replied, "What kind of leader is your dad?" Cuckoo sat at the desk, watching her father eat dinner. Her eyes glanced to the side, but her hand rested on the class assignment list. Then she flipped through a few pages, saw a list for a certain class, and took out a pen to write something on it. After secretly finishing this task, Cuckoo breathed a sigh of relief. On the student list for class 10 to 6, she had added her own name. The students were chattering excitedly. "Chino, son Cuckoo, I hope we're in the same class again." "Definitely. Mei Mei, Xing Xing, see you at the start of school." Finally, winter break is here. We can play as much as we want. At Sun Cuckoo's house, old Sun said to Chinua, "Your final exam scores this time weren't good. I hope you'll continue to work hard next semester." He scratched his head, recalling the scene of copying from his friend during the exam, and thought to himself, "It should be fine." He added, "By the way, Chinua, I heard from Cuckoo that you brought your sister back. Are you taking care of your sister by yourself? That won't do. You're still young and have to go to school. Where will you find the time to take care of a child?" He answered honestly, "I can skip school." Hearing this, Dean's son thought helplessly, "Is it really okay for you to say such things in front of your dean?" He continued to advise him, "I went home and asked for you. This child can definitely go to kindergarten. Didn't the Goof family tell you? You're too thoughtless in your actions. Even if you want to raise your sister, you have to handle everything properly." Chinuo recalled his past life raising those fireflies. There were no kindergartens. They were all left to grow up on their own. As they were talking animatedly, there was a series of urgent knocks on the door. Old Son said to his daughter, "Cuckoo, that must be your mother." As she walked out, her mother was just coming in. Cuckoo called out, "Mom," and her mother handed her handbag to her. Old Son stood up to introduce them. "This is your Auntie Yang." He politely greeted, "Hello, Auntie Yang." He then introduced his wife. "This is my student. His name is Chun Nua." She also smiled and said hello, then put her hair up, saying, "I'm going to take off my makeup, and then I'll prepare dinner." The scene changes to a kindergarten, new semester, Friday morning. Behind the gate, children were crying and calling for their mothers. "I want my mommy. I want to go home and watch TV." Witnessing this scene, Chinua was a bit stunned. He looked down at his sister and saw her looking up, her small face about to cry, her body trembling slightly. Chinua squatted down and said gently, "From now on, you'll be here from Monday to Friday, and I'll pick you up to go home on weekends. Today is the first day. Just get used to it." Xiao Yi asked politely, "Brother, you'll come pick me up every weekend from now on, right?" He stroked her cheek and replied, "Of course. I'll come pick you up after school today." Back at Chinua's school, he walked into class 10 to 6, where a few unfamiliar students were playing around. He looked up at the class sign, confirming he wasn't in the wrong class. Then he rubbed his chin and thought, "I almost forgot. Classes are reassigned in the new semester. No wonder there's so many new faces I don't recognize." Looking into the classroom, he also saw Cuckoo and her best friend. Her friend said to Cuckoo, "Hey, Chinua is here." She shyly pushed everyone away. "Stop messing around. Class is about to start. Everyone go back to your seats." Chinua threw his backpack onto the desk with a thud, right next to Cuckoo. She was startled, then turned her head to ask him, "Are you really sitting here?" Chinua asked back, "Do you have a problem with it?" The bell for class rang, and on the podium was Old Sunday. He announced, "To put it simply, from now on, I will be your homeroom teacher until you graduate." Then he shouted, "Chinua." He immediately raised his hand to show he was present. Dean's son pointed to the empty desk at the back of the class and said loudly, "You sit in the back. This semester, I'll have the teachers and students keep an eye on you. Don't even think about skipping class." Chinua stood up, picked up his backpack, and thought to himself, "Old Son, you really don't have to do this." The student in the back row saw him coming and was a little scared, glancing at him while praying, "Don't come over here, don't come over here. I don't want to get dragged into this. I still want to read my novels in class." Chinua sat down with a thud in the designated last seat. Seeing him sit behind him, the student immediately turned around and said, "Bro, don't go too far chasing the school bell, or you'll be the death of me." Chinua saw the title of his novel and said, "Mind's End Record? I prefer Mr. Jin Yang's White Horse Howling in the West Wind." There's a saying, "Those things are all very good, but I just don't like them. Reading it makes people," the student, Luo Chung, said excitedly. "Exactly. Chinua, I didn't expect you to be a kindred spirit. After school, Chen Nuo went to pick up his sister Xiao Yi. A teacher let her out, standing there reminding everyone, "Children, calm down. Don't push. Be careful not to fall." Seeing him, she shouted with some joy, but her eyes were teary and her mouth was pouting, looking extremely pitiful. She buried her face in his chest, sobbing. Chen Nuo immediately asked, "Did someone bully you in there?" Xiao Yi stopped crying, wiped her tears, then looked at him and said, "No, but I was scared you wouldn't come and pick me up." He smiled and pinched her cheek, saying, "How could that be? Come on, I'll take you to go freeload off a rich family." The two siblings sat on the bike, chatting happily. "Are we going to the big sister's house?" "How did you know?" Kids don't understand those things. A moment later, he slammed on the brakes. On the side of the road, Cuckoo was standing with Luo Cheng. She smiled brightly, waving and calling to him, "Chen Nuo." He handed the bike to Luo Cheng. "Thanks. Here's your bike back." The classmate was surprised and asked, "Is this your sister?" Then Luo Cheng squatted down and offered candy to Xiao Yi. "Take it. It's chocolate. I'm your brother's friend. Just call me brother." Seeing her hesitate a little, he sat down and said, "Go on, eat it." Xiao Yi politely took it with both hands and said, "Thank you, brother." Luo Cheng smiled and said, "Your sister is so cute. If I had known, I would have told my parents to have a little sister back then." The classmate added, "My dad spent the first half of his life just making money, so he got married late and had me late. He was 40 when I was born, and now he's 57. Chen Nuo replied, "That's considered having a child late." Cuckoo stood there and said, "I originally planned for you to bring Xiao Yi to my house for dinner tonight, but my dad has to work overtime. I heard the District Education Bureau is coming for an inspection in 2 weeks, and it's about staffing reform, so the dinner will have to be postponed." Luo Cheng smiled and said, "What a coincidence. I'm bored at home alone. How about we go play some games? A big shopping mall just opened in Dongshan, and there's a KFC inside. We can play to our heart's content, and then I'll treat you guys to a meal." The scene changes to an arcade, and the group walks in. Luo Cheng smiled and said, "I'm going to play the masterpiece racing. You three can play together." Before leaving, the classmate didn't forget to give a meaningful wink. Chen Nuo understood perfectly. This is true friendship between men. Cuckoo excitedly pulled Xiao Ye's hand. "Chen Nuo, shall we go play basketball shooting?" He immediately agreed. "Sure, but I'm going to the restroom for a bit." Then he said, "You take my sister to play first." So he walked into the restroom, and it seemed like someone was watching him. Over here, Xiao Dao's group had arrived, and his underlings surrounded him as he walked in. One of them asked, "Brother Dao, are you drunk?" He replied, "I am. It wasn't in vain making friends with you guys." Xiao Dao slurred his words. "I just got my cast off at the hospital this morning, and you guys immediately came to congratulate me. That's true brotherhood." An underling pointed into the distance. "Brother Dao, look who that is." He looked up and asked, "Holy shit, who's that?" It turned out he recognized Cuckoo playing games over there. Xiao Dao, his face flushed from drinking, grinned sinisterly. "Holy shit, today is truly a good day." At the same time, Chen Nuo came out. He saw the group of people surrounding his girlfriend and sister. Xiao Yi saw him and immediately called out, "Brother." Chen Nuo patted Xiao Dao on the shoulder and asked, "Brother Dao, you're out of the hospital?" As he turned around, he roared angrily, "Who the hell is so blind? Can't you see your father is?" Seeing the menacing figure behind him, he froze. Xiao Dao was stunned, his eyes wide enough to pop out, and he muttered a curse. An arrogant underling pointed at Chen Nuo and yelled, "Get lost. Brother Dao is talking to our sister-in-law. Who the hell are you? Looking for a beating?" Just then, Luo Cheng also ran over and asked, "Who is it? You want to hit my friend?" He acted righteously and said to Chen Nuo, "Chen Nuo, don't be afraid." Then he turned to the thugs and asked, "Who's causing trouble?" That underling pointed at him and continued to curse. "Fuck, I see you're itching for a fight, aren't you?" Luo Cheng taunted back defiantly. "Come on, hit me." The underling rushed forward, swinging his fist. Luo Cheng shouted, "My dad is Luo Dashin. You dare touch me? Hit me." As soon as Luo Cheng said his father's name, the thugs seemed to be crushed by the name Luo Dashin, standing frozen. Xiao Dao was sweating profusely and stammered, Your boss Luo's son?" "A misunderstanding. It's just a misunderstanding, brother. I was just having a few words with your friend. For today's matter, we'll give face to Boss Luo. Let's go, let's go." Go. Luo Qing stood there and shouted, Brother Gord, someone wants to hit me. Damn it. Are you going to do something about it? At a nearby table, 3 men were playing cards. Hearing this, the man in the middle reacted slightly. He stood up and shouted, Damn it, Qing Zi. The crowd turned to watch the commotion. Brother Gord walked over and asked, Are you okay? Luo Qing pointed at Xiao Dao and replied, A little later, and there would have been a problem. He said he wanted to hit me. The loudmouth lead underling turned away and whistled while Xiao Dao stood there trying to explain. I didn't say that. Brother Gord immediately stepped forward, grabbed Xiao Dao by the collar, and asked, Kid, you've got some nerve. His face instantly turned pale, and he begged, Big brother, a misunderstanding. It's just a misunderstanding. As soon as he finished speaking, Brother Gord landed a punch on him. Xiao Dao stood there, hit by a series of slaps, so fast he couldn't react. The other underling quickly turned and fled. He stood there, his face swollen, still trying to explain, I didn't say I wanted to hit him. Brother Gord didn't stop, continuing to slap him repeatedly. Xiao Dao said resentfully, Big brother, I was wrong. I already said I'd give face to Boss Luo. Hearing this, Brother Gord landed an even harder blow, knocking him straight onto his back. Then he stood there and cursed, Give face my ass. A punk like you is worthy of giving face to my boss. Xiao Dao held his face, trembling. Big brother, I was wrong. Spare me, please spare me. Chen Nuo stood to the side, thinking to himself, he's really ruthless. After that, Brother Gord turned to Luo Qing and asked, Qing Zi, what now? Luo Qing waved his hand and said quietly, Forget it, let it go. He kicked the cowardly group in the butt and shooed them away. After settling the matter, Brother Gord waved goodbye. All right, Qing Zi, I'm heading off. Call me if anything comes up. Luo Qing turned to look at his 2 stunned friends and said with a smile, I forgot to mention, my dad owns this arcade. Chen Nuo smiled and asked, Oh, so you're a rich kid? You look like a triad prince. Luo Qing waved his hand. What prince? I normally never bring up my dad's business, but if anyone bullies you in the future, I'll stand up for you. Chen Nuo sensed the sincerity of his new friend and smiled in thanks. Chen Nuo thought to himself, I never expected Luo Qing to be Luo Dashan's son. Luo Qing sat down and asked, Is Xiao Yizi hungry? I'll take you to KFC. Chen Nuo recalled his past life. For someone like him who grew up in Jinling, the name Luo Dashan was not unfamiliar. He used to be a sand dredger at state-owned gravel plant, but later struck it rich, becoming a businessman in the Jiangning district. Relying on his underworld connections, he built a considerable empire. It's just that for those in the underworld, sooner or later, you have to pay the price. After being targeted by a more powerful force, Luo Dashan met a tragic end in his old age. Chen Nuo silently calculated the time. The Luo family probably had another year or 2 of prosperity. Looking at his cheerful and lively friend, who was dotingly holding his sister, Chen Nuo thought to himself that someone like Luo Qing was truly humble. He disliked reading novels, treated people gently and kindly, and was fundamentally a good person. The fun ended, and that evening at Ku's apartment complex, the 3 of them stood at the door, and she called out, Dad, open the door. However, there was no answer. It was completely silent all around. Ku took out her key, wondering, That's strange, the lights in the school dorms are all off, but Dad isn't home. Where could he have gone? Chen Nuo seemed to sense that something was wrong, and spoke up to her. I need to ask you for a favor. Xiao Yizi was dozing off on his back. Chen Nuo continued, I have something to do tonight and can't leave my sister home alone. Can I leave Yizi at your place and trouble you to take care of her for a bit? Kuku asked curiously, It's so late. Where are you going? He sighed and replied, Don't ask. After handing his sister over to Kuku, he said, I'll come pick Yizi up tomorrow morning. Then he left quietly. Yizi was tired from playing and slept very soundly. Chen Nuo walked off in a certain direction. This was where Yang Xiaoli worked. It was now closing time, so Old Sun should be nearby. With a cold expression, he prepared to walk in. Suddenly, he saw a familiar car parked in front, and 4 words appeared in his mind, Jinpai architecture. Then he saw Old Sun sitting in the distance, silently smoking alone. The car door on the other side slowly opened, and a man got out. This person was Tao Weishan. The receptionist greeted him. Take care, sir. Please come again. Seeing that person, Director Sun also hurriedly stood up with his briefcase. An underling blocked him and asked, What are you doing? Tao Weishan waved his hand, signaling for him to pass. Chen Nuo stood on the side watching the 2 talk, unable to hear what they were saying. He thought to himself, I wonder what old Sun is planning to do. Director Sun handed the briefcase to Tao Weishan, saying, take this for now. But the other guy snatched it and threw the briefcase open, cursing and telling old Sun to get lost. The money from the briefcase scattered all over the ground. Then he coldly stepped on the money on the ground and cursed with a stone-cold face. Useless thing. Director Sun knelt there picking up the money, gritting his teeth. He turned and shouted, I gave it all to you. Paid it all back. Is it still not enough? But the other person had already gotten in the car and sped off. Old Sun collapsed onto the ground, looking utterly defeated. From a distance, Kuku's mother was cycling over, so tired she was out of breath. She fell off her bike and immediately ran over, calling for old Sunday. Seeing his wife, he was stunned for a moment. Director Sun picked up the money, stuffed it back into his briefcase, and then locked it. Old Sun stood up and said, Shaoli, look at the good thing you've done. He raised his hand and shouted, this is your doing. She closed her eyes and said, go on and hit me, hit me. His hand trembled, unable to bring himself to do it, and finally lowered his hand, only able to sigh. Young Shaoli grabbed Old Sun's hand and said, Old Sun, it's my fault, it's all my fault. Whatever it is, let's talk about it at home. Okay. He pushed the bike, and the two of them walked silently into the quiet night. Chin Nuo had been secretly watching from behind the whole time. He mused, Old Sun gave money to that person. It seems the situation is not what I had previously guessed. Monday morning, in front of the school gate, someone arrived holding a sign. The red sign read, Sun Shengli, pay your debts. It's the law of heaven and earth. If you don't pay your debts, heaven and earth will not tolerate it. A person with a megaphone shouted, Sun Shengli is a scoundrel who doesn't pay his debts. He's not fit to be a teacher. Students inside poked their heads out, chattering excitedly. Chin Nuo tried to squeeze through the crowd. Excuse me, please make way. Kuku stood there speechless, utterly shocked and surprised, covering her face with her hands, her expression uncomprehending. How could this be? Chin Nuo stood beside her, looking out. At this moment, Director Sun also got the news and walked out with his briefcase. He faced the person with the megaphone and asked, what do you want by doing this? Old Sun lowered his voice and said, I will pay the money. There's still 2 days left. Why are you making such a scene? He handed the briefcase in his hand to the person and continued, this is all I have right now. Take it first. Then, Director Sun shouted loudly, this is a school. Don't disrupt the school's order. Take the money and go. The person took the money and replied, Director Sun, paying one's debts is the law of heaven and earth. We don't want to do this either. Then he turned to the brothers behind him and said, brothers, let's pull out. We'll be back in 2 days. Kuku stood inside, repeatedly calling Dad. Chin Nuo looked out and thought to himself, Old Sun definitely doesn't want his daughter to see him in this pathetic state. He shouted from outside to the students inside, stop looking, it's class time. Get back to class. The students chattered among themselves, all saying harsh things. What's there to pretend? A wolf in sheep's clothing, usually so imposing. Turns out he's a scoundrel, chased to the school for debts. Who knows what kind of trouble he's caused outside? The image of a model teacher that Old Sun had spent half his life building, his own world, had collapsed. Back in the classroom, Luo Qing quietly asked Chinna, is son Kuku okay? He replied, Old Sun said he was going home to handle some things, so I'll let her go back with him. There's too much gossip now. She probably can't stay at school anymore. After that, he asked Luo Qing for help. Can you do 2 things for me? Luo Qing readily agreed. Sure, go ahead. Chin Nuo continued. Help me find out which group the debt collectors from today belong to. He speculated, even for loan sharks, they wouldn't make such a big scene. In Jiangning, your dad's people in this line of work would probably know. Help me check which faction did it, okay? Luo Qing replied, not difficult. I'll have Brother Gord make a call later. But why are you asking this? Do you want to help Old Sun? How can you help? Chin Nuo smiled and said, I'll help him pay the money. After hearing this, Luo Qing was speechless for a moment, then asked, okay, what's the second thing? He smiled and replied, help me ask the teacher for leave. Just say I'm skipping class for the reason. Then he stood up, I'm heading back first. Chin Nuo patted his friend's shoulder. Text me when you find out. Luo Qing sat there, watching him leave with a serious expression. An hour later, Chin Nuo sat thoughtfully on a motorcycle. This Luo Qing works really fast. He looked up, then slowly walked into the Guohua finance company on the 3rd floor. This is the place. Chin Nuo stood there and knocked on the door. Beside it hung a vertical sign that read Guohua Finance Company. The door slowly opened, and the man with the megaphone from the morning stood there and asked, what are you doing? He replied, looking for someone. The man frowned and asked again, who are you looking for? Chin Nuo replied coldly, you. As soon as he finished speaking, he landed a vicious kick on the other man's stomach. The force was immense, sending the man flying back into the room and crashing with a bang into a table where a group of people were sitting. They were startled and shocked. What was that? Chen Nuo followed him in, taunting, "If you have knives, grab your knives. If you have guns, grab your guns. But I'm guessing you don't have guns. Do me a favor. When you resist, try to be a little more enthusiastic. I'm in a bad mood right now and want to let off some steam." A fierce-looking man rushed out, cursing, "You bastard." He calmly raised his hand to counter. Chen Nuo's figure flashed, and he punched the man in the stomach. The punch looked weak, but it sent the man flying straight into the cabinet behind him. He casually picked up the electric kettle on the table, which was filled with freshly boiled water, and threw it at the man, cursing, "Doing this dirty business. You should take a bath and clean yourself up." The boiling water splashed onto the man, and he screamed in agony. Chen Nuo once again pulled out his familiar iron chain. "Not enthusiastic enough. Try a little harder." The remaining men immediately grabbed weapons and advanced on him, shouting, "Brothers, get him! Damn it, get him!" A few minutes later, they were all on the floor, with only him left standing. Chen Nuo grabbed one man by the hair and pulled him up, then dragged him to a chair. He let go and said, "If I'm not mistaken, you must be the leader." Chen Nuo looked at him and continued, "I know you're not the big boss. I'm going to ask you a question now. You'd better answer honestly. I hate being lied to more than anything. Whoever lies to me, I get very angry, you understand?" After that, he broke the man's little finger. The man screamed in pain, tears and snot streaming down his face. Chen Nuo continued, "That was the first question. I wasn't satisfied with your answer. Your voice was too quiet." He looked straight into the other's eyes. "Very good. Your voice is much louder now. Now, I'll ask again, what's your name?" He stammered, My name is Depong." Chen Nuo asked again, "Have you ever committed a crime?" Hearing this question, he fell silent, not knowing how to answer. Chen Nuo broke another one of his fingers, making him scream even more miserably than before. After enduring the pain, the man named Depong obediently stammered his answer. I have. I was in prison for 3 years." "For what crime?" He answered, "Intentional injury." Chen Nuo lowered his voice and praised. "Very good. See, we're starting to have an initial understanding. Okay, I'll ask again. Do you guys have a safe here?" He immediately nodded his head vigorously. Yes. Chen Nuo handed him his empty backpack and ordered, "Fill this backpack with money. If you don't fill it, I'll use parts from your body as a substitute." A moment later, a backpack full of money appeared before Chen Nuo. He picked up the backpack and sighed. As expected, extortion is still the fastest way to make money. Then he looked down at Depong and said, "Last question, where do you keep the borrower's information and loan contracts?" The man knelt down, crying and begging, "Big brother, please spare me. I can't touch that. The boss will bury me alive." As soon as Chen Nuo grabbed his hand, he immediately changed his tune, pointing and saying, I'll talk. It's in the second drawer of the file cabinet." He walked over, opened the cabinet door, and looked at the pile of documents inside. Then he flipped through the files on top to search. Finally, he stopped at one file and said, "Found it." Chen Nuo tucked the file into his jacket. Finally done, he took out a lighter and lit it, then threw it into the pile of loan files, and the documents immediately burst into flames. An underling lying on the ground managed to speak up. "Do you know who my boss is? If you dare to touch the borrower's information, you're cutting off my boss's source of income, and you're not leaving yourself any way out." Chen Nuo asked, "Who is your boss?" The person replied, "Xiao Guohua." He glanced over and asked again, "Then do you know who I am?" The bruised underling thought to himself, "All covered up like this, how the hell would anyone know who you are?" Chen Nuo stood there and ordered, "Hand over all your phones." Chen Nuo walked out, then locked the door with the iron chain. He threw the phones he had just collected back through the crack in the door. He walked down the corridor, thinking about the name he had just heard, Xiao Guohua. That evening, at the Frog KTV, Xiao Guohua walked along, thinking, who on earth was so bold today? Luo, Dashin, Xiao Manhwa, Fu Daqing. Xiao Guohua felt it wasn't any of them. They weren't in the same business as him now. There was no conflict of interest, no need to offend him like this. The KTV manager followed behind, fawning, "Boss Xiao, let me see you to your car." He replied, "No need." Xiao Guohua mused. This matter was most likely caused by some wandering criminal. Some big shot from out of town who was short on cash decided to target him. Even if it was a big shot from elsewhere, coming to Jiangning, they'd have to spit out everything they swallowed when they met him. When he received the news of the robbery, he had ordered his men to mobilize all their brothers. Even if they had to turn Jiangning upside down, they had to find that guy for him. As he thought, he quietly walked towards the waiting car and slipped inside. He placed his wallet on the seat and said to the driver, "Old way, let's go home." He was drowsy from drinking. About 10 minutes passed, and he suddenly snapped his eyes open. Xiao Guohua realized this was not the way home. He was also a man of the underworld, so he calmly took out his cigarette case and quietly lit one. He forced a smile and offered, "Brother, want a smoke?" Shen Nuo, sitting in the driver's seat, replied, "I'm driving." "Wait a moment." Xiao Guohua rolled down the window, pretending to flick the ash outside, taking the opportunity to observe his surroundings. He realized they were already in the suburbs. Then he picked up his wallet and asked, "Brother, what are you planning to do? Are you short on cash? Or is something troubling you?" He threw a stack of cash onto the front seat, adding, "Don't think it's too little. This is all I have on me. Let's consider it making a friend, helping each other out in times of need in the underworld." Xiao Guohua chuckled. "If you have any difficulties, just say the word. In this area, I have some influence. Let's not do anything too extreme. Don't you agree?" Shen Nuo looked at him through the rearview mirror and replied, "Boss Xiao speaks with great righteousness." Hearing this, his heart skipped a beat. He thought it was just a random thug robbing him, but since the person knew who he was, it meant he was being targeted. He probed, "Brother, why must it be like this? Is it not enough? You name a number, and I'll gather it and bring it to you immediately." Shen Nuo replied, "Not bad. You have the air of an underworld boss. No wonder you can make a name for yourself." He reached into his jacket pocket, thinking to himself, going up the mountain is trouble. It's definitely more bad than good. Seeing his small movement, Chen Nuo spoke up. "I advise you not to make a call." Chen Nuo threatened, "It's very remote here. Even if your men find us, it will take at least an hour. In that hour, I'll have enough time to dig a hole and bury you." Xiao Guohua quickly held out his hands and stammered, "No, it won't come to that. It won't come to that. Brother, what kind of grudge is so deep that it makes you think of such desperate measures?" He suddenly slammed on the brakes, and the car stopped by the side of the road, where an iron shovel was stuck in the ground. Chen Nuo turned around and said, "Then I'll take the liberty of having a chat with Boss Xiao." "Boss Xiao, may I have a cigarette?" Then he reached for the lighter, and while lighting his cigarette, he said, "Boss Xiao's business has been booming lately, hasn't it?" After taking a drag, Chen Nuo asked him, "I heard you're also keeping a mistress in Een Alley, who gave you a chubby baby boy last year." Stunned for a moment, he forced a tense smile. "It's all just some romantic affairs." Chen Nuo smiled and said, "If you're tired, you should rest. Don't bother with these romantic affairs anymore. Rest for a few days, spend time with your wife and children, play with your son. Wouldn't that be nice?" He replied fearfully, Yes, you're right, brother. Is a month's rest enough?" Chen Nuo interrupted. "Boss Xiao earns tens of thousands a day. A month is too great a loss. No need, 2 weeks would do. I hear Southeast Asia is quite warm now." He immediately replied obediently, "Okay, I'll have someone book the tickets tomorrow and take my family on a trip to Thailand." Chen Nuo glanced out the window. "Then let's end our talk here for today. I won't see you home. You can call a car to pick you up." The car door clicked unlocked. Xiao Guohua hurriedly got out of the car. "I won't trouble you anymore, brother. This car of mine. You can take it and use it." Watching Chen Nuo drive away, he stood there and let out a sigh of relief. He saw the shovel stuck nearby, and his heart filled with terror. Xiao Guohua stood there and cursed. Holy shit. His face was pale. If he had said one wrong word just now, this hole would have been for him. Afterward, he immediately took out his phone and called, "Hello, Old Fourth, it's me. Call back anyone who's gone out. About what happened today, stop asking around." "Yeah, I told you call them back, so just call them back. What's with all the nagging?" "That's it. Stop looking. I'll take the loss for today's matter." Xiao Guohua roared. "Also, book me tickets to Thailand. A 10-day Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand tour. I'm treating all the brothers' families, not a single one left out. The business can stop for a few days. It won't kill us. Stop everything for me. Damn it, what's that word? All right, team building, team building. Do you understand?" The scene changes to a Zinliangson convenience store. Teacher Lu was shopping, standing at the checkout counter and thinking with a smile. The card that Kid Chinua bribed me with to go to Yinbian is finally coming in handy. He was carrying a super large shopping bag. The cashier swiped the card and announced, "Sir, your card has an insufficient balance." Teacher Lu took out a bill and replied, "Yeah, I know. I'm short 6 yuan, right? I'll pay cash." The cashier replied, "You're short 504 yuan and 20 cents. Hearing this, he froze on the spot. and asked what? Teacher Lu asked the cashier. Damn it, how much money is in this card? The result was a balance of 1 yuan and 80 cents. He walked out of the supermarket on the verge of tears and cursed. Chino, have a heart. Then he went home carrying a super small shopping bag. Teacher Lu saw old son standing there. He thought to himself, it's so late. Why would old son come to a love hotel? Could he be getting a room? This old son, I wonder what he's up to. He was about to turn and leave. Forget it. I must have nothing better to do. Why meddle in other people's business? Just then, Chen Nuo walked past him. Teacher Lu turned his head and blurted out, I think I just saw Chen Nuo. Could it be that kid made me so angry I'm seeing things? The scene changes to the hotel's VIP room. Tao Weishan sat there, a cigarette in his mouth, and said with a cold smile, Sun Xingli, you're here? Have a seat. Director Sun walked in and began, Tao Weishan. He sat down on the chair and asked, you asked me here so late, what do you want? In front of them was a lavish table of food full of delicacies. Tao Weishan took out a cigarette and said politely, old son, Shengli, how many years has it been since we sat down for a meal together? Director Sun lit a lighter, lit his cigarette, and replied, it must be over 10 years since you went abroad. I didn't expect you to come back. The man named Tao continued. Actually, I came back last year. Didn't Yang Shali tell you? I came back to invest in a project and happened to have dealings with Yang Shali's company. Old son mused. What a coincidence. That's really a coincidence. Tao Weishan continued. All right. With our decades of friendship, there's no need for these roundabout words. I admit, I intentionally brought the project here and then met Xiaoli. Old son interrupted. So, you arranged everything? You set a trap and lured Xiaoli into it. He smiled and said, you're hurting my feelings by saying that. I just suggested Xiaoli make a few investments to help her earn some pocket money. Old son asked again, and then? Tao Weishan replied. Then she got very interested, so I helped her open an overseas account to invest. I didn't expect her to be so bold, investing so much money at once. Old son, the derivatives market is unpredictable. Xiaoli was really too reckless. Director Sun stood up angrily and said loudly, she dared to invest the money because you intentionally guided her. She doesn't understand the market. You first led her to make a profit, gave her a taste of success, and even helped her open an account to trade on her own. That's the derivatives market, the foreign financial derivatives market. When she got in deeper and deeper and was finally about to have her position liquidated, she realized she couldn't handle it anymore and came to beg you. And how did you save her? You gave her the company's project investment account for her to take hundreds of thousands. Tao Weishan, you set all up from a so-called investment account. How could she withdraw several hundred thousand at once? Without your signature as the general manager, how could she get the money? Now, on paper, she's the debtor. She signed for that loan herself. As soon as she got the money to cover her derivatives losses, your company suddenly demanded settlement right after the new year. What kind of company suddenly demands settlement right after the new year? Lao Tun said in a stern voice, you calculated every single step just to back her into a corner. Right? He continued, Xiaoli has an adventurous personality, but she's not that bold. If you hadn't told her you had inside information and that the investment was a sure win, would she have dared to invest so much money at once? She did it because she trusted you. Tao Weishan laughed. They all call you Sun Xingli. Don't speak without evidence. Why do you think she trusts me so much? He lit a cigarette, reminiscing. If she had gone abroad with me over 10 years ago, there wouldn't be so much trouble now. There's someone in Jinling I can't let go of. Lao Tun immediately cursed. Tao Weishan, you shameless bastard. Xiaoli is my wife now. He interrupted. You think I'm talking about Xiaoli? Hearing this, Lao Tun was stunned and paused for a moment. He stammered. What are you saying? Lao Tun sat down, his voice a little low. I don't understand what you're talking about. Tao Weishan continued. See, Lao Tun, I told you back then that you were very smart, just always half a beat slow when it comes to dealing with people. You actually understand. You just never dare to think deeper, right? Lao Tun waved his hand. Don't say any more. Don't say any more. He continued. 2 years ago, while I was still abroad, a friend sent me a photo. I couldn't forget it after that. There's a saying, blood is thicker than water. You have no choice, and I have no choice. Did you think I came back to fight you for Xiaoli? With my current status, would I be short of women? He walked up to Lao Tun. I didn't want to come back either. But a few years ago, I had a serious illness. After I recovered, the doctor told me I could no longer have children. What's the medical term for it? Teratozoospermia. Director's son shouted, Kiki is my daughter. Tao Weishan immediately retorted, your daughter? Lao Tun, take a look. Does Kiki resemble you in any way? The moment I saw Keek's photo, I knew, damn it, this is Dao Weishan's seed, no doubt about it. Lao Tun recalled the past, when he married Xiaoli, with friends and family coming to congratulate them. He was overjoyed that his wife was pregnant, listening to the baby kick in her belly every day. Xiaoli would always laugh and say, "Why are you acting like such a child?" On the day of the birth, the nurse brought the baby out and congratulated him on having a daughter. Then when Kiki started school, he would always take her on his bicycle. "Today is your birthday. Mommy has prepared your favorite food." Lao Tun, now covering his face, said chokingly, "No, it's not true. Kiki is my daughter." Dao Weishan stood there and continued, "I know you consider her and her mother your life." Xiaoli got into huge trouble, and when she saw the company was about to settle accounts, she panicked and told you. You couldn't bring yourself to do anything to her. All the money at home was spent, and you swallowed your pride, begging for help everywhere, managing to gather over 100,000, but it still wasn't enough. You could only turn to loan sharks, borrowing 150,000, barely scraping together 300,000, but it still wasn't enough. Lao Tun, last night you intercepted me, wanted to give me that money, wanted me to settle the company's matter first. But do you think I could do that? Director Sun stood up and asked, "What exactly do you want?" He replied, "I want Kiki. I want your daughter. No, I should say, I want my daughter." Lao Tun laughed loudly. "Still haven't given up? Do you want to find someone to do a DNA test?" Dao Weishan smiled and said, "Fine, then I'll let you die with a clear understanding. It's almost time now." Lao Tun. Suddenly, someone pushed the door open and entered. It was a woman. Lao Tun saw her, astonished. It turned out to be Xiaoli. She walked in holding a folder. When Xiaoli saw Lao Tun, the folder in her hand immediately fell to the ground. Dao Weishan smiled and said, "You're here. You're all here. Good. Everyone's present." Then he pulled Xiaoli over and asked, come on, you tell Lao Tun, whose daughter is Kiki really?" She screamed in panic. "Why are you doing this?" I don't know anything." Lao Tun at the side shouted loudly, "Let her go." Then he walked towards him and threw a punch, yelling, "I told you to let go of my wife." Dao Weishan rubbed his face and replied, "Fine, I'll take this punch as payment for you raising Kiki for over 10 years. I won't hold it against you." Lao Tun went to Xiaoli and asked, "Tell me, Kiki is my child, right? She is my daughter, right?" She suddenly knelt down, crying as she spoke. "Lao Tun, I've wronged you. When I married you, I was already pregnant. Then you went abroad and abandoned me. I didn't know what to do." Lao Tun interrupted. "So, you accepted me?" Xiaoli lowered her head. "Lao Tun, you are a good husband, a good father. It's me who has wronged you." Lao Tun gave a pained smile. "Fine, the scene you wanted to see, you've seen it. I will not hand Kiki over to you, Dao Weishan, so give up on that idea." After speaking, he helped his wife up, saying, "Let's go." Dao Weishan blocked them. "Wait." He sneered. "The company will settle accounts next week at the latest. If you walk out that door tonight, just be prepared to see your wife go to jail." Then he took out a black card. "There's $1 million in this card, which can solve your current predicament. Take this money, and you can start over. As for Kiki, I can take her to Country M, enroll her in the best school, and give her a life of wealth. She can even live a different life for the rest of her days." Dao Weishan placed a stack of documents on the table and continued, "As long as you agree to sign these 3 agreements, a paternity test report, a declaration of severing parental relationship, and a consent form for the transfer of guardianship." The couple stood there without a word, listening to him continue. "Lao Tun, I know you're a straightforward man and can't decide right away. I'll give you 3 days. Within these 3 days, come find me. Sign the papers with one hand and take the money with the other." The scene changes to the bathroom. Dao Weishan is laughing loudly. "It's exhilarating, even more exhilarating than forcing that guy who opposed me 4 years ago to his death, and then using money to get his daughter into bed." He laughed perversely. "Once I get Kiki to Country M, Sun Xingli, you're finished too. To pull out the weeds, you have to pull out the roots. I have to stomp you to death to be satisfied." Turning off the shower, Dao Weishan pulled open the bathroom door and stepped out. He stood there drying himself. Chen Nuo was sitting there, who knows since when. He asked in alarm, "Who are you?" Chen Nuo held a gun in his hand, pointing it at Dao Weishan. "Good evening." He quickly raised his hands, saying nervously, "My friend, if you need money, we can talk." Chen Nuo slowly stood up and replied, "No, I don't need money." He looked at him seriously. "I need justice." Dao Weishan's eyes widened, his face full of fear, and he turned to run, shouting, "Someone!" A cold glint flashed in Chen Nuo's eyes. Dao Weishan was immobilized, frozen at the door. He thought in terror, "What's happening? Why can't I move all of a sudden? And it's hard to breathe." Chen Nuo walked over to support him, saying, "You can't escape. Don't waste your energy. Then he snapped his fingers. He was released from the control, clutching his throat and coughing violently. Then he stammered, What kind of sorcery did you use? Chen Nuo took out some liquor, poured a glass, and replied, I don't know if you're unlucky or if Lao Tun is lucky. If I hadn't come to this world, I'm afraid all your calculations would have come true. Then he handed him the full glass of liquor. Here, drink it all. While he was drinking, Chen Nuo continued, Now let's talk about Lao Tun. Hearing this, he blurted out, You came for Lao Tun? That poor, useless old Tun? Chen Nuo replied coldly, Actually, I've met many villains. You're not the worst, but you're very disgusting. Lao Tun is just an ordinary person who has never thought of harming anyone. He endures being taken advantage of and just wants to live a peaceful life with his wife and child. But such an honest man, you stomp on him as if he were a cockroach, and you humiliate him. You shouldn't have done that. He frowned, glaring at Dao Weishan and cursing. Damn it. Did he dig up your ancestral grave in a past life? Seeing that look, he replied in fear, My friend, let's talk this out. I'll stop right now, and I won't touch that girl. I swear, I'll never mess with Lao Tun again. Dao Weishan took out his phone and dialed. I'll go back to Country M right now. I'll prove it to you. Then he called someone and ordered, Director Zhao, it's me. Immediately cancel the plan to settle the company's books. Yes, we're not doing it. Do it now. Then Dao Weishan smiled and continued, See, I've done it. I'll let Sun Shengli's family go. You can't kill me. I have a Country M passport. You'll be in big trouble if you kill me. Chen Nuo sneered. It's useless. I don't believe you, because I know villains like you too well. I was a villain myself. He stammered, I'm going back. At this moment, Chen Nuo's finger glowed. Dao Weishan's face was filled with terror. He felt it was hard to breathe and struggled to say, How can you kill me? I have a lot of money. Chen Nuo watched him fall onto the sofa, then approached and declared, You took a hot bath, then came out and drank such a large glass of strong liquor. When you're discovered, people will only think you died of a stroke from a cerebral hemorrhage. Looking at him lying there, Chen Nuo said coldly, When you cross the bridge of helplessness and drink Granny Meng's soup, remember one thing in your next life. Don't bully honest people. The next day, Chen Nuo walked out of the parking lot. He recognized Lao Tun's familiar bicycle. He got on the bike and thought to himself, Lao Tun, stealing my teacher's bike. It's really not, because I'm bullying an honest person like you. The scene changes to DeLay's used car garage. He was lying down, smoking, cursing inwardly. Damn it, why does my right eye keep twitching today? Seeing Chen Nuo walk in, DeLay was so scared he dropped his cigarette. A subordinate who was fixing a car immediately ran out to greet him, asking, Sir, here to look at cars? What kind of car are you looking for? Chen Nuo threw his backpack on the ground with a thud. Then he took out a cigarette. He sat there and sighed. It's still more comfortable here. The subordinate didn't recognize him and pointed at him, scolding. Damn it, where did this kid come from? You think this is your house? DeLay walked over and kicked him, scolding. Damn it, is that how you talk to Big Brother? Then he ran to Chen Nuo's side, fawning. Big Brother, oh Big Brother, what wind blew you here? Whichever car you like today, just drive it away. Chen Nuo replied, I'm not short of anything today, just borrowing your place to wait for someone. He smiled warmly. Please wait, Big Brother. I'll go make some Longjing tea for you. DeLay massaged his leg and asked, Big Brother, how's this pressure? Chen Nuo replied with enjoyment, Not bad. DeLay cursed himself inwardly. Damn it, what have I done to deserve this? I've gone from a Big Brother to a masseuse. Suddenly, Lao Tun walked by. Chen Nuo saw him and called out, Lao Tun. He stood outside and replied, Chen Nuo, why are you here? Skipping class again today? Chen Nuo pointed at DeLay and said, I'm working part-time here to earn tuition. This is the boss, Brother Lay. He's enthusiastic, generous, righteous, and has an honest and sincere character. I've even learned a few skills from him. The two liars glanced at each other. Lao Tun turned to DeLay and said, Then I'll have to trouble you. The kid is a bit mischievous, but he's not a bad kid, and he's very kind-hearted. Please teach him a thing or two. He immediately replied, He's working part-time for me. Lao Tun added, If he doesn't listen, just hit him. After hearing this, DeLay looked towards Chen Nuo, who would dare hit this god of death. Then he asked Lao Tun, Big Brother, are you here to look at cars? He replied shyly, My bike was stolen last night. It's a bit inconvenient to get around these days without a vehicle, so I came to the used market to buy a cheap one, just something to get by. Then you've come to the right person, Big Brother. You're an acquaintance of Chen Nuo. I can't make money off you. I'll just sell it at cost. Lao Tun seemed very embarrassed. How can I do that? Just sell it at the normal price. I can't just take it from you for free. After picking one out, Chen Nua kicked away the price sign and turned to ask Lao Tun, "How about this bike? The boss is having a huge sale." The purchase price was only 80. Delay understood, held up 5 fingers and said, "What, 80? 50, and it's yours." Chen Nua turned his head and hinted, "Brother Lei, weren't you going to the company to check the books this morning?" Chen Nua turned his head and introduced further, "Brother Lei also runs a financial company, specializing in some small loan services. He's a kind person and abides by the law. His business is very prosperous." The two looked at each other again, saying nothing. Delay thought to himself again, "I also do loan sharking?" He wanted to cry, but had no tears. "Big brother, are you improvising a script? My acting is poor. I can't keep up with your rhythm." Then Delay immediately played along. Yes, it's all thanks to everyone's help and my peers going easy on me. In my business, I value righteousness and trust the most. Lao Tun immediately took the initiative to say, "Can I have your phone number? I'll call you if I have a need." After director's son left, Delay turned his head and tentatively asked, "Big brother, how was my performance? Was it okay?" Chen Nua smiled and praised, "Brother Lei, I see that a person like you is destined to make a fortune in the future." Inside Delay's garage, which was also his bedroom and office, he said respectfully, "Big brother, is there anything else? Just say the word, big brother." Chen Nua opened his backpack, which was full of money. He replied in fear, "Big brother, I only deal in used cars with this much money. I don't dare to get involved in murder for hire." Chen Nua explained, "I'm not asking you to do that. Teacher's son just left. Find a way to lend him this money, 200,000. Delay, thinking he was smart. "I get it, big brother wants to set him up. You're after his house deed." Chen Nua slapped him on the head. "What are you thinking? Who wants the deed? Just find a way to lend him the money." Chen Nua instructed, "You still have to sign a contract, otherwise he won't believe it. But don't make the terms too harsh. Keep the interest rate low and write the installment plan for 15 or 8 years, whatever you want. In short, the terms must be attractive enough for him to borrow money from you. If you mess it up, I'll settle the score with you." Delay took the money and replied, "Understood. Rest assured, big brother." "Oh, big brother, this money isn't right. There's too much here." Chen Nua smiled and said, "There's 300,000 here. The extra 100,000, 60,000 of it is for the motorcycle I took from you last time, and also for your medical expenses." Looking at his bald head, Chen Nua added, "Use the rest to treat your hair. You're so young and already bald. If you treat it early, it might grow back." Delay hugged Chen Nua's thigh, moved, and said, "Big brother, you are too gentle and kind. Others only see my fierce, bald appearance. Only you can see the pain in my heart." Chen Nua scolded, "Damn it, can you not wipe your snot on me?" Then he left. Delay waved him off. "Take care. Come visit often when you're free." The subordinate asked, "Boss, who on earth is this person? You serve him like he's your ancestor." Delay turned his head and lectured, "What the hell do you know? When you find a backer, you have to hold on tight. When I was in prison back then, I used these sharp eyes to pick the right person, and that's how I got this shop after I got out. Now, if I serve this ancestor well, I might just make it big in the future." At an investment office in Vietnam, a secretary handed over a report. "Director, the investment invitation for the project from country N has been sent. Please take a look." He smiled after reading it. "The terms are very good. This can be considered this year's key project. For this quarter's investment promotion task, if we do this project well, it's half the battle won." The secretary added, "But there is one request. They said the daughter of one of their board members wants to come here to study, so they're asking us to help with her school admission. Judging by her age, she should be in high school." He replied, "This is not a difficult matter. They're investing so much money, and it can also solve future employment issues. You contact the Education Bureau, provide the investor with a list of the best schools in the district to choose from, and then you discuss it with them." The secretary immediately replied, "They've already chosen a school. They only want to go there." The director asked in surprise, "Which school?" She replied, "They said they want to go to number 8 middle school." He immediately asked, "What was this school's citywide ranking last year?" The secretary replied, "Third from the bottom." The scene changes to Luku International Airport, Jinling. A blonde foreign man is standing there. A young woman was there to pick him up. She turned her head and said to him, "Mr. Yushin, we'll take you to the hotel first." He took off his glasses and replied, "No, take me to the police station. I want to see Dao Weishan's case file as soon as possible. The head office needs the news at the earliest." Back at the hotel, Yushin immediately made a phone call to report, "It's me. I've arrived at the hotel where Dao Weishan was staying when the incident occurred, and I've also seen the police file. The person on the other end asked, "What's your judgment?" He replied, "The cause of death for minor number 16. The preliminary judgment is a normal accidental death due to a cerebral hemorrhage after bathing and drinking." The person on the other end said, "If it's normal, then wrap it up quickly. He was just an outer circle miner making money for us. Don't waste too much energy." Yixian added, "But Dao Weishan's death contains a hostility that makes me extremely uncomfortable. I request to investigate further. I need 2 types of documents. First, the credit card statements for the 6 months before the miner's death. Second, the mysterious person replied, "Fine, I can give them to you, but don't make any unusual moves. We don't want things to get more complicated when a long-planned national-level project has just begun. Dao Weishan was just the first person we sent. You must remember, we are the ones who should be hidden in the abyss. Also, the death of miner number 4 in country N is listed as a key investigation target. They need your help more over there." More than an hour later, Yixian looked at his laptop and called to report the situation. "I found a suspicious point. Before his death, Dao Weishan had frequent contact with a woman named Yang Xiaoi. She was also among the last people he met before he died. She is very beautiful and married." The person on the other end asked, "Are you suggesting this is a crime of passion?" "That woman and her husband are both ordinary people. Ordinary people are not capable of killing a miner. All right, in 3 days, if you have no other findings, you are to return. The country A side needs you." The next day, downstairs from Sun Keek's home, Chinua was riding a bicycle, with Kiki sitting behind him, her arms wrapped around his waist very naturally. Then he braked the bike, turned around, and placed his hand on Keek's head, asking with concern, "Why the sudden fever?" She replied, "The heater in my house is broken. I caught a cold last night." He helped her upstairs. Kiki turned her head and said, "My parents probably aren't home." Chinua thought to himself, ever since the debt collection incident at the school, Lao Tun has taken sick leave to avoid gossip. He must be at Brother Lei's place now, handling the loan procedures. The 2 entered the house, and Chinua felt that something was not right. He sensed someone was in the house. The 2 sat in the living room. The person inside was Yixian. Chinua raised his guard, breaking into a private residence in broad daylight. As for Kiki, because the 2 were sitting so close, her cheeks were slightly flushed. She closed her eyes, her mouth puckered slightly. Chinua reminded her, "Don't fall asleep. Where's your family's cold medicine? Take the medicine first." Kiki immediately replied, "In the drawer of my parents' dressing table." When Chinua walked in, he had already left. Chinua thought to himself, "This person has some skill." Then he pretended to look for medicine in the drawer. That person had silently appeared behind him. Yixian observed and assessed. Shoulder muscles are relaxed, completely unguarded. This is an ordinary person. Meanwhile, Chinua, while getting the medicine, sensed he's a master and a foreigner at that. So he's not an ordinary thief. A moment later, he said softly, "Found it." Then he slowly stood up and the shadow behind him vanished. Chinua walked out of the room, while Yixian was clinging to the ceiling like Spider-Man. He gently closed the door, then went to the sofa to pour water and gave the medicine to Kiki. "Here, take your medicine." Chinua sensed that he had left. He gently stroked Keek's head and said, "Go to sleep." She said, "I'm not sleepy." But her eyes could no longer stay open. After Kiki fell asleep on the sofa, he quietly entered her parents' bedroom and saw the door was ajar. He deduced, it seems he jumped in through the window. Chinua pulled open the window and quickly jumped down from the high floor. A while later, at the International Hotel, Yixian was standing in front of a whiteboard, analyzing Dao Weishan's death and the people involved. He crossed out Director Sun's name, saying, "Could it really have been an accident?" Chinua was observing quietly from outside. Yixian inadvertently turned his head to look, but there was only the wind blowing, nothing else. A while later, at Noodle Shop, Chinua sat down and called out, "Boss, 1 bowl of mixed noodles with extra meat and add a soft-boiled egg." The boss replied, "Just a moment." He sat there peeling garlic, preparing to eat his noodles. Then he smiled. "I was wondering who it was. Turns out it's Xian from the Abyss organization. Should I bury him? After all, I already buried him once in my past life." Abyss, a B-level organization in the underworld, has been established for at least 55 years. This organization has a few extraordinary individuals with remarkable abilities and has carried out countless undisclosed secret missions. Some notable figures are a doctor who looks like a crazy pervert, a hunter whose appearance matches his name and specializes in hunting prey, and a blonde man named Yixian. Among them, the strongest is their leader, nicknamed the captain, a Viscount-level esper. In addition, there's a type of person in the organization called miners, who are responsible for moving through the secular world, building social networks to make money for the organization. Dao Weishan was one of them. In the original timeline, Chen Nuo was punished by Abyss in 2004, which is 3 years from now. In a fit of rage, he wiped out the entire Abyss organization. From then on, the name Yin Luo became famous throughout the underworld. This time, the Abyss organization has once again provoked the reincarnated Chen Yin Luo. Back in the present, Chen Nuo was considering eliminating Yixian, but it seemed inappropriate. If something happened to Yixian, Lao Tun's family would definitely be implicated. As for destroying the Abyss organization again, he muttered, to step into the underworld again, I'm tired of it. In this life, I just want to live a lazy life of pleasure and indulgence. If others don't mess with me, I won't mess with them. Since Lao Tun's name has been crossed off, then Yixian, consider yourself lucky. The next morning, at school, Luo Qing threw the ball out, calling Chen Nuo. He quickly caught it. A man in a green jersey ran up to block him, introducing himself with a smug smile. I'm Zhou Wang. No one can break my dream shuffle. Chen Nuo jumped up for a shot, not forgetting to give him 2 words, you wish. A beautiful 3-pointer. Off the court, the female fans went wild for him, cheering nonstop. Chen Nuo, invincible heartthrob, so handsome. Cuckoo stood there, blushing without a word, her heart pounding at that moment. The boy she had rejected last year now made her heart flutter, and she thought he was so cool. The game ended, and Chen Nuo walked towards Cuckoo. She held a water bottle in her hand, handing him a pre-poured cup of water, which was goji berry water. Holding the cup, Chen Nuo thought to himself, I'm in the prime of my youth, and I'm already starting the middle-aged life of a thermos filled with goji berries. Cuckoo said, my dad says you shouldn't drink cold water after exercising, or you'll regret it when you get old and have stomach problems. She blushed and added, my dad also said, drinking goji berries is good for digestion. Just then, someone called his name from a distance, making him turn his head to look. Over there was a group of thugs holding steel pipes, baseball bats, and even iron chains. A song played over the school's PA system. Oh, the storms of life, revealing heroic spirit, climbing high to look far. Admire by thousands. The guy glared at Chen Nuo and said, pretty arrogant, huh? I've had my eye on you for a while. Chen Nuo wondered, who are you? The lackeys answered, our school's one and only big brother, Haonan Zhang Linsheng, nicknamed the top dog of Causeway Bay. Chen Haonan. Chen Nuo raised both hands, feigning, so it's brother Haonan. I've admired you for a long time. But in his eyes, this guy was just a delusional teenager. Zhang Linsheng laughed and said, Chen Nuo, for today's fight, not even God can save you. I'm telling you. Just then, a familiar figure ran over and threw her arms around him. The beautiful Li Yingxian looked up at him and said, I finally found you. Thank you, Lord Guan. On the side, Zhang Linsheng was so scared he dropped his iron chain, cursing inwardly. Damn it, another campus bell is about to be ruined. Chen Nuo was stunned, thinking to himself, damn it, why is this firefly here? Meanwhile, Cuckoo was also dumbfounded, thinking, am I being cheated on? Chen Nuo was getting anxious. Damn it, where did this long-legged girl come from? What do I do in this situation? A plan flashed through his mind. Tell her, I have a twin brother? Or shout for Geki to save me? Or yell that I'm being harassed? None of them would work. Too humiliating. He looked towards Zhang Linsheng with a sly grin. I get it, brother Haonan. I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you to suffer a little. He pushed Li Yingxian away, then glared fiercely ahead and started cursing. So what if you're a senior? Does being a senior mean you can act like a gangster? You think I'm scared of a gangster? As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed forward. Today, I'll take away your dignity and your right to speak and let you know that what goes around comes around. Zhang Linsheng didn't have time to react. His lower body was hit squarely by a knee. He was immediately knocked to the ground, screaming in pain. The female spectators off the court were still watching intently. Chen Nuo squatted down and said in his ear, let me take you to the hospital where you might not be able to keep your family jewels. Zhang Linsheng's face turned pale and he shouted, quick, take me to the hospital. Damn it, I'm really hurt. He quickly carried him on his back and left, ignoring the 2 beauties behind him who were chasing and calling for Chen Nuo. The lackeys stood there, still not understanding what had happened, asking each other in confusion. Wasn't our big brother taken down in a second and then carried away? I saw it too. That bastard Chen Nuo is ruthless. At the school gate, the 2 girls lost track of Chen Nuo. One looked left, calling for Chen Nuo. The other looked right, calling for Appa. Li Yingxian stood there shouting, "Appa, where did you run off to?" Suddenly, a hand appeared from behind, covering her mouth and grabbing her, preventing her from screaming. Chen Nuo turned Li Yingxian around, gestured for her to be quiet, and said, "It's me." As for Zhang Linsheng, he was lying in a nearby trash can. He let go of his hand, about to ask, "Why are you?" Li Yingxian immediately spread her arms and ran to hug him. Shouting Appa, Chen Nuo put his hand on her forehead, pushed her away, and ordered, "Stand still." He said to Li Yingxian, "Stop with the Appa. You've caused me trouble. First things first. How did you find me?" Li Yingxian snapped her fingers, winked playfully, and replied, "I remembered the Chinese characters on your jacket, so I asked my mom to let me transfer to this school." She recalled, "I was doing the enrollment paperwork in the principal's office, and then I heard a commotion on the sports field and saw you." Chen Nuo held his head. "That actually worked, but I can't believe your mom agreed to let you transfer." He turned his head and asked, "You don't want to cause me trouble, right? So, I'm going to set some rules. Can you follow them?" Li Yingxian obediently said, "I'll listen to whatever Appa says." Chen Nuo began to state his 3 rules. Good. First, you absolutely cannot reveal that I saved your family and country in. Li Yingxian thought to herself, "Doesn't that mean I'm the only one by the superhero's side who knows his true identity?" Second, we need to get our story straight about how we met. Third, when other people are around, I won't speak the language of country in, so you have to learn Mandarin. That's all I can think of for now. I'll contact you later. After hearing this, Li Yingxian followed him and asked, "Appa, are you leaving?" Chen Nuo grunted in agreement, thinking to himself, "There's still another pursuer. I can't just ignore her." Meanwhile, Cuckoo was sitting there, recalling the scene of the strange girl hugging Chen Nuo, sobbing. Her mind was filled with blame for Chen Nuo. "How could you do this to me?" A hand appeared, offering Cuckoo a tissue. Chen Nuo stood there and asked, "What are you crying about?" She snatched the tissue and blamed him. "Why did she hug you like that?" Chen Nuo pretended to be deep in thought. When a girl corners you with a question, it's best not to answer, because at that moment, any answer you give is wrong. You have to break out of that mindset and regain the initiative. The two began a rapid-fire conversation. "Are you crying because of that? Do you know her?" "I guess you could say that." "How do you two know each other?" Chen Nuo asked. "When I ran out, did you see anyone else?" Cuckoo replied, "No. I was just focused on chasing you two." Then she slowly stood up. Cuckoo turned her head and asked, "Where's that girl? Didn't she chase after you two? Did you see her? She was running even faster than me." He feigned innocence. "I didn't see her. She ran out too." She kept pressing him relentlessly. "Stop asking me questions. What is your relationship with that girl?" Chen Nu was in a tough spot. This girl is too straightforward. She's not falling for any tricks. Just then, Teacher Lu appeared, calling out, "Chen Nuo, Cuckoo, I've found you too. Are you two okay? Come with me quickly. Principal Fong is very worried." Over here, Zhang Linxing's 3 lackeys were being scolded harshly. "What you did was very dangerous. Do you want to go down the path of breaking the law? You're so young and already talking about fighting and killing. What's next, carrying guns and knives when you're out in the world?" Teacher Lu turned and said, "Principal Fong, I've found them." Principal Fong saw Chen Nuo and suddenly remembered, thinking to himself, "It's this kid again. I still haven't forgotten about the incident in Yanbian." He then turned and questioned him. "What just happened?" Chen Nuo replied, "They wanted to beat me up. I couldn't fight back, so I ran." The principal immediately pressed, "Then why didn't they pick on someone else? Why you? Birds of a feather flock together. It'd be strange if you didn't have conflicts." Chen Nuo retorted, "Principal Fong, by that logic, I should just let myself be bullied and take a few punches to be in the right." The principal roared, "Is that how you talk to the principal? Do you want the school to call your parents?" Chen Nuo turned to leave. "No need to trouble the school. I'll go home and call them right now." Principal Fong pointed at him and continued to scold, "You undisciplined, lawless brat. I don't believe your parents can't control you." Teacher Lu whispered in his ear, "Principal Fong, Chen Nuo's parents are divorced. His father is in America, and his mother is in prison." Kuka followed behind, thinking, "He's just leaving like that? I haven't even finished asking my questions." Chen Nuo just walked away, praising himself inwardly. "I'm so damn smart." That evening, at Sun Kuku's house, Old Sun turned his head and asked, "Chen Nuo, I didn't call you over for anything in particular. I heard a transfer student from Country M came to our school. Do you two know her?" Looking at Ku's expression, Chen Nuo guessed. Her eyes are all swollen. She must have had a good cry when she got home. Pressed by old son, he turned and replied, "It's quite a coincidence, actually. 2 days ago, I was learning to fix cars at Brother Lay's shop, and that girl's car happened to break down nearby. So I helped her fix it." Old son was suspicious. A foreign girl, not very old, out on her own? Chen Nuo replied, "Of course not. She was with an adult." But they weren't fluent in the language, so they couldn't speak clearly. His father-in-law nitpicked, "Not fluent, and she was that enthusiastic towards you after just one meeting?" Chen Nuo went along with it, posturing, "It's probably because I'm handsome." Old son looked at him, feeling a bit of approval. This kid Chen Nuo is indeed quite handsome. Cook has said, "That girl from Country M is quite pretty, and they're about the same age, so it's normal for them to be attracted to each other." Then he chuckled, thinking to himself, "Let them get to know each other. If dry wood meets a raging fire, it'll save my own cabbage from being ruined." With that settled, he looked at Chen Nuo and said, "All right, if there's nothing else, you can go home." Cook quickly said, "Dad, I'll walk him out." The two walked down the stairs without a word. When they reached the bottom, Chen Nuo turned his head and said, "All right, you should go back up." Cuckoo took the initiative to rush forward and hug Chen Nuo, her reason being, "I haven't hugged you like she did yet." The two looked at each other, very close, and Cuckoo blushed a little. What an interesting teenage romance. After the hug, Cuckoo shyly turned and ran upstairs, not forgetting to say she'd see him tomorrow. Chen Nuo stood there, a little smug, thinking to himself, "A little chubby is actually nice." The scene changes to a small alley near the school, where there's a large trash can. Zhang Linsheng had now woken up, holding his dizzy head and asking himself, "Who am I? Where am I? What did I do?" He remembered, "That's right, I'm Brother Hao Nan. Chen Nuo, you and I can't live under the same sky." While he was dazed, a hand swung out, slap. It hit Linsheng right in the face, making him see stars. It turned out to be his father, who was pointing at his face and scolding. "You bastard, you caused trouble and now you don't dare to come home. Is that it?" The principal came all the way to our house, he said as he dragged Linsheng away. "Let's see if I don't beat you to death today." Linsheng cursed inwardly. "Chen Nuo, the old score between us isn't settled, and now there's a new grudge. This slap from my old man, I'm counting on your head too." The next day, in the classroom, Teacher Wu, the homeroom teacher and head of the grade subject department, was introducing a new student. This is Li Yingxian, who transferred from Country E. She will be studying at our school for the time being and will temporarily join our class. Yingxian bowed her head and greeted, "Hello everyone, I'm Li Yingxian. It's a pleasure to be studying with you all." Teacher Wu looked around, found a spot for her, and said, "Li Yingxian, you can sit in the last row, in the empty seat next to Chen Nuo." Hearing this, Cuckoo immediately stood up and suggested, "Teacher, the new student is a foreigner. Her Chinese might not be very good. Sitting in the back of the class might make it hard for her to keep up with the lessons, and she won't be able to see the blackboard clearly." Luo Qing turned back and said to Chen Nuo, "See, the smokeless war has already begun, brother. After you succeed, you'd better thank me properly." With that, he stood up. "Teacher, let the new student have my seat. I'll move back one desk and sit with Chen Nuo." The teacher agreed after hearing this. "That works too. Let's do that." As soon as Yingxian sat down, the person next to her turned to chat. "Hi, I'm..." Before the guy could finish his sentence, she immediately raised her hand and shushed him, signaling for silence. Then, she opened her pencil case, which had a picture of Guan Yu taped inside. Yingxian immediately clasped her hands and smiled. "Thank you, Lord Guan, for your blessing." The other guy turned back and asked the two, "Did you guys see that?" Luo Qing smiled and said, "We should respect the religious beliefs of our foreign classmate." As for Chen Nuo, he could only hold his head. At lunchtime, in the cafeteria, Chen Nuo was eating alone, muttering to himself, "This food really has no meat at all." Just then, Coco walked over with her food tray, handed him a bag, and said, "Eat this 3 delicacy buns. You should eat less of the cafeteria food. I heard from my dad that even the rice is old and not fragrant at all." Chen Nuo took a bun, took a bite, and praised, "This is delicious." From the opposite side, her best friend's voice called out, "Cuckoo, over here." Just as Cuckoo stood up, Yingxian walked over. "Appa, so you're here." The slightly chubby best friend waved at Cuckoo. "We're sitting here." Yingxian, wearing a sexy crop top, sat down. and asked, Appa, what delicious thing are you eating? He replied coldly, buns. Yingxian turned and whined, I want some too. Then she opened her mouth, signaling for Chinua to feed her. He felt an electric shock from behind him. It was Kuku's gaze. Yingxian leaned in closer, pleading, Appa, just one bite, don't be so stingy. Seeing no reaction from Chinua, she leaned in even closer, begging nonstop, come on, please. On the other side, Kuku was trembling with anger. He was caught in a difficult situation, wondering what to do. Just then, a shout of Chinua made him sigh in relief, as if he had been saved. The person who walked in was Lin Sheng, his hair shaved bald by his father, roaring angrily. Chinua, don't even think about running today. Chinua sat still, turned his head, and threw his chopsticks toward the door. Lin Sheng stepped forward threateningly. I won't let you. He didn't notice the chopsticks at his feet and was about to step on them. Before he could finish his sentence, he was startled. His front foot stepped on the chopsticks, and he slipped forward, immediately shouting, Mommy. Chinua grinned slyly. Looks like a double-banger firecracker. Then he walked closer and asked with concern, Classmate, are you hurt again? Lin Sheng's face was pale. No, I'm not. Chinua needed a way out. So he leaned in close and said, No, you are. And so he took Lin Sheng's arm and then swept him up into his arms. Classmate Lin Sheng, don't be afraid. I'll take you to the infirmary. Lin Sheng's heart shattered. In the underworld, face is the most important thing. I've become a laughingstock again. Is my life of ruling the streets really over? At the same time, in a sea area of country, a small blue boat was floating on the water. A Xian stood on the boat, reporting over the phone. The body of miner number 4 has been found. Zai. He added, I know, my investigation has made some progress. I will send the investigation results back as soon as possible. No, there's no need for revenge. He's just a miner. But I think we still need to take action. A Xian threw his cigarette, but into the sea, and replied, We need to send a signal. Dare to touch our people, and you will pay the price. He put on his sunglasses, looked at the body that had just been recovered, and smiled, just a regular person. Meanwhile, Chinua was walking and laughing to himself. Old son, it's not that I want to skip class, but the gunpowder-filled atmosphere in that classroom is no place for a human being. I'm craving some pan-fried buns. I'll go for a walk. He stopped in front of the Xiangyang residential area. Chinua froze, thinking to himself, there's trouble. Looking at Lay's used car shop, Chinua knew someone had come to cause trouble. He crossed the street, handed the uncle selling buns a cigarette, and asked, Sir, where did the owner of this car shop go? The uncle replied, If you're here to pick up a car, don't wait. He was taken away early this morning. I heard it was Li Qingshan's men. If you fall into his hands, it's hard to come back. Chinua coldly muttered the name Li Qingshan. In a resort in Nanchang, a man was hung up by a rope, his face submerged in water. Above, another man was sitting and drinking tea, wearing a jade ring. This person was Li Qingshan. He said to his underling, asked him if he's thought it through. Another underling was pulling the rope to lift the man up. As soon as he was pulled out of the water, Delay said, Master Shan, what you're doing is against the rules. The underling turned to report. Big brother, he said. Li Qingshan replied, I heard him. If he hasn't thought it through, then let him soak some more. Delay quickly shouted, Master Li, no more soaking. Please be merciful. I don't dare to take that shop anymore. But you have to give me a way to live. My whole family, young and old, still needs to eat. He raised his voice. What right do you have to bargain with me? That big brother you knew in prison is back in again, sentenced to 25 years, and his crew has all scattered. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy for me to touch your shop. Li Qingshan and his trusted man looked outside. Just then, someone fought their way in from the door, throwing several underlings inside. Chinua stood there wearing his familiar helmet and asked, Oh, having so much fun? The underling holding the rope was startled and let go, and Delay fell into the water with a splash, his hands and feet still tied. Li Qingshan turned and asked, Who is it? It's been many years since anyone dared to play hardball with me. Chinua walked in coldly. You don't have insurance either. So let's cut the crap and talk after we fight. He remained calm, drinking his tea, and ordered his subordinate, get him. Relying on their numbers, they immediately rushed forward. Before they could even touch Chinua, they were sent flying with a single punch. One underling fell back onto the railing, almost falling into the water. As soon as he fell, several more from above were about to follow. At this point, Li Qingshan stood up, took a small step back, and said, My friend, there's no need for all this fighting. Whatever it is, I think we could talk it over. Seeing Chun Nuo fighting off everyone, a hint of fear flashed across his face. Chun Nuo landed a powerful kick on him, then stood there and replied, "No, I don't want to talk." Then he shouted, "Brother Lei, hang in there. I'm here to get you out." Back at the shop, DeLay spoke up. "If you hadn't saved me today, I'd be dead for sure." Chin Nuo asked, "Your big brother's in prison. His leaderless crew has scattered. What are you going to do when Li Qingshan comes knocking?" "I can't be your bodyguard forever," he replied. "I also want to get the brothers back together, but I don't have enough clout. I'm short on cash." DeLay, with his bruised face, continued, "Supporting this group of people costs several $100,000 a year, and you can't just feed them for nothing. They need work. We can't just be fighting all day. This little business of mine can't support so many people." Chin Nuo gestured for him to continue. "I think continuing to buy and sell stolen cars is not a long-term solution. With this hanging over my head, if I get investigated one day, I might end up back in prison. So this year, I want to try to become a dealer for electric vehicles." After hearing this, Chun Nuo smiled to himself. The new century is in 2 years. The market for electric vehicles is getting bigger and bigger. It seems this brother Lei isn't brainless. He knows how to plan for the future. Then he said to him, "I'll give you 500,000. Can you get the business going again?" DeLay said joyfully, "Yes. I'll add my own savings and we can scrape together 700,000, enough to take over the storefront next door and set up a dealership. I can also bring back all of my big brother's old crew. With this, we'll be fine. Although we can't fight Li Qingshan, if he wants to mess with me, he'll have to think twice." Chin Nuo decided, "I'll give you the money tomorrow. It's settled." He also became excited. "From now on, I'll follow you. You're the boss of this business." Chin Nuo waved his hand. "No, this money isn't an investment. It's just a loan. Pay me back when you have the money." He turned around gratefully. "Big brother, you're like my second parents. I Delay am truly impressed." Chin Nuo asked, "You're not borrowing it anymore?" His voice echoed throughout the residential area. "Big brother, I'll borrow it." The scene shifts to the school gate. Yingxian was about to get in her car when a male student walked up, holding a letter, and said to her, "Li Yingxian, we were lab partners in biology class today. Do you remember? I wrote you a letter." She turned around and asked bluntly, "You like me, don't you?" Without waiting for the boy to answer, she put one foot on the car, then tore up the letter right in front of him, throwing the pieces on the ground, and said with an arrogant expression, "But I don't like you." Luo Qing, who was standing nearby, witnessed the whole thing and said to Cuckoo, "Today, another heart was broken in this world." He turned to encourage son Cuckoo. "You have to keep trying." She replied, "What doesn't being popular have to do with me? Besides, isn't she trying to cling to Chin Nuo? But she doesn't even know where Chin Nuo is right now." She got on her bike, winking confidently. "She doesn't know, but I do." The scene shifts to the front of DeLay's shop. The two had just stepped out the door when Cuckoo rode up on her bike, calling out, "Chin Nuo." He saw her and asked, "Cuckoo, why are you here?" She replied, out of breath, "I heard from my dad that you found a part-time job, so I guess you skipped school to come here." Seeing her flushed face and how she was gasping for air, Chun Nuo felt a pang of heartache. It takes an hour to ride a bike here from Jiangning, and the early spring weather was still a bit chilly. He immediately turned around and said, "Brother Lei, find me a thick jacket." DeLay smiled and replied, "Coming right up." Then he quickly took Cuckoo's hand, brought it to his mouth to warm it with his breath, and asked with concern, "Are you cold?" Cuckoo's face turned red, and she replied shyly, "No, not cold." Seeing someone come out, she quickly pulled her hand back. DeLay brought out a brand new down jacket. Zegna brand, never worn. This one has a thick cotton lining, and it's windproof. He hesitated for a moment. This pretty little lady, Chin Nuo immediately introduced her. "She's Cuckoo, old son's daughter." Hearing about director's son, DeLay thought to himself, "Such a little beauty. No wonder Chin Nuo helped old son, so he has his eyes on his daughter." Then he gently put the jacket on Cuckoo. "Here, let me put this on for you." She was a little shy because of the stranger. DeLay understood, scratched his head, and said, "I have something urgent to do. I'll be leaving first." Chin Nuo gently pinched Cuckoo's cheek, then got on the bike and said to her, "I'll give you a ride back." The two of them on the blue bicycle. The atmosphere was so warm. She gently placed her hand on his waist as a gentle melody played. "Maybe I can forget the whole world, but I don't want to lose news of you." The scene shifts to Hansheng, Li Yingshuan's home. A white car was parked in front of the door. A woman got out of the car. It was Mrs. Li, full name Jiang Yingzi. As soon as the butler saw her, He immediately stood up straight and greeted Madam. Ingzi slowly pushed the door open, then looked inside and sighed in relief. I'm home. Standing in the grand hall, Jiang Ingzi thought to herself, although I've won back my husband's company, managing it well is still a difficult task. Now I need to hide my womanly weakness and become stronger. From behind, a Xian appeared, calling Mrs. Jiang Ingzi. She immediately turned and asked, "Who?" He began to introduce himself. "You can call me a game. My purpose for coming here today is very simple. I just want to ask you a few questions." Mrs. Li was a little tense, but she still replied firmly, "I don't care who you are. Get out of my house immediately, or I'll call the police." He took out a syringe and sneered. "It seems you don't intend to cooperate." Then he threatened, "But I have my ways to make you give me the information I want. My apologies. My next actions might be offensive to you." It turned out he had an accomplice. A girl in black appeared behind Jiang Ingzi, suddenly grabbing her and covering her mouth. "Don't worry, we'll be very quick." An hour later, Mrs. Li slowly opened her eyes. A Xian sat there and said, "A lone teenager saved her entire family, and her daughter transferred to that kid's school." As for Sun Xingli, in the social network of Mina number 11, Tao Weishan, coincidentally, he is a teacher at this very school. He recalled the day he searched old Sun's house and had met Chen Nua. "Perhaps I already know who that teenager is." Then he turned and ordered the person in black, "We're leaving immediately." She asked, "What should we do with her?" A Xian replied, "Before the new miner arrives, keep her for now. She can help us manage the assets He Jingzai left behind. Do it cleanly. I don't want anyone to know we've been inside her memories." Meanwhile, Chen Nua was leisurely taking Yi Zi for a walk. The little girl turned her head and asked him, "Do I count as your puppy?" While Chen Nua was still trying to understand what his sister was asking, Yi Zi continued, "Boys who walk puppies can win over girls. You walked me through 10 streets today, and 53 girls have already asked for your phone number." Chen Nua laughed and asked, "Where did you learn such twisted logic?" The little girl turned her face away and replied, "My friend told me. I have 8 boyfriends in kindergarten. I'm that amazing." Hearing this, he was startled and thought to himself, "It seems I need to take a trip to the kindergarten and have a talk with the principal about family values." While he was lost in thought, Ing Xian waved from a distance, calling out, "Appa?" Then she ran over and asked, "Appa, is this your sister? I heard from my friends that you have a super cute little sister." Chen Nua looked down at Yi Zi, who was hiding behind him, and said, "Don't be afraid. This is my friend." The girl bent down and introduced herself. "Hi, my name is Li Yingxian. I'm your brother's future wife. Can I play with you?" The little girl peeked out and said, "My name is Chen Xiaoyi." What followed was an incredibly naive conversation. One said, "I'm 18 this year, born in the year of the ox, and I believe in Lord Guan." The other said, "I'm almost 5 this year, born in the year of the rat, and I believe in Guanyin Bodhisattva." Ing Xian pointed at Chen Nua and continued, "I call him Appa. He's our head of household." He could only stand there, face-palming, thinking, "I really can't let kids watch post-New Year's gala skits these days. Let's go upstairs quickly." The light in the Chen siblings' room turned on. Somehow, the 3 of them ended up eating noodles together. Ing Xian picked up some food for Yi Zi. "This is for me to you." Yi Zi smiled and picked some up in return. "Then this is from Xiao Yi to you." It was hard to understand the point of this back-and-forth food exchange. The girl looked very excited. "Wow, a soft-boiled egg of love from my little sister. What do I do? What do I do? This is going to be the most delicious thing I've ever eaten." Then she secretly glanced at Chen Nua. Ing Xian boasted, "That's right, Appa. You told me to practice my pronunciation before, and I only dared to come see you after I finished practicing." Chen Nua replied, "That fast? Then let me hear it." The girl confidently clenched her fists and said, "I skipped eating and sleeping to learn this, you know?" Then Ing Xian began to perform. "Lunai zhao nanai my liulian yonai." But even 5-year-old Yi Zi could tell, "I think you're saying it wrong." Ing Xian was startled. "How is it wrong? I studied so hard." Chen Nua patted his sister's head and said, "Yi Zi, tell her the correct way." The little girl innocently repeated what she had learned. "Grandma Lu drinks cow's milk, buys durian. Look for Grandma Nyo." Ing Xian stood up and asked, "Wait, is that how you all say it?" Xiao Yi replied, "That's how my brother taught me." Chen Nua added, "I'm not tricking you. All kids say it like that." Then he turned to his sister, Yi Zi. "Recite another one for her." The little girl excitedly recited, "The carrying pole is long. The bench is wide. The carrying pole is not as wide as the bench. The bench is not as long as the carrying pole." He kept saying, "Shao Yi, keep going." Meanwhile, Yingxian could only cry out, "Lord Guan, save me." A while later, playtime was finally over. Yingxian went downstairs. The driver opened the car door. "Miss, please get in." Chen Nuo stood there, smiled, and instructed, "Remember, don't come looking for me until you've finished practicing." He looked up as the car slowly drove away, muttering, "I should be able to get some peace and quiet for a while this time." Suddenly, he sensed something unusual. In the distance, someone was watching him with binoculars. The person reported the situation. Outer reporting, Li Yingxian has left. The target has gone upstairs. Nothing unusual. The other side replied. Outer, continue observation. Ignore Li Yingxian for now. Our target is this young man. A black car was driving on the road. A female voice asked, "Are you sure this person named Chen Nuo is the same teenager who appeared in Country Inn?" The woman in the back seat asked again, "Is there a chance we're mistaken?" Xian replied, "My judgment is not wrong. Get ready. Our investigation tonight is being upgraded to a kill mission. Regardless of his purpose or whether he's hostile to the organization, we'll capture him first and talk later. We'll get out of him one way or another." The girl behind agreed, "Understood. Doctor is at the back door. Leopard is at the 6 o'clock position on the street. Do we move now?" Xian assigned to roles. Outer is on sniper duty. We'll handle the frontal assault. He continued, "Tell Doctor and Leopard to get ready and wait for my command, in case the target tries to escape. We move in 5 minutes. She spoke to Outer through the communicator. "Move in 5 minutes. Get your gun ready." But there was no response from the other side, only the crackle of static. Then, Chen Nuo's voice came through, "My apologies." He stood there, his foot on the lookout, and continued, "The Outer you're talking about, I'm afraid he can't talk to you right now." Chen Nuo provoked them. "You all should hurry over. I don't have much time. I still have to go home and do the dishes." Outer, lying on the ground, said defiantly, "You're dead today. You've messed with the abyss." Hearing that, he kicked the man in the chest. "If you're weak, don't try to act tough. Got it?" Not long after, the rooftop door clicked open, and 3 people from the abyss appeared. Xian spoke up, "Let him go." Chen Nuo replied firmly, "I won't." "What are you going to do about it?" He raised his hand and signaled, "Leopard, go get that little girl." On the floor above Chen Nuo's apartment, a black man who had long been in position received the order. And like a gecko, he clung to the wall and climbed down. Downstairs, Yi Zi was watching TV, completely unaware. Chen Nuo tensed up. "Are you threatening me?" You've made a wrong decision." As he finished speaking, he stomped hard on Outer, who was on the ground. Seeing his pained expression, Chen Nuo smiled. First blood. Xian, facing a tough opponent, could only stand there in shock. Then he yelled into his radio, ordering, "Leopard, move, kill that girl." Chen Nuo stretched out his hand and began to use his special ability. He aimed his hand towards Leopard, who was on the wall of his building. The man was completely immobilized, unable to move. Then Chen Nuo pulled him over, grabbed his neck, and with a crack, double kill. Xian felt a flicker of fear, thinking to himself, from over 20 meters away, he caught Leopard in one move. What kind of ability is this? He shouted, "Damn it, he's a controller. Jam him." The girl beside him received the order and immediately used sound waves for a mental attack, making him a little dizzy. A flash of anger appeared in Chen Nuo's eyes, then controlled her, forcing her to her knees as fresh blood trickled from her eyes. He stood there and sneered, "Triple kill." Xian charged forward with a knife. "Die?" Chen Nuo controlled him, but walked past him, saying, "Don't be hasty, you're the last one." On the other side, Doctor threw a scalpel, but luckily he tilted his head and dodged it. Then he pretended to be intimidating. "Doctor, long time no see." Doctor continued his attack, asking, "You know me?" He casually held out 2 fingers, controlling the scalpel in Doctor's hand, then used his ability to attack his hand, making him scream in pain. "My hand." Chen Nuo slowly advanced towards Doctor. Another scalpel came from behind, but he just leaned slightly to catch it, smiling. "Controlling knives, I already knew how to do that in my past life." Then he skillfully spun the scalpel in his hand, and then plunged it straight into Doctor's throat. Quadra kill. Chen Nuo stood up and looked at Xian. "Now it's your turn." He sensed the danger, immediately threw a hidden weapon to create a distraction, and turned to flee. Xian jumped onto the rooftop railing, preparing to leap off, thinking in terror, "My God, what kind of monster have I run into?" At that moment, Chin Nua was already behind him, asking, "Trying to run?" As soon as he turned his head, Chin Nua grabbed him by the neck, then snapped it, completing the five-man sweep. Pinnacle. A while later, Chin Nua loaded the 5 bodies into a car and drove off to an unknown location. He took out his phone and dialed a number. A voice came from the other end. A game, calling so soon, it seems the operation went smoothly. Chin Nua smiled and replied, "Captain, I'm sorry, your 5 subordinates, including a game, are all dead." After pushing the car into the sea, he continued, "If it's convenient, send someone to pick up the bodies of these 5 subordinates of yours, and remember to clean up properly." He didn't forget to threaten, "Then tell your people to take the bodies and get lost, somewhere in the Virgin Islands." The captain asked in shock, "Who are you?" The remaining eye of the one-eyed captain glinted upon hearing Chin Nua's code name, Yinluo. Returning home, Chin Nua was back and carried Xiao Yi to bed. He thought to himself, the captain has lost an elite team. He probably won't dare to act rashly for a while. But to be safe, I still need to secretly protect Xiao Yi for the next few days. Afterward, Chin Nua took a shower. The water flowing over the wound on his back caused him some pain. Chin Nua told himself, "I'm still far from my peak. I'm already getting backlash from my powers just by dealing with these small fries. But my recovery speed is faster than expected. I wonder how much I've recovered now." He smiled. "Whatever, my power was never meant to be in the calculation system they set up. I'm more like a BUG. It was like that in my past life." 2 days later, during the lunch break, seeing Chin Nua dozing off at his desk, Yingxian ran down and said, "Appa." She happily took out a food container. "Appa, ginseng chicken soup. Hurry up and drink it." Chin Nua said coldly, "I don't want it." Yingxian was still very persistent, sitting beside him and scooping up a spoonful, saying, "Appa, just one bite. My mom said you should drink chicken soup when you have a cold." She then asked, "Appa, what do you want to eat tonight? Should I buy you seafood tofu soup?" Chin Nua smiled. "At a portion of crab sticks, I'm suddenly craving it." "All right, and a portion of cold noodles." The bespectacled friend upstairs saw the girl of his dreams being so attentive to someone else and was so angry he cursed inwardly. "Chin Nua, you shameless bastard. You think you can do whatever you want just because you're handsome? So arrogant. That girl from country, you should hurry up and beat him. She can't be his errand girl." But contrary to his expectations, Yingxian stood up, smiled warmly, and obediently replied, "Yes, Appa, I'll go prepare it right away." He ate and thought it didn't taste too bad. Kuka came down and handed Chin Nua a bag. "Hurry and put this on. I kept hearing you cough during class. It's so cold. You're sick again? You need to dress warmly." Chin Nua took the sweater out of the bag, held it up, and asked, "Kuku, you took old son's sweater? Does he know?" She replied, "My dad is sleeping at home. He won't notice one missing sweater. Just hurry up and put it on." He didn't dare to complain, but he thought to himself, this sweater is actually a bit ugly. Kuka looked like she was about to cry. "You'll drink her chicken soup." He quickly comforted her, accepting his father-in-law's sweater. She asked again, "Do you want to take a few sick days? You don't look well." Chin Nua calculated the time, and it was indeed time to go to work again. Then he replied to Kuku, "It just so happens that Brother Lay's shop got a new batch of cars, and I need to handle the handover with the manufacturer. I plan to go on a business trip with them to learn how to do business." Seeing Kuku's worried expression, he patted her head to comfort her. "Don't worry, it's only for 3 or 4 days. I'll be back after the weekend. Just think of it as a trip. Maybe my sickness will go away. Please take care of Xiao Yi this weekend." She immediately agreed. "Okay, I'll pick Xiao Yi up next Friday." March 20th, 2001, Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. Chin Nua placed a stack of US dollars on the reception desk and said, "I want to go to Lukla and then to EBC." He added, "I'm in a hurry. Please help me make the arrangements." The receptionist replied, "What a coincidence. I have a few old friends who are taking a private flight to EBC tomorrow. You know, the price isn't cheap, and I have to ask if they're willing to take on a strange passenger." EBC is short for Everest Base Camp. Chin Nua immediately put down another stack of money. The receptionist's attitude changed instantly, and he said with a smile, "Those friends of mine are all very easygoing people. I don't think they would refuse a young friend from the East who is passionate about mountaineering." 9:40 a.m., March 21st, 2001, Lukla Airport. A group of people was preparing to board the plane. A young man carrying a suitcase said to his companions, "Girls, let's get ready to go." These 2 girls were sisters. The younger one, Neville de Fonseca, 18 years old. The older one, Raka de Fonseca, 24 years old. Neville asked, "Uncle, Can we go now? Her father said, we still have to wait for one more guest. The uncle looked up at the helicopter above and replied, it seems our late guest is about to arrive. Let's get on first. Chinua stepped down and said, sorry, I'm late. The person in charge of checking tickets came out and asked, the guest introduced by Susan, please show me your passport. He immediately presented it. No problem. A fake passport made on the spot for $50. The person looked at the passport and asked, what's your name? Chen Nuo replied, Chun Jiang, 21 years old, from Hong Kong. He returned the passport and praised, your English is very good. Your accent is very standard. Have you been to London before? Chen Nuo replied, I've traveled there a few times. I'm an Arsenal fan. The uncle extended his hand and said, very good. Our whole family are Arsenal fans. Welcome aboard, Mr. Chun. As they shook hands, the uncle added, I'll say this first. You only paid for a ride on our plane. On the way, any consequences resulting from your actions have nothing to do with us. So once the plane lands at EBC, there will be no further cooperative relationship between us. Chen Nuo understood and smiled. Of course, I'm just hitching a ride. Raka observed, thinking to herself, so he's a rookie. She glanced over, assessing him. Anyone with a bit of climbing experience knows not to waste battery because once you get to EBC, charging your devices is not easy. His body is also thin, not like a climber at all, right? And he was late. He doesn't seem serious. He must be here for the empty fame of conquering Everest without knowing the dangers involved. Both showy and ignorant. At this moment, Chen Nuo took off his headphones and went up to strike a conversation. Hello, you look very familiar. May I ask if your nickname is Hummingbird? Raka replied, that's right. It seems you've read my magazine. He exclaimed, of course, you're very beautiful. Raka immediately thanked him. Chen Nuo's gaze shifted to her younger sister, and he recognized her as Neville. He remembered Hummingbird, a nickname that would later belong to Neville in memory of her sister Raka, who saved her in the previous life. Tomorrow, the Fonseca clan will be wiped out, leaving her all alone. Recalling Chun Nuo's past life, his story with Hummingbird had begun just like this. March 22nd, 2001, Lotzi face. At this time, the uncle leading the team was enthusiastically climbing upwards, shouting down as he climbed. Everyone, keep it up, we're almost at the rest point. Below were the two Fonseca sisters. They used a tool like an ice axe to hook onto the cliff and climb up. The bearded uncle took out a knife, thinking to himself, this custom-made knife. It finally has a use today. The woman above saw him cutting the rope and immediately shouted, hey, what are you doing? He stood there and roared, you two die, so that I can inherit your fortune. And so, the two people above fell. The two sisters witnessed this scene, their hearts breaking, and screamed, Dad, Mom. The evil uncle laughed sinisterly. Don't worry, your uncle won't let your family be separated. Raka looked up in silence. Neva below screamed, Uncle, don't. Raka looked at her sister, smiled, and called out Neville's name. Then grabbed the uncle, instructing, Neville, you have to survive. The uncle screamed in terror, you crazy woman. If you want to die, don't drag me with you. Raka used all her strength to push him into the cliff face, and then they both fell. She still tried to instruct her sister, Neville, you have to survive. 2 months later, the girl stood by the window, holding a knife, looking outside. She saw those people closing a deal. Neva muttered, you took everything from me. This manor is my family's only memory and connection. Why do you have to take it away? The girl tightened her grip on the knife, then stabbed the man in the back, shouting, don't sell my house. The person opposite screamed in horror, murder. And so, Neva was sent to prison. As soon as she arrived, she was noticed by a female guard. I hear you're a rich young lady. The head warden will definitely like you. At that time, Chen Nuo was on a mission and happened to be in front of the head warden's office. He thought to himself, killing a warden, such a low-level mission, I'd better not take these in the future. It's too demeaning. He kicked the door open with one foot and saw an incredibly horrifying scene. The perverted female head warden was licking a whip, holding an iron chain wrapped around Neva's neck, saying, come on, sweetie, scream in pain for me. A gunshot went straight through the female head warden's chest. The head warden fell, groaning, help. Neva stood up and shouted, you've tortured me for 6 whole years. She lunged forward and strangled the head warden, shouting again, you've tortured me for 6 whole years. Afterwards, he took off his cloak and draped it over her. Put this on. Chinua carried Neva on his shoulder and asked for her name. After a moment of silence, he wondered, you don't want to say? She stammered, Hummingbird, Chin Nua said at the time. Hummingbird? I'll remember it. But to him, in this life, she would not be Hummingbird. She would be herself, Neva. Back to this life. On March 22nd, 2001, the uncle waved goodbye to Chin Nua. It was a pleasure. Good luck, young man. We'll be at Camp ABC for the next few days. If you need any help, don't be a stranger. He handed something to Neva, saying, "This is a small gift." She held out her hand and found a chocolate bar inside. Neva thought to herself, what a coincidence. How did he know this is my favorite kind of chocolate? Raka beside her said bluntly, "I don't like this guy." When her sister asked why, she put her hands on her hips and replied, "Because he dared to ignore my beauty and was only nice to you." On the day of the climb, everything was very similar to the previous life. Neva's father was still at the head of the group. He turned back and said, "Everyone, keep it up. We're almost at the rest point." Next was the scene of the uncle cutting the rope. Everyone panicked and shouted, "Oh my God, what are you doing? Stop. Hold on to your ice axes. Don't let go." Then Neva fell. But what was different was Chin Nua's hand appeared. He caught her by the waist, comforting her. "Don't be afraid." He smiled and said, "I've got you." After hearing that, she slowly fainted. In a red tent at the foot of the snowy mountain, Neva woke up and saw Chin Nua sitting there. He scooped up a bowl of hot porridge, then turned and handed it to her, saying, "Drink this. I had a hard time keeping it warm. Hurry up and drink it, or it'll get cold." Neva huddled in her sleeping bag, dazedly recognizing him. Then the girl suddenly remembered what happened during the climb and immediately sat up, shouting, "Dad, Mom, Sister." Chin Nua sat there and asked Neva, "Are you still not awake? There's no one else here, not your father, not your mother, not your sister Raka, and certainly not your Uncle Benjamin. You imagined it all. It was all just you." The fragmented memories in Neva's mind shattered like broken pieces. On April 17th, 1997, her parents, the famous mountaineering couple, died in an accident while climbing Mount Everest due to extreme weather. On June 3rd, 1999, her sister Raka, in an attempt to fulfill their parents' last wish, fell to her death due to a broken climbing rope during acclimatization training on Lhotse Face. On February 7th, 2001, her Uncle Benjamin, due to heavy debts, forced her to sell the family home and was shot and killed by her in self-defense. Although she was later acquitted, Chin Nua continued, "But Neva, from then on, your mental state has had serious problems. You have split into 4 different personalities, namely your parents, your sister, and your uncle, imagining that the family tragedy never happened.